Sakurako just returned from conquering the Bow Dungeon, and the whole crowd is going absolutely wild for her. It showed up in Russia 6 years ago, an S-rank zone that no single player on the entire planet could manage to clear until now. Clearing it is a massive historic win for all of humanity, and that victory rests right in Sakurako's hands. Umi Sakurako, 100 Flower Blooming Guildmaster, S-rank sitting 3rd overall. Rocking a Grand Sorcerer class and the 9-tailed fox skill, she proudly tells fans this was expected. A reporter then asks if she thinks the Lulu Heart dungeon, widely considered the absolute hardest zone ever, might be cleared soon. People speculate that only Sakurako could possibly do it. She just smirks at the mention of that ultimate player goal. She tells the crowd it means nothing. Arrogantly, she announces she only clears dungeons for her own sake. She heads for her car, reporters chasing. They beg for more questions. She ignores them. Meanwhile, over at Kanzaki Yukari's house, he sits watching Sakurako's interview video and realizes it is just about time for his part-time job. He stands to change. He remembers his shift today means hauling supplies to a dungeon, then he suddenly recalls Sakurako's arrogant speech about only clearing zones for herself. He falls totally silent for a second. Later, up on a rooftop, he stares at the massive dungeon tower right in front of him, secretly wishing he could just challenge it. The Lulu Heart dungeon is the very first zone to appear in this world. The absolute hardest dungeon globally. No one has ever cleared it. Every time the news shows a brand new player, Yukari catches himself dreaming that he could be one of them. But it never happens. During evaluation, the specialists just apologized. He was entirely skillless. That meant 0 dungeon access. Still, he stayed completely persistent and tried anyway. But real players refused to work with a skillless guy. They bullied him constantly, calling him completely useless. Even his own co-worker told him to stop dreaming. The guy insisted he did not mean to sound harsh, just acting like a friend. He understood Yukari hated accepting it. But the hard truth, he had absolutely no talent, purely skillless. It is a bitter term for people who cannot receive any skill benefits and can never become actual players. If a skillless person actually walks into a dungeon, 90% end up dead. The rest go missing forever. Because of those brutal stats, people without skills are legally banned from dungeon gates. Yukari knows deep down. He knows he is skillless, definitely not one of the chosen ones. And yet he refuses to give up. He continues working these part-time dungeon jobs while thinking about how incredibly foolish he acts. He stares down at his brand new sword, feeling sad. Staring at the blade, he knows he might never actually use it. But hold on, the universe has other plans. The solid ground shakes. A massive growl shocks everyone on the street. The system instantly flashes a bright red warning. A dungeon break from the Phantom Dungeon. The plague that spreads in solitude begins descending. The nun who devours the future from the Oryx dungeon and the strange lamb, mistaken for all time from the forest dungeon, also emerge. Yukari and the terrified citizens instantly flee as the system repeatedly warns them. It warns that a massive swarm of the lamb mistaken for all time is pouring out. One hideous monster starts chasing him. He runs with everything he has, wondering why monsters are loose in the city. What on earth is actually happening right now? Swinging his blade backward, he tries to slash the monster, but he watches in pure shock as his brand new sword completely snaps. He did not even leave a single scratch. He looks back in terror, seeing the monster's jaws snapping at him. This is it. But suddenly someone incredibly powerful drops in. She uses a Scarlet Leaf Flash skill to slice the ugly beast right into pieces. She lands smoothly right in front of him, asking if he got hurt. He's completely stunned to see Oromachi Sarah standing there. Core member of the 100 Flower Blooming Guild, an S-rank player ranked 8th rocking a Swordmaster class and the Eye of Truth. He stutters out a nervous thank you for the save. She turns back, explaining that monsters are currently overflowing from dungeons everywhere. She says this area is especially deadly right now, so he needs to flee immediately. Yet he still asks if there's anything he can do. With deep concern on her face, she replies the only helpful thing he can do is run away. He really wants to object, but he knows better than anyone. He cannot do anything. He quietly replies that she's probably right. Sarah steps forward, shouting for him to run right now. He obeys, sprinting away in the opposite direction, while leaving Sarah completely behind to face the entire monster swarm alone. Her eyes close in heavy despair and guilt. Minutes later, he finally stops running to catch his breath and hides behind a nearby car park. But he notices something terrifying. Monsters are swarming absolutely everywhere. He just has to keep running, knowing the main streets leave him way too exposed. He desperately tries to escape into the alleyways, but stops in pure shock when he spots a lady collapsed in a massive pool of blood and rushes over frantically, asking if she needs help. But she just stares up, asking if he's human. He drops to his knees beside her, insisting they have to get her to a hospital right now. Deep down, he knows injuries that severe are basically a death sentence. He hesitates until he remembers Sierra, the one who once saved his life. He absolutely refuses to run away this time. There has to be some way he can actually fix this. He reaches out to pick her up and carry her somewhere completely safe. But she violently slaps his hand away, screaming at him to stay back and not touch her. She snarls that she hadn't fallen low enough to rely on some pathetic human, but he just grabs her anyway, completely catching her off guard. She yells out, demanding to know why he isn't listening. Kanzaki Yukari just forces her onto his back and takes off running as fast as he possibly can. She keeps screaming at him to drop her, but he just yells right back, telling her to hold on tight because they are getting out of there. High up, the massive plague dragon circles the city. It gathers terrifying energy in its jaws and fires it straight down. A huge explosion violently turns everything around them to dust. Carrying the lady, Kanzaki Yukari gets caught right in the brutal shockwave. The impact throws him violently to the ground. He slams hard, bouncing against the rubble before finally stopping his momentum. He shoots up head spinning as he tries to process the total destruction. He looks over his shoulder and freezes. The dragon is staring right at him. Pure panic sets in. But then he realizes the monster is looking right past him, scanning the broken landscape. It completely ignores him. He wonders why it hasn't attacked yet. It must be hunting for something specific. Snapping out of his daze, he remembers the injured lady. He scrambles through the dust and finds her collapsed on the ground nearby. He drags her right back onto his shoulders and starts running all over again. She just watches him calmly, asking why he's fighting so hard. She points out the bitter truth. Even if they run, they're both going to die today. Isn't that completely obvious by now? He doesn't stop moving. He breathlessly agrees that she's absolutely right, but giving up is still not an option. He tells her he's just going to do whatever he can right in this moment. That actually surprises her. She asks if he's hoping to change their fate. He shoots back that he definitely wants to. If he had the power, he would save the entire world, but he knows he cannot. So the absolute least he can do is try to save her life. Now she looks genuinely stunned. Her calm voice returns. She tells him that their interests perfectly align right here. She pushes him away just a little bit, admitting she absolutely hates relying on some fragile human. But he's the only vessel left, so she has zero choice. She offers him a deal, the power to save the world, in exchange for his soul. He asks how she could possibly pull that off. Her answer is simple. They are going to rewind time and start everything all over again. She commands him to state his name. He tells her Kanzaki Yukari. In an instant, she unleashes a massive magic circle packed with overwhelming dark energy, leaving him speechless. She finally reveals her true identity. She is Lulu Heart, the soul-devouring demon lord and ruler of the Lulu Heart dungeon. A literal demon lord standing right in front of him. Then he watches her pull out this blindingly bright star. She tells him that her dungeon is a golden memory that can never fade away. Squeezing the glowing star tight, she officially entrusts its entire fate into his hands. Suddenly, a terrifying force rips him backward. A massive system message pops up, declaring that while his past life was completely empty, he threw it all away to save the girl and the world. To honor that insane sacrifice, the mysterious round table grants him a new skill. System glitch. It suddenly detects a total lack of talent and causality within him. The interface scans his pathetic status again. As a special exception, the round table forcefully patches together a custom skill just for him. The glowing text completely locks in. He has officially acquired the unique skill known as Lost Man, an unknown rank ability focused entirely on losing oneself. The system actually shows respect, giving him a blessing for having the sheer resolve to sacrifice everything. The very next second, his eyes snap open. He sits up in pure shock, grabbing his tablet. Are you catching this? The timeline just snapped. He sees breaking news about a B-rank dungeon in Russia, an event that happened exactly 6 years ago. He grabs his phone in an absolute panic. The screen glows brightly, confirming an impossible date from 6 full years in the past. Right then, a lady with a sharp horn speaks up, casually mentioning that he finally woke up. She flashes him a little smile. He drops his phone in pure horror, brain scrambling to figure out what is happening. Years ago, the massive Tower of Beginnings spawned in Shinjuku. The world knew it as the Lulu Heart dungeon. Like a chain reaction, identical towers started erupting from the ground all across the globe. Inside those walls, pure supernatural monsters. But to balance the scales, humans suddenly started awakening to absolutely insane powers and combat skills. Society called these awakened individuals players. Their shiny new skills let them pull off impossible godlike feats. They totally shattered the laws of physics. Armed with skills, these players dove into the dungeons. It kicked off a brand new era built entirely around them. And now moving forward, young Lulu Heart smiles at him, and in total panic, he asks her what just happened. She simply tells him he regressed, which only scrambles his brain even more. Roughly 6 years back into the past, she explains, and it's all thanks to the grand magic of the demon lord Lulu Heart. He asks if going back in time is actually possible. Nothing is impossible for her, she replies, looking incredibly proud. But she does admit she lost most of her magical power in the process. That's exactly why she ended up in this adorable little form, and she lets him know he's the only one who can actually see her. He realizes she does look kind of familiar, matching the older Lulu Heart in his memories. She tells him she already fulfilled her half of the contract. Now it's his turn. He needs to step up and stop the incoming dungeon break. He says he'd love to help, but he has absolutely no clue what to do. The dungeon break, she explains, was a massive calamity triggered by demon lords ruling over the other dungeons. Their entire goal was to invade her Lulu Heart dungeon. Why? Because it held the greatest concentration of magical power in the entire world. She adds that since they couldn't take down someone as ridiculously strong as her on their own, they formed a massive alliance. So if they just systematically conquer every single dungeon in this world, they can stop that exact future from happening. It's really hard for him to admit this, but he finally confesses he is incredibly weak and literally has zero skills. Plus, he has never even set a single foot inside a dungeon before. But here's the wild part. She just asks, what about it? And it really doesn't matter in the slightest. All that actually matters is his resolve. To a demon lord like her, she explains humans are basically all the same anyway, so he shouldn't stress about it. She personally guarantees she'll train him to become the absolute strongest. She swears to him firmly and confidently he will break past human limits and protect her beloved Lulu Heart dungeon. A moment later, they arrive at the F-rank dungeon Lamura. He looks around totally restless since it's his very first time inside a dungeon. Not exactly feeling the excitement, just pure nerves. He asks her about that intense training she mentioned earlier. She releases her power, floating right up into the air. He'll understand once they actually start, she says. But seeing a dark, magical power swirl around her, he completely panics. He yells at her to wait a second, asking what she's about to do. She just reaches out, placing her hand straight on his chest. He screams in absolute agony. Totally dizzy, he wonders what's happening. His head starts pounding so hard it feels like it might actually split open, but she stays perfectly calm, explaining she infused her magic straight into his magical circuits. Now even a skillless guy like him should be perfectly able to sense mana. Dropping straight to his knees, he's totally paralyzed by the pain as her magic floods his body. What on earth is she even talking about? It seems acquiring a skill also gave him a magical circuit to handle mana, she notes. Not that he's actually listening to her. The pain is overwhelming, burning his body from the inside out. He can't even think straight, feeling himself slowly blacking out. In that exact moment, he just wishes the pain would stop. The system detects his desperate desire to lose that agony. And this is where it gets interesting. Because of that pure desperation, he actually meets the conditions for his unique skill, Lost Man. He looks up and the system confirms the pain has literally been lost. But since the skill is only at level 1, the effect's duration has a strict time limit. He still can't believe the pain is gone, feeling something entirely new circulating through his body. Checking his hand, he sees magical power right there, prompting him to ask if this is mana. He already knew mana was absolutely essential for using skills and class magic. And back in the world before his regression, he couldn't even sense a single drop of it. Overjoyed, he clenches his fist, watching magical power flow right out of his body. Lulu Heart sees his system screen too, asking if she's right about his skill being a pretty convenient ability. She points out that humans always seem to have way too many unnecessary things holding them back. Then she kicks off their training, instructing him to try gathering the mana, flowing through his body straight into his legs. She infuses her own mana into him, explaining that if he can control it well enough, he can move far beyond normal human limits. He focuses incredibly hard, giving it everything he has to channel it down. For one split second, he actually manages to push some mana there, but it quickly scatters right back through his system. He tells her he just can't control it properly. Every time he tries to focus it into his legs, it totally disperses midway. Honestly, she wasn't expecting him to succeed right from the start anyway, which actually surprises him. She's definitely a lot kinder than he thought, he admits, assuming she'd push him to get it perfectly right away. But then she just smirks. Laughing it off, she tells him his will and ability don't actually matter in the slightest. Totally confused, he asks her what the hell that's supposed to mean. But then he catches a weird sound echoing around them, asking her if she hears it too. Suddenly, a monster bursts out, rushing straight toward him. He freezes for a split second, then snaps into focus as he realizes what it is. An orc. The massive beast chases after him while he runs in pure panic, screaming out what is happening, and why is there an orc right at the entrance, floating right beside him. She reminds him that even weakened, he just absorbed the demon lord. To a monster that is basically the finest delicacy appearing right before its eyes. She excitedly tells him that monsters will now come from everywhere to devour him. Meanwhile, she just gracefully floats around with her tea and cake. While he runs for his life, shouting that he has never fought a day in his life, she calmly sits down in midair and explains that if he simply infuses mana into his legs and accelerates, he should be able to escape. He shouts back that is exactly what he cannot do, hence the trouble. She only looks totally confused at his complaint and asks if she's right in thinking he should just get a little better at it. He yells back that she's absolutely the worst. The orc raises its spiked hammer high and swings it right down at him. Pushed to the brink, he manages to channel mana straight into his legs and strengthens them in pure panic. Jumping away just in time, he avoids the hammer that would have crushed him, leaving the beast completely shocked. A short distance away, he stops and realizes that for a brief moment, mana truly surged into his legs, entirely evident from the deep footprint left behind. Suddenly, his whole body overflows with power, absolutely thrilled to experience real mana manipulation for the very first time. Lulu Heart tells him it is totally fine to be amazed, but he will die if he does not act. Looking up, he sees more massive orcs standing right there. One of them swings a hammer down. He freezes in absolute fear, thinking this really is the end. The beast strikes him and crushes his body in a single hit. The system displays that he has died, and the round table will now retrieve his skills. But then he hears Lulu Heart calling out that just will not do. She asks why he is dying and leaving her behind, as if she would ever allow something like that. A demon hand suddenly appears, violently shattering the system attempt to take back his skill. The system glitches out briefly and displays a brand new message. Interference by Demon Lord Lulu Heart has officially prevented skill retrieval. Due to the active contract between him and Lulu Heart, he will now return to exactly 1 hour before. Waking up screaming in sheer terror, he realizes he's about to get smashed by that same spiked hammer. Yet Lulu Heart just greets him with a very cheerful good morning and asks if he had a nice sleep. She then draws out her mana and asks if they should resume. Before he can even finish asking what she's doing, placing her hand on his chest again, she forces her mana straight into his circuit once more, causing him to scream out in pain. However, he remembers the exact sensation from earlier. Just minutes later, the system activates his Lostman skill, completely relieving him of the burning pain. Furious, he asks her what in the world she's doing, but she simply asks back if he really has time to spout nonsense. At that exact moment, he feels a heavy presence behind him. Fortunately, he jumps away just in time before getting crushed again. He begins running again, shouting out that he really thought he had died. Lulu Heart confirms that he did die, crushed by an orc and basically turned into mincemeat. He desperately asks her why he is somehow alive again. She explains the death return contract, binding them together. Whenever he dies, he resets to the world exactly 1 hour before. Confused, but with absolutely no time to think about it, he just keeps on running. Lulu Heart tells him not to worry about unnecessary details. The only thing you guys need to know right now, until he stops this dungeon break, he literally cannot die permanently. They are in this together, and there's no way she will allow him to die and leave her behind. She shouts at him to finally show her his resolve. The orc catches up, but once again he manages to channel mana straight into his legs and jumps away to dodge the lethal attack. Lulu Heart praises him, saying his reaction is way better than the first time. She admits she thought it would take longer for him to control magic, but it seems dying once actually had quite an effect. She then forms a glowing sword using her own magical power, and tells him that if he really plans to become strong enough to stop the dungeon break, he cannot just keep running forever. Taking the weapon, he knows he did not come back just to keep fleeing from monsters. He definitely cannot stay stuck here. Walking a little closer, she tells him she will only say this once, so he better pay close attention. She begins explaining that his internal magic, circuits, the parts connecting to the magic, overflowing in this world, are directly linked to his soul. In other words, with a strong will, he can control magic itself. But to do that, he really needs a powerful desire, which could be a passionate wish to grow stronger, or even the sheer arrogance of wanting to save the entire world. She then asks him what exactly he desires. He remembers the massive dragon that so effortlessly destroyed the city, and replies that he wants to stop the dungeon entirely and he wants to become truly strong. The massive orc raises its hammer and swings hard at him, but he bends his body incredibly low to dodge the strike. Driven by his brand new determination, he springs right back up and dashes toward the beast. Raising his sword, he channels mana right into the blade, which allows him to he slices the orc cleanly in half with one massive swing. Panting heavily, exhaustion hits him hard, but the satisfaction is totally worth it. His very first monster kill. Lulu Heart chimes right in, reminding him she always said he could pull it off with a little effort. Then she casually admits her original plan, letting him die 100 times just so his body could adapt to handling raw magic. Thankfully, his lost man skill completely bypassed that nightmare. Yukari sighs, realizing once again that Lulu Heart is an absolute menace to be around. Suddenly, heavy footsteps shake the ground. A massive horde of orcs comes charging straight for them out of nowhere. Lulu Heart practically cheers, shouting that the next wave is already here. Yukari channels pure mana into his legs and launches himself upward. He dashes right over the oncoming horde. Sprinting through the air at blazing speed, he feels magic flooding every single nerve. Diving back down, he splits an orc straight down the middle. He dodges a brutal counterattack, twisting his body out of the way. One smooth, deadly swing ends the beast. His body moves with impossible precision, reacting entirely on pure instinct now. Confidence surging, he tears right through the surrounding monsters without slowing down. An hour passes. Lulu Heart actually praises him for taking down 10 orcs that fast, calling it a pretty solid run for a total beginner. Keep this pace up, she adds, and his strength will skyrocket. He stays completely silent. Suddenly, a terrifying scream echoes from deep in the darkness. They creep toward the noise. Up ahead, a man stands, gripping a blood-soaked knife, screaming at someone and calling them a complete and utter idiot. He scolds a young woman on the ground. If she had just abandoned her teammates, he sneers she actually might have survived this fight. He mockingly calls out her name, Amachi Seira. She looks so young right now, her eye of truth skill flaring brightly. But she has no class yet, just a helpless F-rank player. The man chuckles, praising her sharp eyes before raising his heavy combat knife. He was absolutely right to target her, he shouts. Sierra stays totally calm as the blade drops toward her face, but right before impact, Yukari crashes in just in time. He blocks the lethal strike with his sword, roaring that he will not let this psycho touch her. Furious, Yukari screams, "Do you even know what you are doing?" But the killer is massively stronger. He shoves Yukari backward with zero effort. He calmly tilts his head. "Who the hell are you?" Sierra screams out a warning. This guy is a serial killer hunting down new players. She begs Yukari to run for his life. He glances back and finally recognizes her face. Amachi Seira, the legendary S-rank player who saved him in his previous life before the regression. The killer Akatsuki Kei shoves Yukari hard against the ground. Kei starts wildly slashing with his blade, taunting his prey. Do you really have time to look away from a fight to the death? A heavy blow knocks Yukari's sword completely away. He used up too much magic on the orcs. His arms feel like lead right now. You're full of blind spots, Kei sneers. He instantly activates Wave of Terror Level 3, a nasty skill that inflicts crippling panic. The system screen flashes red. Yukari is now locked under a severe terror status. Uncontrollable dread toward Akatsuki Kei completely paralyzes his mind. He cannot use any skills, and his stats take a massive nosedive for a set time limit. Taking advantage, Kei violently swings his knife. The blade buries deep into his stomach. Yukari screams in pure agony as the metal tears through muscle. Kei roughly rips the weapon out. Turning his back, Kei casually walks toward the badly wounded Sierra. Barely holding on, Yukari chokes out a desperate plea for him to stop, but Kei ignores him completely. He kneels down next to Sierra, whispering that he just wants to figure out how her special skills work. Yukari watches in pure horror as Sierra screams out. Kei just stabbed her eye out, then starts creepily muttering to her. He looks at her and the dead teammates, hoping he finds something interesting once he dissects them all. Then he stabs her eye again. He plunges the knife in over and over. Her agonizing screams echo through the dungeon. Yukari lies there completely shattered and raging inside. He forces his broken body to move, but blood just pours out faster. He begs Kei to stop. Memories from the past timeline hit hard. Sierra risked everything to save him back then. Now he cannot even protect her. Kei laughs like a maniac, grabbing Yukari by the hair. Yukari curses himself. He's far too weak. This terrible tragedy is happening entirely because he lacks the power to stop it. Kei stabs him relentlessly until his vision fades to black. But thanks to that magic contract, death is not the end. Time rewinds exactly 1 hour. He snaps awake right where he just finished slaughtering those 10 orcs. He slowly turns his head toward Lulu Heart. He needs a massive favor. She smiles wide, suddenly very intrigued by his serious tone. Go ahead and say it. He stands up tall, eyes burning with new resolve. Make me stronger, he demands. He does not care how many times he has to die. He's going to absolutely crush that murderer. Message received, she replies smoothly. Honestly, she could not care less about what happens to some random little girl in this dungeon. But if pure revenge is his motivation, perfect. She's going to let him go totally wild and personally whip him into combat shape. Now watch how this timeline shifts. Back in the cave, Kei tells Sierra her resistance against his lethal skills is actually quite impressive for a total rookie. You are definitely Sakurako's sister. He chuckles darkly. Though he does complain that today's dungeon feels completely empty with barely any monsters around. Kei suddenly dashes straight at her. He promises to take his sweet time breaking her spirit, and yet Sierra stands there perfectly calm. She waits for him to get closer. But right before that deadly knife hits boom, Yukari appears out of absolute nowhere, completely blocking the strike. Kei yells out, "Who the hell is this guy? And does he know Sierra?" Meanwhile, Sierra completely collapses to her knees in pure agony. She screams for Yukari to run away immediately. Kei actively targets beginners. But Yukari stands his ground. He does not flinch. He tries his absolute best to deflect Kei's heavy incoming attacks. He tells Sierra to fall back. He will handle things from here. But unfortunately, he dies at Kei's hands yet again. He remembers hearing dark rumors about this beginner killer. That was even before he traveled back in time. But Sierra has never taken such serious injuries. He realizes it has to be his own fault for luring all those dungeon orcs away. That gave Kei total free rein to strike. He knows he cannot change that brutal fact now. Even with Lulu Heart's special contract, he just cannot return. Not earlier than his very first death. He figures if he had just killed those orcs faster, this tragedy might not have happened. Once more, he blames his own weakness for everything, and then he dies again. Upon his third death, Lulu Heart lectures him. His swordplay is way too straightforward. Taking Kei down requires a sneakier approach. On his fourth attempt, she demands full attention. Watch the exact flow of his movements and stop separating offense from defense. He desperately needs to connect every single motion fluidly. On the fifth run, she yells that his mana is totally disrupted again. She warns him to never lose focus. Ignore everything else. On his sixth loop, she teaches him to read his opponent's mana. Doing this will naturally help anticipate their very next move. Then comes loop number 7. She explains Kei's entire strategy relies heavily on quick counters, so Yukari simply needs to bait him into attacking first. By the 8th attempt, Sierra has been watching closely. She asks why he's going to such extreme lengths for them. Reaching his 10th death, Lulu Heart bluntly asks if he isn't terrified of dying. He replies he has absolutely nothing left. And if he does not put everything on the line right now, he will never save anyone, even if it costs his life. That raw confession completely amazes Lulu Heart. He knows giving up right now means failure. The dungeon break would result in countless brutal deaths, and when weighing everyone else's lives against his own personal pain, the final choice is completely obvious. Lulu Heart watches him fight and die yet again. She remembers all the selfish people she has seen in dungeons. They abandon their teammates without hesitation and only look out for themselves. That is exactly why she cannot understand Yukari endlessly sacrificing his own life for others. He just dies again and again for hours, until Kei is finally genuinely impressed. He marvels at how well Yukari reads his movements as if it were their first fight. He never realizes Yukari has died so many times that he can now instinctively predict Kei's every single action. Kei arrogantly states the big difference between them is their actual commitment to dying. He claims Yukari just doesn't have it in him. Yukari feels momentarily confused. He wonders if his resolve still is not quite enough. But then he stands back up with one clear thought. Even so, he absolutely will not let anyone else die today. Lulu Heart stands completely speechless for a moment. Then she shouts out, she really never expected him to come this incredibly far. Now watch closely because this is where everything finally clicks. She tells him the final missing piece is simply recognizing how ridiculously strong he has already become. Those words completely shock and stun him into total silence. He just looks away, not knowing how to even respond. Lulu Heart tells him he is still stuck seeing himself as a weakling. It is totally true he had zero talent, no skills, and absolutely no mana before. And yet he kept coming back. Even after dying repeatedly, even though he easily could have abandoned that little girl and ran away, he never did. He tries to argue back about abandoning Sierra, but she immediately cuts him off. She proudly states that he never ran away. No matter how many times he brutally lost his own life, he always chose to keep fighting. That's exactly why he has grown so strong. She floats much closer and points right at him. She tells him that even she, the Demon Lord, fully acknowledges his real strength. She asks why he's still moping around. She fiercely orders him to stand up and lift his head, and he obeys. Kei swings that deadly knife in his direction, but Yukari dodges it with total ease. Lulu Heart points out he can now clearly read Kei's knife movements. Kei is completely shocked when Yukari smoothly bends down and swings his sword for a heavy counterattack, which Kei barely blocks. Lulu Heart screams for Yukari to swing his blade with absolutely everything he has. Yukari actually manages to push Kei far away with his sword. Even with Kei using his knife to fiercely resist, Lulu Heart proudly remarks that Yukari can absolutely cut Kei down right now. He looks down and sees he has actually slashed Kei's hand too. She presses him even further, loudly demanding to know how long he will keep this up. How long will he pretend to be weak? She shouts for him to finally accept his true strength. Yukari notices Kei's right foot slide back and instantly recognizes a thrust is coming, dodging it cleanly. He predicts the overhead slash and foresees the follow-up kick. He dodges both moves with perfect precision, leaving Kei. Kei looks totally lost by the sudden shift. Yukari swings his blade again, but the killer dodges. Still, Kei is visibly rattled. Just a second ago, Yukari was nothing but a clueless kid who could barely hold a weapon. A total weakling, cowering in fear. Getting pushed back, Kei seriously questions how he is actually losing to a guy like this. Someone so utterly helpless. Yukari lands another clean slash right on Kei's arm. Panic sets in. Yukari spots his perfect opening. Raising his blade, he fires up his Lostman skill. It instantly wipes out the terror Kei planted inside him. Mana floods his weapon. He brings it crashing down. Reacting fast, Kei focuses pure magic power straight into his own hand. The killer mocks him for dropping his guard, unleashing another massive wave of fear. But Yukari already figured it out. Kei's power relies on amplifying terror when he finds an opening. But Yukari already completely erased that exact emotion. It does not work. Fear is completely gone from his system, so the entire amplification process just flat out fails. Pure shock hits Kei. His signature move got completely cancelled. Growing desperate now, he swings his combat knife straight at Yukari. Arrogantly, he shouts that dodging a point-blank strike is impossible. Right on cue, Yukari triggers the Lostman skill once again. He turns off his own pain right before impact. Blood splatters everywhere, yet he stays standing. Kei screams out his victory. Completely unfazed, Yukari just gives a cold smirk. Kei stares in absolute horror. The kid caught the blade barehanded. Watch the tables turn. Kei demands to know how Yukari reads every move and why literally nothing is working on him. Breathing out, Yukari tells the killer he finally caught up. Now drowning in his own absolute terror, Kei asks who he actually is. Skipping the chit-chat, Yukari rips a heavy slash across Kei's stomach and declares this fight over. The killer drops flat on the dirt. He lies there soaking in his own blood. Yet he still screams out that losing to trash like Yukari is totally impossible. Yukari casually drops a wild truth. Kay actually killed him 187 times before this, and yet he won. Soon after the 100 Flowers Blooming Guild shows up, Sierra's crew arrives to offer backup and heal up everyone's nasty combat injuries. Sierra walks over with a heavy apology, swearing to somehow make things right. But he just brushes it off. Nobody died today. That is honestly enough for him. His casual response catches her off guard. Sierra and her entire team bow deeply in pure gratitude. Stepping out of the F-rank dungeon a minute later, Lulu Heart points out a hard fact. It took quite a while. It took him a really long time to bounce back from that last death. Still, she flashes a bright smile and praises his work. He stays quiet for a beat. Then the tears finally start falling and he whispers a soft thank you. She just smiles back. Teasingly, she asks why he is bawling over a simple victory. Then she pivots right back to their actual main goal today. They need to stop the dungeon break entirely. To pull that off, they have to completely surpass those so-called S-rank elites. Lulu Heart points a finger right at him. She boldly declares that he is destined to reach Demon Lord level status very soon. Chuckling, he asks what that even means. But honestly, Demon Lord level sounds pretty great to him. He makes her a firm promise. He swears he will get it just as strong as she is. Floating up with excitement, Lulu Heart warns him her training is brutal. Promising to give it his all, he vows to rewrite that doomed future. The very next day, he shows up at a new spot. He enters the Japan Player Association Shinjuku branch. Following a staff member inside, he gets a quick update. Since he just registered as a player, things are moving. With his crazy battle record, a rank up is basically guaranteed. Reaching out, he touches the massive globe in the center of the room and nods. The staff woman is still in disbelief. Not only did he hunt down orcs, he actually took out Kay the murderer, all on his exact first day of official registration. She genuinely wonders if that is actually possible. People already suspect Kay totally faked his original rank. He faked it to enter beginner dungeons. But even so, Kay was still strong enough to be a massive threat. The globe suddenly lights up. Yukari stares in shock as the system confirms his contribution points totally smashed the required threshold. He instantly secures the title of E-rank player. The system aggressively corrects his status, bumping up every single one of his stats. His magic circuits increase by 2 alongside a huge mana boost. Plus his signature Lostman skill officially hits level 2. The effect duration jumps up by 3, expanding the overall range of targets he can lose. He knows exactly what this means. He's finally an official E-rank player. At long last, he can pick a real class. Later, he waits inside a quiet building. A woman steps in, thanking him for waiting. She quickly apologizes for calling him over on such insanely short notice today. He looks back surprised to see the elegant Sierra walking right toward him. Catching his stare, she asks if something is wrong. Awkwardly, he mutters that it is nothing. But right then, a massive realization hits him. He actually forgot something huge. Sierra is the daughter of the massive Oramachi conglomerate. The girl standing right in front of him is basically true royalty, a total high society lady. He remembers that before his regression, Sarah actually became an S-rank player, hitting 8th place globally. She was an absolute genius. Standing right beside her prodigy sister, Sakurako, the two of them pretty much ruled the top ranks of Japan. Sarah wielded this insanely powerful mental type ability easily, one of the highest tier skills in his past life. It literally let her see right through any lie. It caught basic deception, sure, but it also exposed physical feints during combat. Sarah thanks him again for yesterday's rescue. She tells him straight up she's only alive right now because he stepped in, but he brushes it off. He clarifies she survived because she protected those other two. He later finds out Sarah had never even set foot inside a dungeon before, yet she still managed to hold her ground and protect 2 injured people. Honestly, he can barely believe it. She grabs his hand, saying his words make her feel quite a bit better. She steps just a little too close and his face instantly goes red. 2 grab a table at a small cafe. Here Sarah brings up their chat from yesterday, ready to explain how player classes work. She asks if they should go ahead and pick their classes, now admitting she might be rushing things a bit. A job class, she explains, is something every single player gets to select the second they hit E rank. Think of it like picking a career path. These jobs generally fall into 3 big categories: physical magic or mental based. A player's class heavily depends on their core personality and raw abilities. The skills they get directly mirror who they actually are. For the physical side, you get your standard warriors, knights, and thieves. On the magic end, players unlock options like sorcerers or healing priests. And for mental types, things get unique. You see highly specialized roles like alchemists, clerics, or even summoners. He remembers his life before the regression. He was a massive player geek back then, spending hours researching every single class detail. In that past timeline, Sarah picked the Swordmaster class. It gave her a unique counter ability that perfectly stacked with her lie detection. That combo let her read enemy moves with 0 mistakes, landing absolutely flawless counterattacks every single time. People literally called it a cheat code. Sarah then drops a crucial warning: you have to match your skills with the right class. If a magic user picks a magic class, the synergy naturally kicks in. Those overlapping traits create a massive boost to their overall power. But if that same magic user picks a physical class, the mismatch ruins the build, leaving both their magic and physical stats completely average. They just become a jack of all trades, mastering absolutely nothing. She admits she does not know what his specific skill does, but she strongly warns him to choose carefully. He thanks her that advice is actually incredibly helpful, but he then realizes his own skill, Lostman, is a total anomaly. He never even heard of it during his entire past life. He honestly has no idea what kind of class options he's going to get. Floating nearby, Lulu Heart nods along. She seems to completely understand the complex logic behind human abilities. Wrapping up the explanation, Sarah stands and waves goodbye. She tells him she needs to go handle her own class evaluation first. A while later, she returns to the cafe and thanks him for waiting around. He asks if she finally made her class choice. She nods. She ended up getting 4 different options, including heavy hitters like Swordmaster and Paladin. He's genuinely stunned. Getting that many high-tier choices at her current level practically stamps genius right on her forehead. Then Sarah happily drops the real bomb she picked an S-rank class. His jaw practically hits the floor. He knows exactly what that class is, an elite path blending elegant magic with incredibly cold, calculated combat strikes. In the original timeline, she settled for the A-rank Swordmaster. Yet now, she's visibly thrilled to stand shoulder to shoulder with brave fighters like him. Hearing her call him brave catches him off guard. A warm, genuine feeling settles in his chest, just knowing she respects him. She flashes a smile and tells him it's finally his turn. He stands up, heading straight for the evaluation zone. He stops dead in front of the glowing globe. Before his regression, he died without ever getting the chance to pick a class. So whatever happens next is completely unmapped territory. He places his hand on the glass, watching the system process his core aptitude. Suddenly, a massive error warning flashes. He jumps back a step. Is the machine actually malfunctioning? Not quite. The screen displays a bizarre message. It detects an entirely unknown reaction within his body, forcing it to redefine his class. Even Lulu Heart snaps to attention. The loading bar finally finishes and he stares at the final result in absolute shock. The system labels him a Soul Eater, rank Text Plus. He just inherited the terrifying power of a soul-devouring demon lord. The text reveals the dark truth. A Soul Eater devours enemies to steal their raw strength or commands those broken souls to dominate the battlefield. Back on the battlefield, he stares at the screen in pure confusion. This class never showed up as an option before. Then the class-specific skills pop up right in front of him. Soul Loss, Soul Trial, Soul Devour, and Soul Harvest. Totally overwhelmed, he yells out that he has never seen these, not even before his regression, and demands to know what is happening. Lulu Heart grabs his shoulder and snaps right back. That is her power. They take a hard look at his new class. She wonders out loud if the ghosts running the round system actually judged her as a piece of the darkness. The system goes on to break down every single unlocked skill. Fast forward a moment, and he heads back to the cafe where Lulu Heart waits. She asks if he finally picked a class. He nods and drops the name, a totally unknown class called Soul Eater. Lulu Heart admits she has no idea what that is, looking completely lost. Turns out they both scored totally unprecedented, unique classes. Popping up right next to him, Lulu Heart yells that the timing is absolute perfection. She orders him to challenge Sierra to a mock battle right now. He needs to unleash his power and test this class out. They can talk details later, which completely catches him off guard. Minutes later, at the Japan Player Association inside the Shinjuku branch arena, he stands across from Sierra for their practice match. He blinks in surprise at her full maid outfit and straight up asks why. She shrugs the outfit, just hypes her up. Word travels fast, and players are already crowding the arena to watch Sierra throw down, especially since her opponent is the rookie who crushed Kay, that notorious beginner hunter. A staff member jumps on the mic, announcing the start of the match and calling for the fight to begin. Staring her down, he takes a breath and reminds himself that Soul Eater is a complete mystery class. This is his very first time using it in real combat. He triggers his Soul Loss skill, sending his magic power surging higher. But his stamina instantly tanks. The heavy debuff completely stuns him. Before he even processes the drain, the system flashes. His Lost Man skill activates and completely wipes away the emotion of hatred. Lulu Heart floats right above him, teasingly adding that she forgot to mention her crazy strong power comes with some pretty nasty drawbacks. He immediately figures out she left that tiny detail out on purpose. Sierra snaps him back to reality, asking if he's done testing things out. He firmly assures her he's good to go. A quick smile flashes across Sierra's face before she goes dead serious. Here's where things get crazy, she warns him. She's coming. He locks his eyes on her as she launches forward with insane speed. The system flashes and alert Maid's Work tools activated. It is a class skill that summons exclusive maid items. A whole arsenal of deadly weapons materializes right out of thin air. She hurls a volley of kitchen knives at him. He deflects them all, but Sierra just keeps closing the gap. She draws the sword at her waist and takes a vicious swing. He barely brings up his own blade in time to block. It hits him fast. Sierra's lie detection ability actually lets her see straight through his combat feints. He has absolutely zero choice but to fight her head on. Sierra taunts him, asking if he seriously has time to think right now. She chucks another blade his way. He bends over backwards, dodging it by a hair. Snapping right back upright, he glares at her. She's already summoning even more weapons to throw. Seeing the next attack forming, he triggers Lost Man again, completely wiping out his fear. She launches a massive spread of knives. He parries ducks and weaves through them like it is nothing rushing straight at her. Shocked, she asks if her eyes are playing tricks. Her jaw nearly drops when he vanishes and reappears right in her face, sword raised for a heavy strike. Sierra manages a block, but the raw force behind the blow rattles her. He violently shoves her back across the floor. The crowd of players goes completely silent, and you can see why. Thanks to Soul Loss, pure magic is overflowing through his veins. For the first time, this wild sensation genuinely hypes him up. He's finally tasting the true potential of his new class. Meanwhile, Sierra slides back on her feet. She thinks to herself, this guy's incredibly straightforward fighting style is really something else entirely. Unlike Kay, this would actually be easier if he tried tricking her. Panic hits her when she sees him rushing back in at top speed. She throws up her guard, frantically blocking every brutal sword swing. His attacks crash down like a heavy tsunami. They both have similar player experience, so she cannot figure out how he fights like an absolute veteran. He leaps high and brings his sword crashing down, desperate to break her guard. But then Sierra flashes a sharp smile, catching him totally off guard. She immediately triggers her maid's cooking technique. A massive wall of flame erupts around her, leaving him totally stunned. He scrambles, trying to put the fire out. He steps right through the flames, questioning if a maid class could even cast fire magic. Sarah fires back proudly. Nobody handles the kitchen heat better than a maid, and he is next on the menu. She unleashes an even hotter firestorm. He breaks into a full sprint, dodging the blazing inferno, while yelling out that this makes absolutely zero sense. Sarah hurls another scorching blast and dashes forward with her blade, reminding him that a maid's duty involves cooking, and cooking always means fire. He covers his face to protect his head, swinging his own blade to strike back. He cleanly deflects her attack. Sweating against the intense heat, he suddenly realizes something. This right here is Sarah's true power. The kind of raw talent that will definitely push her to S rank one day. If she just had a real team behind her, even Kay would get absolutely crushed. Summoning a fresh barrage of throwing knives, she yells out that she is nowhere near done. He stays quiet, just staring back at her, honestly amazed by the fierce determination in her eyes. She absolutely refuses to back down. The knives fly right at him, and he frantically tries to deflect every single one, but one slips right past his guard and cuts into his arm. Suddenly, Sarah vanishes and reappears point blank, calling the match over. Predicting her strike, he instantly gathers his mana deep inside, bursting it outward while swinging his heavy sword straight up. He triggers his Lost Man skill, completely wiping out all pain a split second before her kick connects. He feels absolutely nothing. He stands his ground without flinching, leaving her completely stunned. He cannot process this. That was a direct hit, but he completely shrugged it off. He slashes forward and she barely manages a block. The system warning flashes health under 50%. That perfectly hits the trigger condition for his Soul Loss skill. Abyss Soul activates, driving his magic power through the roof. He launches another brutal strike and Sarah watches in absolute shock. His energy output is still climbing despite the damage. He presses his relentless assault. She blocks hard with her daggers, but the metal actually starts cracking under the crushing weight of his blows. He pushes forward with endless heavy swings. She knows right then blocking all of this is completely impossible. Seeing her defense crumbling, he knows this fight is over. He shifts his stance for one last strike, announcing this as the final blow. Flooding his blade with raw mana, he unleashes a slash that sends her flying across the arena, ending the match entirely. The announcer calls him the clear winner. Brushing herself off, Sarah calmly admits she fully expected this outcome from Yukari. She holds out her hand toward him, freely admitting she got completely outplayed today. He shakes it and claims it was mostly luck, saying she would probably take the win in a rematch. She looks at him dead serious, asking if he means that. He nods, telling her she has the potential to be the best player around. But then she makes this strange, annoyed sound. Looking completely confused, he asks her what the matter is. She suddenly screams in pure frustration, startling him. She starts yelling, demanding to know what those insane movements were, and why he charged straight into a barrage of knives. Shaking slightly, she asks if his brain is completely broken. He can only laugh awkwardly, scratching his head. He quickly realizes Sarah is way more expressive than he originally thought. She yells that she was absolutely positive her spinning kick would secure the win. Her own lack of experience is driving her crazy. Then she points right at him, swearing loud and clear she will not lose next time. Surprised for a brief second, he just smiles back and promises he will beat her all over again. Now watch how fast things go wrong. The next day, outside the E-rank dungeon Realm Gate, he asks Lulu Heart if this is the spot. She nods, explaining that this low-level gate is the absolute perfect testing ground for his new Soul Leader abilities. She picked a breeze of a dungeon, so he could just relax today, and he completely agrees with the plan. He steps forward confidently. Lulu Heart smiles happily, watching him stroll right into the E-rank dungeon. Moments later, outside the gate, the guards are panicking, frantically questioning what on earth is happening. They frantically report a massive magic surge erupting from inside the gate. The portal just transformed into a deadly red dungeon. They rush off to call the 100 Flowers Blooming Guild for emergency backup, immediately alerting the entire player association. Meanwhile, inside the chaos, Yukari is already busy slicing beasts in half. Suddenly, another monster sneaks up behind him, swinging a heavy blade for the kill. He casually sidesteps the attack, creating instant distance. Gripping his sword, he slashes backward, taking the monster's head clean off in one smooth strike. Without even pausing, he rushes forward and violently carves through the next beast in his path. Just minutes later, he drops to his knees, completely exhausted, asking Lulu Heart why'd these enemies hit so insanely hard if this was only supposed to be an E-rank dungeon. Lulu Heart stays completely quiet. Not because she lacks the answers, she's just genuinely shocked. This is a red dungeon. The monsters here go completely berserk and hit several times harder. Yet Yukari took them down on his very first try. He completely overpowered the pack without a single death. A smirk crosses her face. His growth rate is blowing way past her initial expectations. He's actually getting pretty interesting, she thinks. Lulu Heart lets out a quiet laugh. Time to crank up the training intensity. The thought alone sends a chill straight down his spine. Right then, the system flashes. His class ability Soul Leader triggers automatically. He watches in surprise. Raw mana pours directly out of the defeated monsters and flows into him. Energy violently floods his veins. A system prompt confirms his total mana capacity, and base stats just jumped up. Lulu Heart breaks it down for him. He just consumed monster souls, turning them into pure mana. The more enemies he drops, the stronger he gets. That right there is the very first true essence of his power. He nods along, impressed. Makes total sense coming from the original owner of the class itself. Stepping up, Lulu Heart proudly pulls together a monster soul form, announcing this as the second true essence. She sends the glowing form floating his way. He asks what it is, and it shoots straight inside him. The system immediately spins up a draw for his soul harvest skill. A few tense seconds pass by. He pulls the Armor Knight soul. It boasts heavy armor and massive physical resistance, leaving him completely stunned. Soul is basically a monster core, Lulu explains. Pump enough mana into that thing, and he can manifest it right into reality. He pushes mana directly into the core. His soul command activates perfectly, bringing the massive Armor Knight out into the open. He stares at his new knight in pure amazement. He yells out, "This feels exactly like a magic summoning spell." Lulu Heart immediately shuts that down. Never compare this to some basic summoning trick. Right now, his low mana just makes it look like a puppet. Real soul embodiment actually rivals the power of creating life itself. Hearing that snaps him back to reality. Her tiny size almost made him forget how insanely powerful Lulu really is. He gives her a proud nod. She instantly gets annoyed, glaring back and asking if he wants to get crushed. A few minutes later, his new summon clashes head-on with an enemy monster knight. While the two titans fight, he flanks the enemy. He leaps high up and slices the monster perfectly in half. Soul Harvest activates. He slowly pulls the glowing essence free from the corpse, locking the new soul down. Using Soul Command, he calls it out, adding another soldier to his growing army. Looks like he's finally getting the hang of it, Lulu remarks. But there is a catch. At his current level, he can only maintain these summons for a couple of minutes. He desperately needs to rank up and expand his mana pool. Lulu smirks at that. The kid is actually showing some real ambition now. They push into the dungeon's burning stage. He pulls out the soul forms for Lulu, reporting a solid haul of 3 total so far. "Not bad at all," she says, flashing him a rare look of approval. But then a massive enemy knight materializes right in the center. Lulu stays completely calm, noting that this is the last one standing. Yukari grins at the towering beast time for his very first real boss fight. Meanwhile, over at the S, rank 100 Flowers Blooming Guild, a secretary bursts into the master's office calling out for Sakurako. An urgent report just came in. Right there in her stack of papers sits a file carrying all of Yukari's personal data. That name instantly grabs the attention of Sakurako, the single strongest player in all of Japan. The secretary explains the situation. A massive mana overflow hit the E-rank ram gate, spawning a deadly red dungeon. Sakurako barely reacts, brushing it off as an annoying nuisance. She orders B-rank players dispatched to the site immediately, and put the 4th squad on standby just in case. The secretary bows and agrees without hesitation. "Did anyone actually go inside?" Sakurako asks. The secretary checks her notes, confirming a recent report. An E-rank player named Kanzaki Yukari walked in entirely alone. Hearing that specific name, Sakurako stops dead. It sounds vaguely familiar, but she quickly shakes it off. Some E-rank nobody really is not worth a second thought. "Bring me the usual info," she demands. The secretary hands over a fresh list of every single person who approached Sarah yesterday. Sakurako flips through the papers fast. Her face darkens with pure irritation, absolutely furious that trash keeps trying to get close to Sarah. To her, they're all completely worthless. But she stops abruptly when she sees a photo shows Sierra and Yukari chatting in a cafe. When Sakurako demands answers, her secretary smoothly explains they took it during a simple lunch break. Sakurako yanks the picture from the stack. She finally recognizes Yukari, the exact same guy who sparred with her precious Sierra. She totally ignored him back then. Her eyes were completely glued to Sierra's beautiful, flawless fighting style. Her face twists in pure rage. She jabs a finger at Yukari's face, furious that another pathetic insect dares to cling to her beloved Sierra. Meanwhile, down in the E-rank dungeon boss room, Yukari just hit his 24th regression death. Lulu Heart drifts lazily through the air. She sighs and asks how much longer he plans to keep doing this honestly, admitting she's bored stiff. Locked in a brutal clash with the boss, he screams at her to shut up. He insists this monster is just way too overpowered. Lulu Heart just flashes a knowing smile. This is no standard boss. It is completely supercharged by a massive dungeon mana overflow. An easy win is totally impossible here. Yukari aggressively reminds her she claimed this place was the absolute perfect difficulty level. She just teases him right back, asking if he actually wants to level up. Going toe-to-toe with absolute monsters is exactly how you grow. He yells back that he's a complete idiot for trusting her, but right then a massive blade swings inches from his skull. He barely dodges in time, completely aware of the massive rank gap between them. His strikes do almost zero damage. One mistake right now means instant death. He ducks another wild swing and somehow deflects the follow-up strike. He mutters to himself it's not like his attacks are completely useless. Then the boss blitzes forward at terrifying speed, throwing a colossal punch straight at his chest. Knowing he cannot dodge, he activates Lost Man to kill the pain entirely. He takes the heavy punch right on his arm. The skill keeps his health from dropping past 50%. Next, he triggers Soul Loss within his abyss. Soul giving his mana a massive spike. Pushing off with raw strength, he swats the massive fist away and leaps back. Soul Loss feeds him wild mana exactly when his health tanks. The trigger conditions are painfully strict, but the resulting power surge is massive. He plants his feet firmly. The real fight officially starts right here. He fires up Soul Command and summons his Armor Knight. The order is simple: grab the aggro, do not attack, and just tank every hit. The ghostly summon obeys instantly, pulling the towering monster's attention. The knight hits like a wet noodle, so he uses it purely as a meat shield while slipping into position. He flashes right behind the boss and lands a clean slash. The beast immediately whips around to face him. He pops another Armor Knight soul and easily slips past the blade. The new standing order is simple: backstab it whenever it looks at him. The souls instantly carve into the creature's back, resetting the aggro completely. Wiping away sweat, he smirks. After 24 gruesome regressions, he has memorized every single attack pattern perfectly. If he stays focused, he won't get touched. He calls out to Lulu Heart. Juggling commands in midair was pretty rough at first, but he's finally getting the hang of it. She just beams at him, genuinely impressed by his smart coordination and grounded ego. Watching quietly, she realizes he shines the absolute brightest when backed into a corner. Back at the 100 Flowers Blooming Guild, Sakurako brags to her secretary. Everything is going exactly according to plan. Why? Because a red dungeon spawned from a crazy mana overflow, cranking the difficulty so high, no beginner could ever clear it alone. She coldly rips Yukari's photo straight down the middle. In her mind, that kid is already crushed into dungeon dust by now. Tearing the scraps even smaller, she tightly hugs Sierra's picture instead. She glances at her secretary, demanding total agreement on her twisted logic. Any piece of trash buzzing near Sierra deserves to die. The terrified secretary just nods nervously, inching toward the door. Her mind flashes back to that video Yukari completely destroying Sierra. But here's the crazy part she refuses to say out loud. If some E-rank rookie miraculously clears a red zone, the ranking system collapses. It would trigger a massive historical event, something totally unheard of since dungeons first appeared. Back inside the red zone, Yukari triggers Soul Loss once again. Mana floods his veins and all fear completely vanishes. He channels pure mana into his legs and launches himself at the monster's blind spot. The skill debuff shreds another 10% of his health. In response, his Abyss Soul goes hyperactive, giving him an insane mana surge. He brings his heavy blade down with absolutely everything he has, cracking the boss right in the skull. Lulu Heart flashes a very proud smirk. And just like that, the blazing boss known as Homer goes down hard. The boss drops the rare Ring of Flames. Better yet, Yukari successfully absorbs Homer's burning soul. Fast forward a few hours. Inside her private guild office, Sakurako sits in absolute shock. The impossible just happened. Yukari cleared the red dungeon. Her secretary reports the impossible. Yukari cleared it completely solo. That hits her with absolute shock. Red dungeons pack drastically higher monster strength and brutal difficulty. To her, it is completely unthinkable. No total novice pulls off a feat like that after just a few days playing. And the secretary drops another massive bombshell. Yukari is the exact guy who took down that wanted criminal. Sakurako thinks back to watching Yukari fight his mock battle against Sarah. His skills were totally amateurish, yet he showed zero fear of dying, his eyes swirling with pure madness. She smirks. Things are finally getting interesting around here. She immediately orders her guild to dig up absolutely everything on Yukari. If this kid turns out to be the real deal, she declares, they will recruit him straight into their ranks. She then drops a bomb. Shikimura Kazuki will hand over command of his C-rank squad directly to Yukari. That shocks the secretary and another woman in the room, both snapping their heads toward Kazuki. He cannot believe his ears. He demands she confirm that she actually said his squad. Sakurako coldly warns him right back. Do not make her repeat herself. She hates repeating things. Her sharp tone leaves Kazuki completely startled and boiling with deep irritation. She leans in. Getting right in his face, she tells him flat out if he's dissatisfied, he better prove he is more capable than Yukari. She turns and walks away, casually dumping the full investigation of Yukari right into his lap. Kazuki furiously swallows down his frustration, biting out that he understands. Sakurako throws a smirk over her shoulder. She thinks Kazuki is almost too easy to manipulate. The man cannot even hide his leaking killing intent. But hey, if Kazuki actually manages to kill Yukari, then that was the absolute ceiling of the rookie's potential anyway. Either way, she expects some highly entertaining results. Exactly 1 week later, players gather up outside the Vin Gate. It is a D-ranked dungeon. Sarah addresses the group announcing they are tackling this raid today with some special backup. 3 elite members from the 100 Flowers Blooming Guild are joining them. Shikamura Kazuki steps up as C-rank player. Packing a gladiator class and a crazy strength multiplier skill, he introduces himself as the official leader of this party. He extends a tense hand toward Yukari. The kid shakes it and casually introduces himself. Then there's Suzumura Ayaka, a C-rank sage with a sweet mana cost reduction skill repping 100 Flowers Blooming. She gives a quiet nod. Next is Sho, a D-rank sorcerer boasting a combo bonus skill. He nods back. He's officially affiliated with the Hayaka Ryoran Guild. Sarah proudly announces to the crew that Yukari just cleared that recent red dungeon entirely by himself. Yukari acts modest. He brushes it off as pure luck. Sarah just laughs, saying that is classic, him always downplaying things when he should be crazy proud. Saki Yumio chimes in, a C-rank assassin, rocking the class genius skill straight from the Sakuru Guild. He interrupts to ask if Yukari is that famous rumored rookie. Ishibashi Yuka, a D-rank enchanter, listens in closely. Armed with a wide area effect skill, she gives a silent little nod to the party. Yamamoto Taiyo steps up next. A D-rank warrior with a solid hardening skill, he laughs out loud, calling that red dungeon solo run absolutely awesome. He admits he is super jealous being stuck at D-rank forever. Sarah calls nonsense on that heavily praising Taiyo's skills. She calls his tanking ability top tier. The party continues their cheerful introductions, totally unaware Kazuki is silently glaring. He shoots daggers at Yukari from the side. Brace yourself for this raid. The squad pushes deep inside the Vinegat dungeon. They run straight into a massive swarm of undead. Chaos breaks loose. Sho yells out way too many monsters, but Kazuki barks back. He aggressively orders everyone to hold their formation. Frustrated Yumio screams back, this is no time for rigid textbook tactics. Meanwhile, Yuka fires off attacks with everything she has. She honestly thought teaming up with the famous 100 Flowers Blooming would be easy. A total walk in the park. She cannot understand why they are struggling this badly. Suddenly an undead steps up. It unleashes a nasty breath of decay. Taiyo, holding the absolute front line, desperately tries to keep their formation intact. But the spreading poison rapidly weakens his guard. He completely misses the creeping undead, sneaking right up behind him. Panic hits him when he spots the rusted sword mid-swing. Realizing it is way too late to block dread completely consumes him. He braces for a full wipeout. But Yukari blasts in just in time, instantly slashing down the undead before it connects. Perfectly intercepted fatal blow. Yukari quickly hauls Taiyo back to his feet, checking if he's okay. Still completely stunned, Taiyo stutters. He mumbles out a massive thanks, but Yukari is already rushing off again, shouting that he will pull the rear monsters away. He leaves Taiyo to cover the front line. Kazuki catches them acting independently and furiously screams his reminder to the whole squad. He ordered absolute obedience. Yukari completely ignores the guy. He knows perfectly well this is no time for rigid rank rules. Hierarchy means nothing right now. He triggers his Lost Man skill, instantly nullifying all pain, and loudly calls out to Lulu Heart. Lulu floats nearby, casually snacking on popcorn while the whole battle unfolds. Yukari tells her to pour mana directly into him and grab the monster's attention. She agrees right away. Raising her hand, she floods him with mana, instantly drawing the undead horde. But mid-cast, she catches on and snaps, demanding to know what is up with the nickname Lulu. He completely ignores her, dashing straight into the rushing mob of decayed enemies. Tilting his foot, he leaps high above them. Lulu Heart shouts in pure frustration, deeply offended he would dare give her a nickname. Ignored again. He activates Soul Loss, boosting his mana and completely wiping away any trace of hatred. Swinging his sword back, he unleashes a massive forward arc that slices right through the front line. Suddenly, one creeps up from behind and unleashes a nasty breath of decay. Cursing under his breath, he knows these guys are slow, but that poison is a massive headache. Then the system chimes in. His desire to cancel the poison triggers a skill called Lost Man, purging the toxin completely from his veins. Shocked, he feels the sickness vanish entirely. It seems the system actually reads applied status effects as part of his own body. Energy rushing back, he spins his blade with vicious force, realizing he can push this even further. Compared to that brutal red dungeon, these undead are incredibly slow and totally lack willpower. He just keeps swinging, cutting down the entire swarm, practically solo, while Umecho watches in pure disbelief. She asks out loud what is even up with this guy, questioning if he is actually just an E rank. Tayo watches with a smirk. To him, this is clearly the raw skill of someone who solo cleared a red dungeon. Across the battlefield, Yukari floods his blade with a massive surge of mana and swings with everything he has at the final enemy. Cleanly severing its head, he declares the fight over. Honestly, who wouldn't be standing there totally stunned right now? Casually asks if they're all right. Umecho fires back that all right is an understatement, since he basically wiped out everything alone. He claims he only pulled it off because they had his back, cheerfully walking right over to Umecho. Totally unaware that Kazuki is watching from the sidelines, absolutely fuming. He seethes in silence, convinced Yukari is making him look foolish. Sakurako's strict command rings in his head, prove he is vastly more capable than Yukari. Fists tightly clenched, Kazuki swears to himself right then and there. He'll prove he's the superior player. Storming over in anger, Kazuki gets in Yukari's face, reminding him about the strict orders against acting alone. Yukari stays totally calm. He explains that holding their formation would have caused the rear guard to instantly collapse. Kazuki shouts right back that he already accounted for that shooting a venomous glare at the swordsman. How dare he go against direct orders? Kazuki thinks he is just acting completely high and mighty. Meko immediately steps in and yells at Kazuki to back off, pointing out the rear guard took the actual damage. Snapping back, Kazuki tells her not to blame him. Being some famous model does not give her the right to act superior. That just sets Umecho off even more. She screams that her day job has absolutely nothing to do with this disaster. Furious now, Kazuki reminds the whole group that Sakurako appointed him leader, demanding to know why they all have such bad attitudes. Meko stews in pure frustration while the rest of the players stay dead silent. Clearing his throat, biting his lip in frustration, Kazuki glares at Yukari. The swordsman calmly suggests they just cool down. After all, they're still deep inside a dungeon and things are incredibly dangerous. Sarah steps up to agree, suggesting they fix their formation first. Hearing her logic calms Kazuki down, which ironically just irritates Umecho more. Watching the drama, Lulu Heart remarks that humans are awful as ever. But worse than that, Yukari giving her a nickname. Yukari looks her way calmly, explaining that short names are just easier to yell out during combat. Seeing her floating completely upside down confuses him, but she just sighs heavily, telling him to do whatever he wants. Just as long as he properly collects all the monster souls in this dungeon. Nodding confidently, he promises to handle it. A moment later, they push deeper into the zone, finding 2 separate doors. Kazuki shoots a side glance at Yukari. He hates how this guy acts like the boss, especially since Sakurako handed command strictly to him. Kazuki thinks fast. He absolutely has to be the one who defeats the boss. Flashing a fake smile, Kazuki suggests splitting into 2 groups. Claims their current exploration efficiency is way too low. Umecho thinks it sounds good, but Yukari pushes back, asking if that isn't completely reckless. Ignoring the warning, Kazuki proudly announces his squad Ayaka, the buffer Yuka, and the tank Tayo. Everyone stares in surprise as Yukari leans in, whispering a quick question to Tayo. He felt perfectly fine about splitting up. Tayo flashes a bright smile. Kazuki is the leader. Tayo promises to protect the other squad. Honestly, that just makes Yukari even more worried. Kazuki then pulls Sho aside. He drops his voice, join squad 2, and keep a close eye on Yukari. Sho nods, fully understanding the order. Looking at Yukari, Sho just does not get it. Why so focused on a total nobody? Sho thinks this whole setup is a massive headache. He really just wants to go home. They split into Party A and Party B, 4 members in each. Minutes later, Party B is deep inside a dungeon room, weapons fully drawn. Yukari yells out a warning, enemies incoming from the right. He steps up to draw their aggro. The rest of the team prepares to strike. Yukari triggers Lostman, killing his pain receptors, and dashes lightning fast. He tells Lulu Heart he is heavily counting on her. Looking annoyed, she still funnels her mana into him. Suddenly, undead swarm ahead. Yukari shoves the monsters back with his blade. Sierra triggers her maid cooking skill, incinerating the nearby knights. Umiko drops a sonic blow, shredding the targets on her flank. She cheers, hyping up the front line's amazing job. Out of nowhere, a monster blasts decay breath right at Yukari. He snaps Lostman back on. The poison is instantly nullified. One strike chops the creature perfectly in half. Standing in the back line, Sho is stunned. He refuses to believe it. Yukari is actually a beast. Sho quickly notices the monsters ignore Yukari. Is his aggro control genuinely that flawless? Sho fires his cobalt skill, launching jagged ice spikes that straight into the monsters from behind. He watches closely. Yukari's field of vision is massive, and his split-second choices are terrifying. How does he stay this calm? Under insane pressure with Sho giving backline support, Yukari lands a brutal finishing strike on the very last undead target. He bags a skull guardian soul. Yukari breathes a deep sigh of relief. A drop finally happened belonging to the resurrected corpse of an ancient knight. Those hollow eyes are still faintly glowing with light. Umiko yells out that run was incredibly smooth. She praises his flawless commands, shooting him a quick wink. She teases that he is actually pretty good. Sho completely agrees. That whole fight was effortless, Sierra chimes in. It was a seriously well-coordinated team effort. Yukari feels pretty awkward humbly thanking them for the backup, not wanting to admit he was just desperately farming monster souls. Sierra steps up and suggests taking a quick break. They have been fighting for 2 hours, but here's where everything flips. He freezes in total confusion as Kazuki and Ayaka stumble right into the room, both dripping with blood. Sierra demands to know why they are alone. Yukari demands to know what they are doing down here. Kazuki claims they just came back to grab an item they accidentally dropped. It sounds incredibly fake. Yukari presses him. Where are the other two? Kazuki looks away, muttering that they split up for a bit. Yukari refuses to buy that lie. He shoots Sierra a look, praying he will use her skill to check the facts. She just shakes her head. They're totally lying. Yukari glares, asking if he left the others behind. Kazuki swears they're safe, but Sierra sees through the garbage and yells. Taiyo and Yuka are in massive danger. Zero hesitation. Yukari sprints past them, pushing his speed to the absolute max. How could Kazuki do something this incredibly reckless? Tearing through the dark corridor, Yukari begs in his own mind for Taiyo and Yuka to still be alive. He desperately asks Lulu Heart if she can track their exact location. She warns him her magic is way too weak for exact coordinates, but they are definitely somewhere straight ahead. He pushes his legs harder, cursing himself for ever trusting Kazuki. Rushing forward, two massive, undead creatures suddenly block the narrow path. He refuses to stop. One heavy swing slices right through them, and he screams at the monsters to get the hell out of his way. Grabbing another Skull Guardian drop, he keeps sprinting desperately, hoping Taiyo and Yuka are holding on. Meanwhile, deep in another chamber, Taiyo drops to one knee. He laughs bitterly. He honestly never thought he would get abandoned inside a boss room. Just seconds ago, Kazuki shouted about them being useful bait, telling them to stay safe before bolting with Ayaka. Kazuki fled the scene, screaming about how he was destined to become an elite member of the 100 Flowers Blooming Guild. Ayaka looked away and followed him, completely abandoning the two weaker players to die. Back to the current moment. Yuka lies bleeding on the cold floor, weakly apologizing to Taiyo for being dead weight. Struggling to even move, Taiyo tells her he really wanted to help her escape, but now he cannot even lift a single arm. The boss slowly marches up, raising a massive axe for the kill. Taiyo wonders, is this really the end? He grips a ring tight in his hand, whispering quiet apologies to his daughters Sayako and Aoi for leaving first. A heavy attack shakes the entire room, yet Taiyo feels absolutely nothing. He snaps his eyes open, totally stunned by the sight. Yukari stands right in front of him, blocking the boss's massive axe. He apologizes for the delay and tells Taiyo, just leave the rest to him. Taiyo weakly calls out for Yukari to be careful before completely collapsing. Seeing him fall, Yukari quickly moves to lure the monster away from Taiyo and Yuka. Lulu Heart urgently shouts out for him to stay focused. She points out a crucial detail: the earlier monster seemed weak because this boss has been absorbing all the magical energy from the dungeon. Every drop of magic is converging right into it. Yukari acknowledges her frantic warning and assures her he will not let his guard down. He immediately activates Soul Trial, giving his mana a massive boost, but taking on a heavy confusion status effect as the cost. To counter the debuff, he triggers Lost Man, instantly wiping out the confusion. Then, the boss raises its weapon. Yukari sees the vicious strike coming. The heavy axe comes crashing down at wild speed, nearly slicing him right in half. But he bends backward just in time to dodge the hit. Recovering fast, he launches a fierce counterattack, swinging his blade hard. The boss blocks it effortlessly. Yukari is completely stunned, not a single flinch. He can feel the pure weight of that axe. Pushing it back using a surge of mana, he spots a quick opening. He swings at its side, but the strike barely leaves a mark. Before he can even react, the boss retaliates hard, forcing him to match its insane speed and block every blow. He is shocked. His direct hits are doing absolutely nothing. 0 damage. Yukari realizes the massive gap in stats is just too big. At this rate, he cannot do any real damage. He pushes his mana to level 2, using Soul Trial, taking on Fear level 2 in exchange. Once again, Lost Man activates and completely erases the fear. He dashes straight toward the boss, swinging with much stronger mana. Watching from above, Lulu Heart notes just how convenient Lost Man really is. Those heavy mental debuffs, the main drawback of Soul Trial, are completely wiped out by Yukari's unique skill. He's literally sacrificing the associated emotions to bypass the cost. Yukari keeps attacking without stopping, driven by a raw desire for more mana. He triggers Soul Trial again, pushing his mana up to level 3, which instantly hits him with anxiety, level 3. Lost Man triggers and wipes the anxiety away. As he tries to land a clean blow, he finally manages to crack the boss's axe just a little. A tiny victory gives him hope. You can feel the momentum shifting here. He presses in closer and unloads more attacks. He's convinced that constantly increasing his mana enhancement level is the key to winning. He activates Soul Trial again, spiking his mana to level 4. This time he receives Deadly Sin Sloth Level 4. Lost Man kicks in and once again erases the effect. But as he prepares to activate it one more time, he suddenly freezes. A strange feeling runs through his body. The system flashes a bright warning. His proof of humanity is rapidly dropping. Heavy dizziness completely overtakes him. Lulu Heart watches in absolute horror. The boss swings its massive axe down, hitting Yukari square in the stomach and launching him into the wall. He slams hard into the ground, unable to move. Game over. Lulu Heart cries out his name in panic. She flies down to him and reveals the grim truth. Lost Man is a skill that actually consumes his being. Right now, he has lost way too many of the core elements that make him human, all just to negate the harsh demerits of Soul Trial. He weakly asks what is wrong and why she looks so desperate. His vision blurs as she explains that if he continues down this exact path, he wouldn't just fail the Soul Trial, he would cease to exist entirely. Lulu Heart suddenly realizes her voice is no longer reaching his ears. She knows that if this keeps up, Yukari will be completely forced into undergoing the true Soul Trial. And if he actually responds to it, the psychological damage will be entirely irreparable. No other choice. Not anymore. Closing her eyes, she casts a bright magic circle. As it activates, the monster pauses in pure shock at her sudden appearance. She calmly tells the creature to be grateful. This is a very special event. Flashing a fierce smile, she declares she will personally take on its challenge. Then she looks back at Yukari and strongly urges him to overcome the Soul Trial, at least for the time being. A moment later, Yukari falls into a deep sleep and begins to dream. Inside this dream, he sees the doctor who once called him completely skillless and mocked his hopes of entering dungeons. He sees the players who heavily bullied him, calling him utterly useless. He hears his co-worker's voice, reminding him over and over that he is nothing. He sees the older Sierra worriedly advising him to just run away. Then he hears Kay calling him incredibly weak, the exact reason he had died. Yukari awakes quickly, recognizing these as his absolute worst memories. He finally notices his weird surroundings and wonders where he is. A perfect copy of himself suddenly appears from behind and stating this is the Soul Trial. Shocked to see a literal duplicate of himself, he genuinely questions if he is hallucinating. He asks the copy if this trial is linked to the Soul Leader ability. The copy confirms it, clearly stating that it is one of Demon Lord Lulu Heart's signature abilities. It explains what the true power of the Soul Trial actually is. The goal here is simple. Forcibly amplify desires to boost soul and magical power. But thanks to his Lost Man skill, Yukari has been neglecting this completely. Now, he really has to face it head on. His copy grabs him by the shirt. It leans in creepily, telling him to face every tossed away emotion. Time to confront his actual value. The copy screams that he is completely empty inside a hollow shell, destined to lose everything. And worse, he knows it. It insists Yukari has not changed a bit, cannot change, and will never change. Meanwhile, back in this boss room, the monster swings its massive weapon, trying to smash Lulu Heart into literal pieces. She leaps away just in time. Still, the raw force of the blow slams her hard against the wall. Struggling back up, she admits she completely saw this coming. But zero chance at all. That is a bitter pill. Getting overpowered by a minor monster just because she's weakened, it is beyond frustrating. She forces herself upright, glancing over at Yukari's empty body. Showing weakness right now is not an option. This is the only thing she can do for him. The boss raises its axe, but she smoothly slides right under the heavy swing. She calls out with a teasing tone, "Hey, the target is over here." She feels completely confident that Yukari will crush that Soul Trial. Back inside the mental space, Yukari looks at his copy. He asks if proving his value is really all this comes down to. He lets out a laugh, totally catching the copy off guard. Maybe his whole life really has been a mistake. And maybe he will keep losing everything he touches. But even so, that exact flawed life is what led him straight to Lulu Heart. All those frustrating outcomes. The moments he could only run away, desperately trying to survive just to keep her safe. Every single piece of it matters. He gathers mana into his hand, flat out declaring that he might be totally empty inside. His life might be flawed, but his choices were never wrong. Without hesitation, he thrusts his hand straight into the copy. He swears right there he will stop this dungeon break and save the world. The copy shrieks in pure agony. Yukari floods it with heavy mana, fully reactivating the Lost Man skill. The copy dissolves into water and fades away. His proof of existence drops past a critical line. Just like that, his genuine human presence returns. The Soul Trial space starts cracking apart. Right then, the older version of Lulu Heart appears before him. She remarks that he is riding a one-way ticket, calling him Lost Man. Yukari firmly replies that he's going with her. They are partners bound by fate. He takes her hand. A system prompt flashes. Right then, Lulu Heart's magical essence is actively flowing into him. His lacking existence gets rebuilt, using her raw power, completely stabilizing his proof of existence. In return, Lulu Heart's own proof takes a hit. The mental space shatters like glass, finally setting Yukari free. But watch how this real-world fight flips. Lulu Heart is barely holding off the monster's heavy axe until someone suddenly blocks the blow. She cracks a tired smile, telling him he kept her waiting long enough. Yukari is back, physically pushing back the boss's attack. "Sorry for the delay," he says. "Leave the rest of this guy to me." She calls him Lost Man, asking if he finally made his choice. Slashing his blade right at the massive beast, he replies, "There's only one answer." She looks a little confused by that, but she just smiles, saying she's definitely curious. First things first, though, time to end this boss. The enraged monster blindly charges again. It swings wildly. Yukari dodges with zero effort, instantly reading the basic attack pattern. He brutally slashes its side. Did it really think he would just stand there taking hits? The monster freezes in sheer panic as its thick armor cracks open. Yukari calmly calls it back to Lulu Heart. His soul trial, magic power, just hit level 5. She warns that the cost is steep, even if the power boost is completely insane. Yukari just nods. Then he yells out time for the real counterattack. He puts everything into a massive sword swing, but the beast actually manages to block it. He does not stop for a second. He keeps swinging, pushing forward with a brutal flurry of strikes while the boss desperately defends. Spotting a tiny opening, he cleanly severs the monster's arm. It howls in pure pain, eyes going wide with absolute rage. The beast suddenly dashes at him with terrifying speed, catching him off guard. He instantly triggers Lost Man, wiping out his fear completely. That heavy axe blade nearly takes his head off, but he bends backward at the very last possible second. Spinning around swiftly, he channels heavy mana into his leg and kicks the boss, launching it backward. He grins, honestly grateful he took that exact kick from Sierra during their mock fight. That painful lesson prepared him perfectly. Suddenly, a massive surge of dark aura explodes from the boss. It raises its axe again, genuinely shocking him. It summons an entire swarm of undead out of nowhere, a hidden trump card. But Lulu Heart looks completely unbothered, teasing the rotting mob. She calls them total small fries, flaring her own mana to draw all their aggro. He watches in surprise, but she just points out the boss's mana is nearly gone. His mana is tapped out. Time to get ready. He nods. He thrusts a hand at the boss. Summoning isn't just a monster's game. He triggers Soul Command. The Armor Knight and the Skull Guardian souls materialize instantly. He orders them to back up Lulu Heart against the undead swarm, then lunges straight for the boss. Steel slams into steel, right in the center of the chamber. Over on the flank, Lulu Heart cuts off her mana flow. She tells the rotting horde their time is officially over. A monster lunges for her throat, but she simply vanishes. Catching the frantic battle in his peripheral vision, Yukari realizes something. Lulu Heart has been pushing herself just as fiercely as he has. Losing here is not an option. Their weapons grind together one more time, and the boss's giant axe finally cracks. Lulu Heart screams for him to finish it. The shout reignites his drive. Shoving forward, he drives his blade right through the beast and its weapon, cleaving them clean in half. Footsteps echo. Sierra and the rest of the squad burst into the chamber. She sprints straight to him, frantic, asking if he is okay. Collapsed on the cold stone floor, he barely manages a whisper. Umeo and Sho stare at the carnage in absolute shock. They stammer, did he really take down the boss completely solo? Sierra ignores the monster eyes locked on his bloody wounds. He coughs, pointing toward the corner. He begs her to check on Taiyo and Yuka. They should be passed out over there. A quick nod, she tells him she has it handled. But before she takes a single step, Kazuki cuts her off. He barks out an order, nobody move a muscle, rescue is canceled. Without warning, Ayaka grabs Yuka and presses a cold blade right to her throat. Kazuki snarls that Yuka's survival depends entirely on him now. The whole team freezes in pure disbelief. Yukari demands an answer, why turn on them now? Kazuki flares his aura violently, screaming back that this is all Yukari's fault. The traitor spits that Yukari ruined everything just by existing. If he can just prove he's the stronger fighter, everything gets fixed. Sierra steps up, voice tight. She begs Kazuki to drop this insane act while they can still walk away. A bitter laugh escapes Kazuki. That window closed a long time ago. He's already crossed the absolute point of no return. He asks if she remembers exactly how terrifying their guildmaster Sakurako really is. Sierra holds her ground, promising she will handle her sister personally. Kazuki just scoffs. Does she honestly think Sakurako forgives utter failure? Sierra goes silent. She already knows the brutal truth. The traitor aims his weapon at Yukari, demanding a deathmatch right here. Umeo screams in protest. Yukari can barely even stand up. Yet Yukari takes the challenge anyway. Sho rushes forward in a panic, calling the idea total suicide in his current shape. Yukari gives a quiet thanks for the concern. Forcing himself upright, he says this is his fight. Rage blinding him, Kazuki lunges forward. He screams a death threat. Yukari barely blocks the incoming strike, but Kazuki has completely lost his mind, swinging his blade over and over. In his twisted head, killing Yukari is the only way to earn Sakurako's respect. Despite trembling on his feet, Yukari parries every frantic slash. Kazuki clings to his A-rank status. The stat gap should be physically impossible to overcome, and yet this guy just refuses to fall. A glowing system panel flashes. Yukari's health just crashed under 10%. Even so, a dark smirk pulls at his lips. Deep down, his abyss soul hits hyperactivation mode. Pure mana floods his veins, restoring everything he just burned away. A brief flash of K crosses his mind. He tells Kazuki he has survived far crueler monsters. Death does not scare him anymore. Raising a bloody hand, he triggers Soul Command. Kazuki flinches backward. Yukari immediately summons the Skull-Lich Lord. Here's the craziest part. The dead dungeon boss actually answers his call. Kazuki completely freezes up his brain, short-circuiting from pure terror. Pure? The massive spirit drops heavily to one knee, bowing to Yukari. The team can only stare in absolute silence. Voice-cracking Kazuki demands to know if he is a summoner or a necromancer. Ayaka stands totally paralyzed by pure dread. Yukari just points his weapon right at the traitor's chest. Time to finish this right now. The Lich Lord brings its giant axe crashing down. Kazuki somehow brings his blade up for a desperate block. The sheer crushing weight rips the weapon right out of his grip. Left completely defenseless, the traitor screams out a violent curse. He whips around. The towering undead monster looms right over him, radiating immense power. With a simple word, Yukari orders the beast closer. Kazuki is locked in pure, suffocating horror. The undead executioner raises its massive weapon high and swings down toward the helpless A rank. A second later, Kazuki lies crushed on the ground. Sho sprints over completely hyped, demanding to know what just happened. He stammers. Is that massive summon really the dungeon boss they just fought? Umeo jogs up right behind him, completely mind-blown. How does a guy with insane melee skills also summon a boss-class nightmare? Yukari gives a faint smile and admits he is not actually a summoner. There's something pretty similar. Chuckling Sho grabs his arm and drags him to his feet. Taiyo blinks awake weakly, thanking them for the rescue. Beside him, Yuka whispers that Yukari is an absolute lifesaver. Yukari brushes it off. They only survived because they held the line so well. As the bruised squad limps out of the boss room, Sira trails behind them. In total silence, she thinks back to how things used to be. Yukari is carrying an overwhelming burden again. She desperately wishes he would take better care of himself. But without the power to actually stand by his side, she feels completely out of place saying a word. Seeing him chat so casually with Sho sparks a real fire. She just has to get stronger. Meanwhile, Lulu Heart watches Ayaka help the collapsed Kazuki to his feet, flashing a totally knowing smirk. The very next day at the Japan Player Association, Shinjuku branch, a clerk lets Yukari know his D-rank promotion is officially processed. He says thanks for the help. But the receptionist instantly notices something. He does not look thrilled at all. That totally confuses him. She explains that hitting D rank is basically the first massive milestone for any active player. You need solo and team clears to get here, plus it unlocks massive government subsidies and fully paid tuition. He really should be celebrating right now. Instead, Yukari asks her a simple question. Can a D-rank player ever clear an S-rank dungeon, totally caught off guard? She gives him the brutal truth. Completely impossible. And that right there is exactly why he needs to surpass even S-rank. Lulu Heart floats beside him, looking insanely proud. The receptionist finally gets it. For a guy with goals like that, D-rank is just a tiny stepping stone. She honestly cannot tell if he's joking or not. But she cracks a smile if anyone is pulling that off. It is probably this kid. She tells him she will be watching for the day he reaches the absolute top. The second Yukari steps out of the association building, a stranger calls his name. A guy walks right up, asking for Kanzaki Yukari. Totally lost. Yukari says yes. The guy immediately lights up and practically shoves a business card into his hands. It is Makoto Fuja, lead recruitment manager for the Sakura Guild. But before Fuja can even pitch him, another guy charges in and violently shoves him away, screaming, they saw Yukari first. Then a third guy bowls them both over. He yells, the Kokai Guild Union has dibs. Yukari is completely baffled. How do they know him? One recruiter snaps back. The whole industry knows about the crazy rookie, breaking out from F rank to D rank in just 2 weeks. Then it suddenly hits him. He spent months agonizing through endless deaths and regression cycles. But out here in the real world, only 2 weeks went by. Watching these corporate suits practically start a turf war over him, he casually says he will think about it. Then he just bolts. He takes off at blinding speed while the recruiters are still busy tearing each other apart. Let's take a breath here. Back at his apartment, Lulu Heart admits she totally expected him to sign with a guild to humans not love groups. He admits he thought about it. But then he shoots back a question. Wouldn't he get way stronger? Sticking with her. Instead of some random corporate team, she beams with absolute pride. He finally gets it. Then she calmly announces they're taking on the Lulu Heart dungeon next. Yukari instantly drops his dumbbells. He just stares at her. Pure terror. She tilts her head confused as he starts screaming. Are they not skipping a few hundred steps here? Does she even realize how many S-rank teams died in that exact dungeon? Lulu Heart stays super chill. That dungeon is literally her home, and she promises she has a foolproof secret plan ready. She tells him to just trust her. But seeing that smug confidence only makes the dread in Yukari's chest grow heavier. Over at the 100 Flowers Blooming Guild, Sakurako sits like ice, while Kazuki begs on his knees, frantically swearing that Yukari lured him into a trap. Sakurako, however, is not buying it. The other survivors already testified about his cowardly choice. Kazuki starts sweating bullets, screaming that they are all lying to frame him. Sakurako lunges forward. She grabs a fistful of his hair, glaring daggers, and demands to know if he is calling Sierra a liar. Shaking in pure terror, Kazuki yells that it is a misunderstanding. He claims Sierra just lost her mind during the raid. That flips the switch. Without a word, she activates her two-tail ability, Hakumen Kanmo Kyubi, a deadly technique drawn straight from her nine-tailed fox lineage, calling on the golden-furred beast itself. Glowing butterflies burst from her pure mana. Fox ears snap up on her head, and two massive glowing tails erupt behind her. She looks down at the pathetic Kazuki. She was going to make him pay, even if he actually managed to finish off Yukari, but dragging Sierra's name through the mud to save his own skin, death sentence. Nobody disrespects Sierra and lives. Kazuki violently shakes, crying out that he was wrong, desperately trying to blame Yukari one last time. Sakurako completely tunes him out. She casts 1,000 colors and 10,000 blossoms dual barrier. A magical prison snaps shut right over him. He screams and begs for his life. She stays ice cold and triggers her convergence ability to end it. She blasts the dual barrier into a million pieces. Kazuki shatters right along with it, still crying and begging for his life. Kazuki literally fades away into dust. Sakurako just picks up a photo of Yukari, stares hard at it, and burns it straight to ash. Her expression goes completely cold. She figures it's finally time to see if Yukari is actually the real deal. She decides to go confirm it herself. Cut to the very next night, Yukari and Lulu Heart stand right outside the dungeon entrance. Lulu Heart proudly brags that her dungeon looks as amazing as always. She asks if he agrees with her. He completely agrees, telling her it sits in a class of its own. Looking up at the massive structure, he reminds himself, this is the toughest dungeon in the world. Entering without player association permission is strictly banned. He fully expects getting inside to be a massive headache. To his absolute disbelief, they find the guard totally fast asleep just minutes later. He whispers over to Lulu Heart they can probably just stroll right inside. She agrees, pointing out that nobody really dares to challenge her dungeon anyway. The two of them casually stroll right through the dungeon gate. Soon enough, they stand directly in front of the inside portal. Yukari whispers again, asking if they should step through. Lulu Heart gives a nod, and they enter totally clueless that someone is watching them from afar. Once inside, Yukari is completely stunned. He finds himself staring down a massive castle. And here's the crazy part. This is the exact dungeon players worldwide have challenged without a single successful clear. He asks if it is just a simple hallway. Lulu Heart corrects him. This is actually called the Infinite Corridor. She breaks it down for him. The first floor of the Lulu Heart dungeon is a massive castle, roughly the size of an entire country. Take one wrong turn and you wander endlessly. You would never even catch a glimpse of the boss room. Players usually start out in the forest outside the castle, but she arranged a very special shortcut just for him. Yukari breathes a huge sigh of relief. He openly admits he is terrible with mazes. Lulu Heart proudly whips out a fat stack of documents. She tells him that is exactly why she prepared this. Caught off guard, he asks what they are. She replies that it is a handmade labyrinth map, complete with the correct path already marked down for him. He realizes that is what she was sketching this whole time. Fully amazed, he tells her he cannot believe she actually remembered such a detailed route. She hits him with a smirk. When you live in a place for thousands of years, you just kind of know it. Yukari is genuinely shocked to hear she has been around that long. He starts wondering what she was even doing before this dungeon showed up. Lulu Heart points out a nearby wall. She tells him to take a right exactly at the dead end. They follow her exact instructions. Take another right, then head straight. Walking along, Yukari asks if this dungeon even has any monsters. She replies that she is purposefully guiding him down monster-free paths, because honestly, at his current level, he wouldn't stand a single chance. Totally shocked, he asks if that means he can just cruise right to the boss room without fighting at all. She shoots that down instantly. He will have plenty of fighting to do soon enough. Already exhausted, he mutters that he knew it was coming. Eventually, they hit the very end of the first floor path. They peek around the corner, staring down the monster, actively guarding the area. Lulu Heart explains that Harbol has an incredibly fragile body. He should be able to take her down super easily. Fired up, Yukari instantly leaps out of hiding. He charges straight toward Harbol's sword, ready to strike. But here's the catch. Lulu Heart yells out from his level, Harbol is still insanely strong. Way too late to turn back now. Harbol activates her wave of exhaustion ability, firing a massive blast of energy right at him. Yukari is completely stunned. The attack inflicts pure apathy, instantly draining his motivation and leaving him entirely paralyzed. His body locks in place. Panicking hard, he realizes he literally cannot move an inch. Harbol launches forward. Her razor-sharp claws slash clean through his neck in one smooth motion, taking him out instantly. Flash. Yukari regresses 1 hour back. Still shaking, he yells at Lulu Heart. She really could have mentioned that earlier. She stays totally calm. She points out she was still explaining things when he decided to just sprint off alone. Completely defeated by her logic, Yukari takes the blame. He admits it was his fault, then screams that Hardball is just ridiculously strong. Lulu Heart clears things up. Yes, Hardball is physically fragile, but she uses crazy, powerful mental magic. He asks what that actually means. She explains her spell causes level 7 apathy, basically equal to 7th tier magic. Finding anybody who can resist that is almost impossible, not just among normal humans, but even among the monster ranks. He asks if that tier is really all that impressive. She shoots back anyone using 3rd tier magic is already considered an absolute genius. Even top S-rank humans usually max out around the 6th tier. He's stunned Hardball looks completely weak but actually hits like an S-rank boss. Lulu Heart simply replies that none of it matters to someone holding the Lost Man title. Skill time. They sneak another look at Hardball while Lulu Heart explains the strategy. He just needs to strip away the emotion of sloth. That single feeling triggers the whole apathy effect, so removing it keeps him completely safe. Yukari finally gets it. Lulu Heart yells out perfect chance. A massive chance to farm souls and mana while grinding levels. Meanwhile, miles away inside a grand church, Irigami kneels quietly in prayer. Another nun walks in with urgent news. A new player just stepped into the Lulu Heart dungeon. Irigami slowly stands up. She responds coldly. Anyone daring to challenge a dungeon that's sacred must carry a truly sinful soul. Yuri Beatrice Irigami. Rank 1 in the Holy Dungeon Church, and the 6th strongest player in all of Japan. A Saintess class S-rank powerhouse holding the Divine Desire skill. She turns to her fellow nun, casually mentioning that this challenger will probably become a dungeon offering. But she adds a catch. If by some insane miracle he actually returns alive, they absolutely must offer him their holy blessing. She asks the nun for agreement. And just like that, Yukari has no idea yet another massive powerhouse is already keeping an eye on him. Over at the S-rank Sakura Dragon Guild headquarters known as Our Yu Yume, excitedly tells a guy how she was in massive trouble. Right until Yukari swooped in to save her, the guy she's talking to just smiles and says Yukari sounds like a real man. Meet Kanzaki Kira. He is an S-rank player sitting at 15th in Japan, rocking the Martial God class and the Phoenix skill. Representing the Sakura Dragon Guild, he tells Yume he actually kind of likes this deeply cocky Yukari. But he throws out a warning if the 100 Flowers Blooming Guild is involved, the vixen Sakurako is probably scheming too. Sakurako holds practically unrivaled pride. Which means Yukari might be walking straight into a deeply dangerous mess. Worried, Yume asks her brother if there's any way he can step in and help. He just smiles, pats her head, and tells her to leave everything to him. He happily swears he will train Yukari thoroughly right after beating him to an absolute pulp. Super confused, she begs him to just protect the guy normally. Akira just turns away laughing as he walks off. She quickly chases after him, asking where Yukari is right now. A second later, his secretary leans in and whispers something. Kira immediately drops the smile, absolutely shocked to hear Yukari enter the Lulu Heart dungeon. Now watch this next play. Down on the first floor, Hardball swings her heavy claw straight at Yukari. He brings his sword up to block, but the heavy impact is so insane, he actually staggers backward. Even with her mental sealing magic restricted, Hardball remains an absolute beast of a monster. Yukari immediately activates his soul command ability, summoning the Armor Knight Soul. He quickly sets up a combo. He orders the knight to attack from the exact opposite side, and the summon obeys, charging blindly from the flank. Hardball instantly turns and strikes with her claw, wiping the summoned knight out of existence. But Yukari uses that exact opening, popping up behind her with a smirk and slashing her back. The strike lands perfectly clean. The hit makes Hardball scream out in pain. Yukari fires off Soul Command one more time, summoning the Skull Guardian. He notices Hardball has a super curious nature. She instinctively chases anything unfamiliar. But after falling for the second trick, she finally starts acting cautious. She glances back and forth between the Skull Guardian and Yukari, visibly calculating her next big move. He commands his summon to rush in from the side, easily grabbing her attention. With her focus split again, she leaves herself wide open. Yukari slips right behind her, completely unnoticed. But Hardball senses something off and swings wildly back at him. He easily dodges the hit, slashing his sword straight across her neck while shouting out way too slow. The blow is instantly fatal. Hardball loses her head and heavily collapses to the ground. Yukari immediately activates Soul-Devour. He absorbs her soul and flawlessly converts it straight into magic. He stands there stunned by the massive surge of power flooding his veins. Lulu Heart points out that Hardball came from the highest difficulty dungeon, so the mana payload was obviously going to be absolutely wild. Super excited, Yukari realizes he actually bagged her soul on the very first try. He decides to test it out and summon Hardball right away. He triggers Soul Command. When Hardball actually appears as a soul, she flashes a surprisingly cute smile, really catching him off guard. Looking a little closer, he has to admit she's actually pretty cute. But as he reaches out to pet her, things take a turn. She randomly bites his hand hard. He yanks it back in pure shock, completely stunned that a soul just physically bit him. Lulu Heart explains that the issue Hardball is currently way too overpowering for him. Even stuck as a soul, a monster like her naturally fights back. He asks if that means these souls actually carry their own will. She quickly reminds him, yeah, of course they do. At their very core, souls are literal willpower. He nods slowly, realizing that actually makes perfect sense. Lulu Heart drops another fact: the more magic power a monster holds, the stronger its lingering will becomes. And for Hardball, both her wild personality and her appearance directly reflect in her newly manifested soul. So if Yukari ever wants to fully control monsters with heavy willpower, he needs to massively level himself up first. A second later, they find a fountain along the path, and Yukari stops to drink the water. His magic power bounces right back to full. He turns to Lulu Heart, calling that recovery spring an absolute lifesaver. With his current mana reserves, firing off those harpy abilities would totally drain him. She completely agrees. Lulu Heart points out the first floor boss actually placed that spring there. The guy apparently loved a fair fight. But for whatever reason, humans just never used it. Yukari glances at the edge of the water, noticing that suspicious sign. Calling it a recovery spring makes people assume it is a deadly trap. Still, he's pretty glad the thing exists. It lets him stay in the fight. Lulu Heart explains that nullifying mental magic, grabbing that harpy soul, summoning her and crushing the next monster is a totally unique leveling method only he can pull off. After a quick rest, Yukari summons his Armor Knight soul and orders it to stand perfectly still. Another harpy monster flies over, instantly distracted by the knight. Yukari orders his own harpy to unleash her lethargy wave. This magic attack triggers extreme fatigue, locking down the target's skills and leaving them completely helpless. His harpy casts the spell, perfectly blasting the enemy bird and leaving it totally paralyzed in midair. Yukari dashes right in, alongside his summon, slashing the frozen enemy, while his harpy strikes with a vicious claw attack. Drops instantly. He harvests the soul right away, totally thrilled. He high-fives the Armor Knight, cheering about securing his second harpy soul. Lulu Heart looks pretty annoyed, though. She criticizes him for using a soul as bait just to land a cheap sneak attack. Maybe he should be focusing more on actually improving his own personal combat skills instead. He casually replies that decoy tactics are absolutely part of combat prowess. He tries making a heart shape with his harpy. The harpy just gives him a thumbs up, leaving Lulu Heart visibly frustrated. Suddenly, a golden key appears. He reaches out and snatches it, calling to Lulu Heart about the new drop. Seeing the key, her face lights up with pure excitement. Joyfully, she tells him they finally got it. When he asks what it opens, she eagerly replies that it is a genuine treasure chest key. Yukari cannot quite believe his ears, but Lulu Heart confirms it right away, a serious gleam in her eye. These dungeons and treasure chests go hand in hand, she explains. Now they can finally scoop up some truly world-class gear. Meanwhile, deep inside the Sakura Dragon Guild corridors, Kira is sprinting at full speed, making a dash outside. He knows exactly what the Lulu Heart dungeon is: a hellscape hiding monsters totally beyond normal human comprehension. Going in alone is madness. Racing forward, Kira asks what we are all wondering: who exactly is Kanzaki Yukari? A moment later, back inside the Lulu Heart dungeon, they hit the treasure room. She instructs him to open the screen ahead. He carefully examines it before activating the mechanism. A luxurious chamber appears before him, absolutely gleaming with gold. He stares in pure awe, his whole body trembling. Approaching a golden sword, he is totally overwhelmed by the massive pile of powerful weapons. Lulu Heart proudly agrees with that reaction, but quickly drops a warning if anyone besides the rightful owner touches those weapons. Trap activates. Horrified, he completely freezes. His hand was literally an inch away from the shiny golden sword. She continues saying her vault is magnificent, and she totally gets his excitement. But their real target today is actually something else entirely. Moving over to two treasure chests sitting on the side, she points at one, believing it is their actual target. But she sternly warns him, do not even think about touching the chest on the right. Touch that, and the mimic wakes up. He instantly freezes in place all over again. He nervously pops open the correct chest, asking her one last time if this is actually okay to do. To his absolute shock, the first drop is the last elixir, an S-class rarity item fully restoring both health and mana, curing all status ailments, and even temporarily boosting maximum health and magic points. He cannot believe his own eyes. He shouts out, asking Lulu Heart if she is absolutely sure he can take this thing. Or will she demand it back later? She just sighs, asking what kind of person he actually takes her for. She urges him to keep digging. Next up is the Mona Dominion Ring, a completely world-class artifact. A rune-engraved ring, boosting max mana capacity 1.5 times. Then appears the Infinity's Vault Pendulum. Another world-class drop, a magical storage unit holding exactly 713,925 items. Next is Eterno Alma, an S-class artifact stopping weapon durability from degrading. Every gamer knows how broken that is. As long as this thing is equipped, any weapon keeps its perfect form even after the most insanely grueling battles. Following that is the Ring Dingua, a world-class accessory enabling instant communication across absolutely every single human language. It lets the wearer speak and understand them all, though it fails on creatures lacking linguistic intelligence. Just rare item after rare item dropping today, after rare item. Loot pours out of the chest, completely overwhelming him. Real panic sets in, and he asks Lulu Heart again, is he actually allowed to keep all this loot? And she just replies casually, She would absolutely love to explore the other vaults too, but no matter what, they are bound to run into monsters eventually. Better to avoid that headache for now. Hugging his massive haul tight, Yukari practically shakes with joy, though he admits he's feeling pretty worried. Seriously, is it fine to just take everything? Right then, Lulu. Hart mentions she almost forgot something important, turning around to head upstairs. Curious, he follows her straight up to a massive weapon display mounted on the wall. She turns right back to him. She says there's just one last thing left to handle. Reaching toward the display, he asks what she's trying to do. She only laughs easily, pulling a weapon off the rack. Flashing a mysterious smile, she tells him he will find out soon enough. It is meant to be a total surprise. Hours later, in a dungeon hallway, they're staring down a lightning-powered monster. Yukari orders his equipment, now in full human form, to step up and block the incoming attack. The equipment obeys instantly, casting a heavy water spell to brace for impact. The beast unloads a massive burst of blinding thunder. It blasts toward them, but the water magic completely eats the hit. Yukari quickly summons out Harbel's soul. Harbel instantly triggers her skill, locking the monster down hard. Seeing his opening, Yukari dashes right in. One clean swing chops the beast right in half. He immediately fires off his soul harvest ability. He secures the lightning element soul. But before he even catches his breath, another creature creeps up from behind. Totally exhausted, he spins around, shouting a warning. His equipment responds without any hesitation. Fire Beast unleashes a searing wave of flames, but the equipment counters hard with water magic. Safely shielded from the burn, Yukari charges ahead again, yelling to Harbel that it is time to strike. She fully agrees. They rush in from both sides, catching the fiery monster entirely off guard. Before it can even react, Yukari and Harbel slice it into 4 clean pieces. Time for another soul harvest. He grabs the flame element soul, a crimson entity packed with completely overwhelming offensive power. It can burn basically anything down to ashes, while also dropping a solid wall of fire for heavy defense. Yukari finally collapses to the floor, totally drained. Relieved by the win, Lulu Heart praises their solid teamwork, but he tells her he has completely lost track of his own death count. He just points right at the equipment. Without it, he admits they never would have survived, and you can see why that is. The last elixir, an S-class rarity drop, shaped exactly like a pendulum and covered in ancient runes. It actually allows physical attacks to hit completely intangible beings. It also grants massive attack bonuses against elemental enemies. Lulu Heart asks if that is not incredibly convenient. Normally, she explains regular physical strikes would not even scratch an elemental-type monster. Yukari asks if magic of the exact same attribute gets totally nullified, and she nods to confirm. She elaborates that with the last elixir, he can actually land heavy hits on elemental and spirit creatures. Yukari thinks using elemental spells himself would be great too, but casting just a single one completely wipes out his mana. Shifting focus, he tells her he will just gather up as many souls as possible from now on. She questions what he is even saying. She reminds him they are about to enter a boss room, a fact that absolutely terrifies him. He yells out in pure frustration, pointing out how insanely brutal things have been just to reach this spot. If the path here was this difficult, he is completely sure the boss is going to be impossible to beat. At the very least, they really need to level up first. Without ranking up, he cannot even unlock his additional class abilities. Lulu Heart stays dead silent for a moment. Then she drops some serious facts about the Demon Lord ruling this dungeon. The entity they're trying to take down is on an entirely different level from any monster they have faced so far. It wields absurd strength, completely terrifying power, and a nightmare of a fighting style. It can break a person just by being impossibly strong. To win, Yukari needs real experience, the kind of experience you cannot fake. And while she cannot physically fight the battle for him, she can at least prepare him for the worst. She reminds him that right now he has obtained way more items than he can possibly carry. He absorbed an insane number of powerful souls. Then she openly admits that this right here is the absolute limit of her help. The rest is entirely up to him. He is the one who has to go out and save this world. Looking straight into his eyes, she says it has to be him. He must push back against the overwhelming absurdity, threatening everything. It has to be him doing the thinking, fighting against completely impossible odds and seizing victory. He must become someone who can. Her words hit him hard. Left speechless, he answers with pure frustration. He has no fitting reply at all, finally just apologizing. Lulu Heart tells him to drop the apologies. She brought him down here because she honestly believes he can clear this first floor. Right on cue, the giant doors to the boss chamber start creaking open. Yukari stands there, his resolve completely renewed. Lulu Heart gives him a solid shove forward, shouting at him to get a grip. He's supposed to save the world, after all. He steps right into the boss chamber, loudly declaring his vow. He plans to crush this enemy using his own raw strength. Standing tall to face the floating boss, he catches a quick glimpse of her peaceful, almost beautiful expression. Then he raises his blade. His heart stays perfectly steady as he braces himself for the ultimate challenge. Die as many times as it takes, he's going to save this world. The boss slowly floats down from above, calling herself Serendiana. She is the guardian personally entrusted by Demon Lord Lulu Heart to protect this floor. She clearly states that any invader daring to disturb the Demon Lord's peace will pay for that exact crime with their own life. She calls upon the absolute source of light, commanding it to shadow the darkness in a flash and form a totally radiant blade. She gathers all that blinding light right into her staff, instantly firing a luminous ray straight at him. That beam shoots forward at completely insane speed, catching him entirely off guard. Before he can even twitch, the attack hits hard and kills him instantly. Moments later, he regresses exactly 1 hour back, reappearing right in front of the boss chamber once again, totally unable to believe he just died that fast. He wonders if that attack Serendiana threw was actually some crazy form of magical light. Lulu Heart pops up behind him, teasingly asking if he already needs her help. He just brushes her off, saying he's perfectly fine. Watch his eyes here. He realizes that while the beam's speed was completely unreal, its path was a dead straight line, making it totally predictable. He figures that as long as he watches the exact direction of her staff, he can probably manage to dodge the blast. Firing up his soul abilities to supercharge his magic power, he steps toward the boss room. He decides to trigger the soul trial first. Back inside, Serendiana immediately starts gathering light into her staff all over again, aiming it right for his head. Locking his eyes onto her staff, he waits for her to release the ray. He instantly leaps sideways, barely scraping by the incoming blast. Seriously close call, but he feels a massive wave of pure relief knowing he actually dodged it. Serendiana looks pretty surprised that he dodged the attack on his very first try. She admits he has genuinely earned his right to stand there. Then she adds that maybe it is finally time she gets a little serious, completely catching him off guard. Calling upon the void-born flame, she summons fire, meant to scorch the lightless earth, bringing down a brutal judgment that incinerates everything. That crimson flame pools into her staff as she triggers her Dance Inferno skill. A truly massive magic circle bursts into existence. She launches her Empress Explosion straight at him. He watches that raging fire surge forward, quickly realizing there's zero chance to actually dodge. Serendiana seems totally surprised he's not even trying to escape, but deep down he vows to literally burn this exact experience into his memory. The massive explosion fully engulfs him, blasting him to pieces. Game over. He immediately regresses back once again. Now here's the breakthrough. Fully understanding that fire magic is a massive, wide area attack, he notes the activation takes roughly 3 seconds. Swearing to himself he will survive this next round, he steps right back into the fight with totally renewed determination. After dodging her luminous ray again, Serendiana quickly prepares to strike with that Empress Explosion. As the deadly flames rush in, he immediately triggers his soul command, desperately summoning the fire element's soul. This summon instantly creates a thick protective wall of flames. It blocks the incoming attack and completely shields him. Serendiana watches him survive and calmly points out that it was a pretty interesting tactic. She recognizes that his summoned fire element is a naturally born elemental. Because of that, it has the innate ability to just nullify any magic of the exact same attribute. She openly acknowledges that he cleverly used this property to slice right through her magic. While she explains this, he can barely stay upright. His body is strained, his mana nearly completely gone. A bright light emerges from Serendiana's forehead. She quickly points out that he clearly has full control over all the surrounding magical energy, but his personal mana reserves are completely exhausted now, making him no match for her. Searing flames burst out around her as she tells him he really should have used that summon more efficiently. He knows this fire is about to consume him, yet he still manages to thank her for the advice. A second later, he burns alive and dies again. He knows he simply lacks the mana to keep spamming high-rank elementals. So from here on out, his timing has to be dead precise. For just a split second, he perfectly read her attack pattern. He summoned that elemental at the exact moment the devastating spell was fully unleashed. He constantly reminds himself until he finally reaches Serendiana. He has to keep nailing that perfect timing. He then dies 3 more times. I died a few more times before realizing I still couldn't keep up with Serendiana. I told myself that I just needed a bit more time to analyze her patterns. Then she unleashed a massive wind spell, wiping me out again. After dying 4 more times, I finally noticed something. Her spell selection speed was actually slower than my elemental summons. I pushed my limits to dodge her lightning strikes, knowing I had to predict her next element and call out the right countersummon. Otherwise, I stood 0 chance of winning this. 6 more deaths passed before I tried summoning Harble, only to find out her mental magic was completely useless here. I kept getting slaughtered after that, especially when Serendiana started dropping dark magic. I ran for my life, realizing her long-range spells tracked my movements perfectly. No elemental could block them. Accepting my fate, I just died, over and over. Eventually, I figured out that whenever she locked eyes with me, it meant a guaranteed water spell was coming. I shook from the freezing cold encased in solid ice and died a few more times. Then Serendiana launched another flame explosion. She mocked me, calling me a helpless little lamb, desperately trying to delay the inevitable. Despite the endless deaths, I kept pushing to get closer to her. Honestly, thoughts of giving up started creeping in, but When I saw Lulu Heart looking at me with pure belief I found my second wind, I rushed the stairs, dodging another huge flame blast. I yelled out in pure defiance there was no way I was going to fail. Though I died again, I managed to inch just a bit closer, which totally caught Serendiana off guard. Sadly, I perished right before reaching her. Once again, Serendiana hurled a massive flame explosion my way and quietly watched to see if I survived it. Barely. I stood proudly at the top of those stairs and loudly declared I had finally made it right to her feet. I'd finally reached her. Serendiana just let out a calm sigh before asking if I actually believed that was the absolute limit of her power. She called me truly pitiful. I just stood there stunned as she released this blinding, radiant light all around her. She asked if I understood that nothing but pure despair lay ahead. Then she cast a forbidden 9-fold silent chant, summoning 5 different elemental powers all at once. I honestly could not believe my own eyes. This is where the nightmare really starts. 5 elements at once, with her staff pointed straight at me. She unleashed every single spell together, fully intending to turn my fragile life into absolute dust. While I was getting destroyed, Kira and Yumeko were sprinting down a street outside. Yumeko asked if this dungeon was really that dangerous. Kira just answered with a question. Did she remember that massive raid incident at the Lulu Heart dungeon? She said yes, and asked if she was right, assuming he had been a part of it. She mentioned she was working as a model back then, so she missed the exact details, but she knew it was the big raid that failed. Kira quickly fired back that failure wasn't the right word. It was an absolute disaster. He told her they went in with 6 S ranks and 12 A ranks, including both local and foreign players, but they were completely annihilated. She was totally stunned to hear that, asking how any raid could possibly fail with 6 S-rank players on the team. He calmly explained that S-rank dungeons were built different. Each one operated like an entire world of its own. Specifically, that Lulu Heart dungeon begins inside an elven forest. Cunning elves and S-rank monsters just keep spawning, and the whole place is a massive labyrinth. He added that right when their physical and mental limits hit the absolute edge, a massive castle just suddenly appeared, right in front of them. By that point, their party was chopped down to 1/3 of its size. She asked why he didn't just pull out and retreat. He flatly replied Sakurako was still trapped inside. She nodded, understanding. He kept going, saying the strongest among them was still standing, and that alone kept the survivors moving forward. But by the time they hit the boss room, only 4 players remained. Himself, Sakurako Kagami Kuo, who ranked 12th among the S ranks, and Jumoku Kaika, the 19th ranked S rank and first master of the Hayaka Senran Guild. Yumeko loudly pointed out that it sounded like Japan's literal all-star team. She asked how losing was even possible with a lineup like that. He admitted that for a while. They really thought it was an even fight. But that was only because Serendiana wasn't taking it seriously yet. She had used quintuple chant, totally hiding her true 9-fold silent chant that let her effortlessly control all 5 elements at once. Back in the present inside the Lulu Heart dungeon right after Serendiana blasted me with that 5-element magic. Instant death. When I revived again, it hit me. Even if I somehow managed to summon entities capable of handling one of those 5 elements each, nothing would change. At best, I could maybe summon 2 at once, but doing that would drain my entire mana pool instantly. Lulu Heart called out from behind to check on me, but I just told her he claims he's totally fine and pushes forward. Then he activates his Lost Man skill. This instantly strips away all his panic and anxiety. Watching from behind, Lulu Heart catches on to something. Moments later, Serendiana blasts intense fire magic straight at him. Using his fire element soul as a makeshift shield, he charges right forward, but he can barely hold back the heat. When she follows up with a completely different spell, the impact wipes him out instantly. He keeps trying to close the distance only to get slaughtered over and over, but he firmly believes there's a real way through this. After countless brutal deaths, his mind actually starts to slip away. His mana will completely dry up before he even gets close. He has to find a much more efficient strategy. Then she launches a massive water spell. Panic sets in, but the attack completely sails past him. Pure shock hits him hard. He never expected a clean miss. But looking ahead, a second water spell slams right into his chest. A double attack, he realizes it way too late and dies again. Utterly frustrated, he just cannot break her 5-element magic wall. Smashed down repeatedly, heavy doubt swallows him whole. What is he actually supposed to do here? How can he possibly win this fight? The death panel just flashes on a brutal loop. Dropping to his knees, he sees absolutely no way forward. He grinds his teeth in sheer anger. Lulu Heart put her faith in him, and yet victory feels completely out of reach. Out of pure desperation, he breaks the one rule Lulu Heart gave him. He fires up his Lost Man skill once more. This time he wipes out every ounce of panic, anxiety, crippling fear, and paranoia simultaneously. Stripped of all useless emotion, his mind goes razor sharp. But here's the thing. There has to be a specific reason Lulu Heart brought him here. She always has his best interests in mind. He forces his brain to work. He's definitely missing a crucial detail. Why throw him against an insanely overpowered boss like this? And why right now? Logically, he should have leveled up first, trained harder, hoarded better items, or collected more souls. But it just cannot be that basic. Something deeper is at play here. He openly admits his own weakness. Right then, a wild idea clicks together. Every single brutal clash replays in his head, and the real truth suddenly hits him. She forced this impossible fight exactly because he is weak. He silently sends her his gratitude. Throwing a quick wink, Lulu Heart acts completely clueless. Throwing open those boss doors for the 100th time, he steps right back into the nightmare. He tells Lulu Heart the puzzle is finally solved. He finally sees the path to crush Serendiana. Lulu Heart urges him forward, show me the brilliant answer you paid for in blood. Just a few minutes later, Serendiana openly praises his highly unusual battle strategy. A fundamental rule, every single element follows from birth, the innate power to completely neutralize any magic of its exact same type. Raging flames close in, but he easily shrugs off her massive fire attack by leveraging the energy of his own fire element soul. She confesses that using it for defense was a massive surprise. Flashing a cocky smirk, he asks if she's finally ready to take him seriously. That bold question catches her off guard. Then he dares her to launch a 5-attribute strike at once, leaving her absolutely speechless. How could he possibly know about that? Meeting his total silence, she scoffs, claiming she refuses to fall for such a cheap trick. But honestly, flexing power is just what the strong do. He watches her chant, and bingo, a gigantic, terrifying magic circle ignites right behind her back. She promises to bury him in one single devastating strike exactly like he wanted. He stands completely still for a few seconds, and then vanishes. Serendiana flinches in shock. Was that perception blocking, or just some basic stealth spell? Her elite mana tracking cannot be fooled by cheap garbage like that. She scans the entire battlefield. Even with an incredibly weak mana signature, she is fully confident she can track him down easily. Taking a breath, she remembers that absolutely nothing alive exists without mana. So the solution is simple, just completely annihilate every single thing in range. She unleashes a catastrophic 5-element strike across the entire zone. The destructive energy finally fades away into the air. Still sensing zero signs of him, fierce anger boils up at her failure to find her target. Suddenly, heavy sprinting footsteps echo out. She throws magic in every direction on pure instinct, mind racing over his impossible disappearing act. What she completely misses is the sky. He's hanging directly above her, perfectly positioned. You realize the boss sees the entire world using strictly mana vision. Triggering Lost Man completely scrubs his mana signature, turning him totally invisible to her senses. He raises his blade high. Once the skill timer runs out, his magical energy comes roaring back. The system flashes skill duration over mana fully restored. Now here's the real payoff. He drops like a meteor and triggers his absolute ultimate. Soul absorption, full power, soul burst. Serendiana snaps around in utter horror. Feeling an absurd amount of mana suddenly exploding from him, she cannot comprehend where this insane power just came from. Flashing back a few hours, he told Lulu Heart this place really lived up to its title as the most brutal dungeon. The sheer number of souls he grabbed up was totally insane. He explains how soul absorption, boosting his stats and mana on the final blow, had been incredibly handy. But Lulu Heart quickly reminds him that this is just the beginning. He gives her this totally confused look. She breaks it down if his soul eater class actually comes from her line. The real trick to soul absorption is the storage. It actually lets Yukari bank up the souls of every single defeated enemy, acting just like a giant reservoir. Like a cracked dam, he can release all that stored energy together. His absolute final strike runs on every soul he ever absorbed, plus every single life lost across his regressions. This one attack holds absolutely everything he has. He knows it is a massive gamble, dumping out every last collected soul at once, but he screams out to Serendiana, asking just how many times she thinks he actually died. He watched her spells closely. He mapped out her exact chant times, and from this close, his strike hits no matter what. Serendiana stays completely calm, admitting he really is an amazing human. But she tells herself he's definitely not the only one holding a trump card. She knows a mage's biggest flaw is the cast time. Did he seriously believe she never figured out a fix for that? She reaches up and rips open her treasure vault, digging around for a specific wand she kept in reserve, a weapon that skips casting entirely. She freezes. It is totally gone. Pure panic hits her hard. Did someone actually rob her vault? Check this out. She looks up and knows it is too late. Yukari dumps everything into his attack, yelling that it all ends right here, bringing his heavy sword crashing down. She throws up a barrier in total desperation, but she already knows it will fail. Just like that, the shield shatters instantly and his final blow lands clean, setting off a massive explosion. Right then, the system drops a global broadcast straight to every single player. Floor 1 of the Rank 1 Lulu Heart dungeon is officially cleared. Sakuraka is completely infuriated. The prompt then flashes the winner's identity to everyone, announcing this player just got full control authority over the entire first floor, plus total authorization to step into floor 2. The system throws out congratulations to all the players and wishes out health and blessings for the whole world. Meanwhile, back inside the Lulu Heart dungeon itself, Yukari and Lulu Heart go wild celebrating. The whole first floor of the dungeon lights up fast, and a stone statue of Serendiana pops onto the central altar as the real one fades away. Yukari screams out, barely believing he actually won, but almost immediately he gets insanely dizzy and drops to his knees. Chuckling, he tells Lulu Heart he's totally wiped out. That attack drained way more soul energy and mana than his body could take. Then the system flashes a new message, confirming the Conqueror, placing Yukari at rank 1 for contribution. Right then he realizes the system's logic, fully expected a whole team to tackle this place. The system then hands him the Rinton, a world-class grade item known as the Ring of Rotating Magic. The text says it completely nullifies any magic, but after popping it, you get slapped with a 24-hour cooldown. Right after that, his soul-devour skill kicks in, eating Serendiana Rinswill's soul, or just Serendiana, and turning the whole thing into raw mana. He's totally shocked by the massive flood of power rushing in. But it actually makes sense considering the insane amount of mana she had. Even with it overwhelming him, he totally gets it. Once her soul gets fully devoured, the system tries processing his actual contribution level. But it hits a weird error telling him those points get stored away until he hits S rank, since rank updates do not work for non-ranked players at all. Honestly, he's super relieved. Because seriously, think about it, if people asked how he won, he could hardly admit he borrowed a Demon Lord's power. Lulu Heart chimes in with some solid praise, flat out telling him she never expected he could actually beat her own floor boss. She also lets it slip that he's the very first one to pull it off. He's pretty surprised by her honest praise and thanks her, adding that none of this happens without her help. She then asks if she is right, guessing he brought her along, purely because of his garbage mana pool. He dodges the question instead, telling her he always wondered why she sent him here in the first place, especially since he is just a D rank. But fighting Serendiana, it all finally clicked. Every single time he got near death, her accuracy tanked. That is when he realized that whenever his mana ran completely dry, Serendiana literally could not sense his presence anymore. He explains he originally thought she was just this beautiful woman who constantly looked half asleep. But the wild truth is she's completely blind. If he were a stronger guy with deep mana, he never would have caught on that she tracks everything through mana alone. He would have just rushed in, swinging, dying over and over again, totally clueless about why he lost. He figures that was the real reason she threw him into this. Surviving this dungeon all came down to his low mana, a flaw that ironically became his absolute biggest advantage. Lulu Heart skips the small talk. But get this, Yukari asks if she actually managed to recover Serendiana's staff back during the fight. He thinks to himself, sure, he somehow managed to take down both Harble and Serendiana, but he knows he hasn't truly conquered this dungeon yet. He never stopped that ninefold silent chant. He absolutely has to get stronger. Catching his serious expression, Lulu Heart just sighs. She tells him he's definitely overthinking things again. She quickly reassures him he is the one who beat Serendiana, but he pushes back. Finding that boss's critical weakness only happened because of his lost man skill. She asks why he keeps separating his abilities from himself. That lost man skill belongs entirely to him, now he made the choice to take it. Going further, she explains Serendiana used a hidden ability called Elder Vision. It let her perfectly read an enemy's mana and predict their every move. The higher an opponent's mana gets, the stronger her foresight becomes basically pure clairvoyance. But relying on that crazy perception meant Serendiana completely ignored every other way to detect threats. Yukari played his hand perfectly. He exploited her blind spot and her massive arrogance. It really is that simple. Completely caught off guard by her breakdown, he gives her a genuine thanks. He then asks why his soul harvest ability failed to trigger on that final strike. Pointing straight ahead, she explains that Serendiana's soul is locked inside the statue. He squints at it totally empty, he tells her. Her mana output was completely massive even for a floor guardian. In his current state, he just cannot sense it at all. Keep leveling up, she says, and soul summoning will eventually unlock. Even so, he just cannot picture himself summoning a monster like Serendiana. That fight was way too intense. Lulu Heart decides they should pack it up and return another day. Absorbing the boss's mana definitely made him stronger, but it only expanded his max capacity. His tank is still completely empty. Without a real break, he stays running on fumes. She then briefs him on all the unmapped zones waiting for them, upcoming soul recovery quests and massive treasure runs. There's still a ton of grinding left, just to clear this first floor. He nods in agreement, and his body is completely exhausted. Time to head home and crash. A moment later, they step out of the Lulu Heart dungeon. His companion vanishes into thin air, promising to update their supplemental map. Yukari walks away from the entrance, every single joint in his body screaming in pain. Going home to sleep is his only goal right now. But suddenly cold steel presses right against his spine. A woman whispers from behind, walking alone on a moonlit night is pretty dangerous. Activating her skill. Design Desire. She tells her pet it is officially dinner time. Yukari shifts his head just slightly, sensing an incredibly dark presence, glaring from behind him a monstrous eye. Before he can flinch, the beast strikes, slamming him straight into the dirt, coughing up blood. Dark magic wraps tightly around his limbs, completely pinning him down. As the pain spikes, he wonders what just hit him. He quickly activates Lost Man to numb the brutal agony. The woman steps closer. The first floor of the Lulu Heart dungeon got cleared today, she notes. And he's the only one standing around here, so she wants some answers. Staring up at her readied blade and the terrifying beast looming over him, he stammers out, "Just who is she?" Flashing a warm smile, she introduces herself. He can just call her Sister Yoru. Pushing himself up, he barely shifts his weight. She looks quite impressed that he can move at all. Then she orders her pet to strike him again. But nothing happens. She stares in total shock as her Design Desire skill gets completely erased. How did a manaless D rank pull that off? Would she completely miss the Ronin item? Rindiana's boss drop sits right inside Yukari's pocket. It triggered automatically, wiping out the magic and saving his life. But Yukari knows the cooldown takes 24 hours. And stuck in these restraints, reaching for another item is totally impossible. Real panic sets in. No mana. Zero strength. Completely out of options. The attacker Irigami finally confirms her gut feeling. This kid is dangerous. Now watch closely, she decides to use a fraction of her real power. Triggering Design Desire. Once more, she orders her beast to rip his limbs off. The monster lunges forward, claws out, while Irigami coldly promises to leave him permanently crippled. But right before those claws connect, someone drops in, blocking the hit perfectly. Sakurai greets Irigami with a smirk, calling her absolute trash while crushing the monster's claw. Turning back around, Sakurai demands to know what she's doing to Yukari. He cannot believe it. Sakurai is actually standing right here. Why on earth would Japan's top player show up here? Sakurai turns to Irigami, calling her a witch and saying she had word on the street was someone finally cleared the Lulu Heart dungeon and she came to check it out. Finding her rival here was a complete surprise. Irigami just flashes a warm smile. She says calling her a witch is pretty cruel, and suggests Sakura try Sister Yoru instead, maybe with a little actual affection. Sakura shoots her a deadly glare. She knows exactly who Irigami is, the holder of the ultimate holy attribute Saintess class. A supposed witch who actually runs the entire mysterious holy dungeon church behind the scenes. Sakura calls her out for always hiding her tracks so well. Hiding so perfectly that nobody guessed she was even in Japan. But today is definitely her lucky day. This is her chance to wipe her out completely. Irigami just smiles right back, telling Sakura to dial down that open hostility. She claims she merely respects the dungeons, the monsters, and the absolute ruler, above them all the Demon King himself. Irigami adds excitedly that it is purely an act of faith. That just makes Sakura angrier. She snaps back that she could not care less about her beliefs. Messing with her guild was a fatal mistake. Irigami just plays totally dumb. She insists she has absolutely no clue what Sakura means, claiming her one and only target here is Yukari. The Saintess explains that the Lulu Heart dungeon's first floor was officially cleared today, and Yukari is the main guy who pulled it off. Sakura freezes up for a second. She asks in total disbelief if Irigami actually thinks Yukari cleared the Lulu Heart dungeon's first floor. Then she absolutely loses it, bursting out laughing and daring her to repeat that. Smirking hard, Sakura says she will make a rare exception and let her say it twice, since it has been forever since she laughed this much. Honestly, Irigami is pretty hilarious. The Saintess chuckles right back, wondering aloud if maybe she just has a secret talent for making people smile. While these two women trade laughs and threats, Yukari just sits there quietly. He's equal parts terrified and completely lost. Suddenly, Sakura's tone drops. Smiling coldly, she admits that yes, Yukari actually managed to beat Kei and even somehow took down Kazuki, a guy sitting 2 whole ranks above him. But she knows the Lulu Heart dungeon is not a place you just casually conquer. Turning her focus back, Sakura declares the obvious. Entertaining a crazy witch's delusions is a complete waste of her time. Swearing to end Irigami right here and now, Sakura immediately triggers her 5-tailed skill. She launches her Foxfire, half-blood attack. Irigami does not panic, calmly raising her Albion Veil. The Foxfire lands hard, sparking a massive energy explosion. But when the smoke finally clears, Irigami does not have a single scratch. Irigami glances over, noting she fully expected Sakura to pack that kind of firepower, even while holding back her true strength. She wonders aloud if this is really the time to hold back. A monster lunges at Sakura, but she just smirks. She casually tosses up a glowing magical shield to block it. She coldly warns Irigami not to get cocky over such weak power. Irigami just commands her pet to activate corrosion. The nasty claws drip with decay, piercing right through Sakura's solid barrier and shattering it instantly. But honestly, that only gets Sakura more excited. She hits back, unleashing her black flame butterfly half-blood ability. The glowing insects land perfectly on the beast's claws. They erupt into intense black flames, incinerating the creature completely. Meanwhile, Lulu Heart pops up beside Yukari. She warns him that those women possess absolutely extraordinary magic power. With his mana and stamina completely gone, he cannot move. She advises him to just sit quietly and watch, because this insane power level is the very wall he must overcome someday. He gives a firm nod, understanding her completely. A real S-class clash. Trust me, you'd be taking notes too. He burns every detail into his brain. Irigami suddenly unleashes her sacred spears, massive holy lances of pure light summoned straight from the sacred castle. Their divine energy is highly effective against evildoers and mortals. She aims them right at Sakura and launches the whole swarm simultaneously, claiming people are just way too obsessed with preserving a boring normal. Unfazed Sakura immediately activates her double barrier ability, deflecting the deadly spears trying to skewer her, but Irigami is nowhere near done yet. She summons an even larger magic circle, speaking up again, proclaiming Earth is now a chosen land of God. She insists humans should gratefully accept their skills classes and deadly dungeons as pure miracles. Another brutal wave of sacred spears flies out, provoking Sakura even more. Visibly irritated, Sakura yells that Irigami's delusions are totally insane, then she instantly activates her Thousand Bind Chains half-blood ability, totally rejecting those ridiculous beliefs. Her glowing chains lash out, wrapping tightly around the incoming spears. With one quick order, they constrict hard, completely shattering the holy spears into countless fragments. Irigami answers with an even stronger burst of magic. Knowing her last attack failed, she finally deploys her actual holy sword, a brilliant radiant blade packed with heavy divine energy. It is especially lethal against raw evil and beings stuck between realms. Without hesitating, she violently swings the holy sword straight down. A blade shoots right at Sakurako. She binds it mid-air, wrapping it up tight. Irigami just smirks at her, asking if Five Little Tails can really hold down a holy weapon like that. Sakurako knows it is a super cheap taunt, but says she will play along for a minute. She promises to show Irigami the massive gap in their actual power, and with that, Sakurako unleashes her sixth tail. Instantly, she triggers Ritual Fox Cry Barrier Demon Heaven Curse. The crazy technique floods the entire battlefield. It drops a heavy demon fox curse over everything, freezing any target inside. Suddenly, a massive fox claw peers right out of a spatial rift. Irigami looks totally stunned, asking if Sakurako seriously plans to summon the actual demon fox itself. Is she trying to wipe Shinjuku off the map? Sakurako coldly shoots back that taking out Irigami is absolutely worth sacrificing a city or two, a small price. Yukari freezes in pure horror. She really is willing to nuke a whole city. He sees that dead serious look in her eyes. He knows he has to step up right here. Because get this, one of Sakurako's binds is pointing a holy spear straight at him. Meanwhile, Irigami draws another holy sword and aims it at Sakurako. She yells out this pure, vicious magic power is making her heart race. She declares they should just surrender to the power and drown in it. Then she hurls the holy sword straight at Sakurako. But wait, the system alerts Yukari health critical, drop below 10%. That forces his abyss soul to activate. It boosts him into an ultra-high state, cranking up his magic output insanely. Reacting instantly, he summons Harbel's soul. It binds Irigami's hands tight, stopping her attack just in time. Sakurako is stunned. She cannot believe he actually managed to lock down Irigami's movements. Even as a lowly D rank, Yukari forces himself right back up. He has no idea how much further his body can go like this. But right now, he's the only option. He swears to end this fight, whatever it takes. Meanwhile, Lulu Heart watches from the back, totally amazed that Yukari actually thought to stab himself with that holy spear to force his health down and trigger his magic recovery. But she also knows this is a massive problem. Irigami suddenly bursts out laughing, claiming she just received a divine revelation. She yells with pure hype that Yukari is her actual destiny. Then she activates Luminous Sanctum, wiping out all status ailments and snapping Harbel's bindings instantly. Yukari is completely shocked. The effects just gone. Without hesitating, Irigami hurls a holy sword at him, yelling that her plans have totally changed. She's taking Yukari for herself now. This pisses Sakurako off so much she unleashes her seventh tail. She screams at Irigami not to underestimate her. Sakurako literally catches the holy sword one-handed, releasing raw magic with her other hand. She yells at Yukari, "Get in my way and I will end you first." Then she casts Heavenly Thunder Butterfly right above his head. Yukari is shocked by the insane speed. He cannot defend against this. His mana is completely tapped. The butterfly lands and detonates instantly, throwing a thick, heavy fog across the whole area. And from inside that smoke, a voice calls out, "Guess he made it just in time." Kira, easily blocking Sakurako's attack, yells at both women, "Enough is enough." They really cannot afford to destroy Shinjuku today. Kira warns them, "Keep this fight going, and he will intervene." Sakurako stays calm, totally defiant. She asks if he seriously thinks he can win. Kira straight up says he probably cannot beat her, but he will not lose either. That leaves Sakurako visibly frustrated and completely speechless. Suddenly, Sarah runs in, calling out for her big sister. Sakurako is stunned to see the kid here. Sarah yells that Yukari is her benefactor, begging for a chance to treat his wounds. Sakurako finally cools off, shooting Kira a sharp look. She simply cannot believe he actually brought Sarah along for this. Kira explains they picked up a massive magic spike on the way and called Sarah immediately. He knows perfectly well. You cannot reason with Sakurako unless Sarah is right there. He's also pretty glad Umeo and Sarah are close friends. Kira then turns to Irugami, asking what she plans to do now. Irugami smooths out her expression fully, realizing that fighting 2S ranks right now is way too much trouble. She walks over to Yukari, declaring it would be a total waste to kill him today. She triggers Luminous Ray Shift, wrapping her body in pure light. Just before she vanishes, she locks eyes with Yukari, tells him again he is her absolute destiny, and they will definitely meet again. With everything calming down, Sakurako walks right up to Yukari. There's something important she needs to verify right now. She asks him, is he the guy who actually cleared the Lulu Heart dungeon? Yukari glances over at Lulu Heart, silently asking her opinion. Should he tell them? About the regression, they could make decent allies. But Lulu Heart shoots that idea down. Do not do it, since dungeon breaks are not always triggered by the Demon King alone. Yukari is confused, asking exactly what she means. Lulu Heart lays it out for him. Normally, monsters are trapped inside their dungeons. Breaking out takes some massive sacrifice or seriously dark methods. And yet this massive break happened anyway. You see where this is going, right? Someone on the human side is actively helping the monsters escape. Yukari is just completely lost now. Lulu Heart warns him to stay alert and keep a low profile for a bit. Sakurako leans in to press the issue, but Yukari shuts her down fast. He brushes it off, claiming he is just some D-rank guy who got way too cocky. He flat out denies clearing the Lulu Heart dungeon. This completely throws Sarah, especially since her whole thing is seeing right through lies. He knows he just lied straight to Sarah's face. But honestly, he cannot come up with a better excuse to hide his power, even with how shady it all looks. Sakurako turns right to Sarah to verify if he's actually being honest. Sarah hesitates for a second, then finally gives a nod. She backs him up, claiming it definitely was not him who cleared that place. Sakurako accepts that answer, deciding to drop the whole thing just for Sarah's sake. Then Umeo chimes in, introducing her older brother Kira. Kira explains they barely survived the absolute chaos, generously offering to let Yukari crash at their place for the night. Yukari thanks them, admitting he could really use the shelter. Meanwhile, Sakurako checks in with Sarah about heading home together. Sarah agrees, though she is secretly holding on to the real truth. Yukari absolutely was the guy who beat that dungeon's first floor. A quiet pang of sadness hits her. It feels like he is always staying one step ahead. But more than that, she cannot figure out why he is hiding his strength. Is there some dark secret he just cannot share with them yet? She firmly convinces herself he would never lie without a solid reason. It probably just means she's not someone he fully trusts yet. Making a silent vow, she promises to train even harder to actually become someone Yukari can rely on. That settles it for her. Meanwhile, over at the Holy Dungeon Association, a sister walks right up to Irugami and checks if she's completely unharmed, asking how to handle Yukari. One single order and they will wipe him out on the spot. But Irugami calmly tells her to stand down. She already sensed his power. That entity Yukari summoned Horrible carried the exact magical signature of the Lulu Heart dungeon. That alone proves everything she needs. A twisted smile crosses Uragami's face. She calls Yukari their guiding light, the absolute key to dungeons finally conquering this world. She whispers a quiet prayer to her lord. In her mind, Yukari is 100% destined to rule by her side. Fast forward 3 days since that brutal clear. And here's where the aftermath hits. Over at the Tokyo branch, a staff member is scrolling through her tablet. The breaking news about someone beating that impossible Lulu Heart dungeon is literally everywhere. She's practically in shock. A single player actually surviving that place sounds insane. The internet is completely convinced Sakurako pulled it off, but the staff member seriously doubts it was her doing the heavy lifting. Right on cue, Yukari walks up. He politely interrupts her, asking to kick off his official rank promotion. She jumps and quickly apologizes for zoning out. Yukari shrugs it off like it is nothing, letting her know he just wants to confirm his official jump up to C rank. The woman blinks in surprise, feeling the need to remind him that he literally just hit D rank a week ago. Going up to C rank usually requires grinding through over 100 different dungeons. Yukari totally gets why she is skeptical. The system's ranking mechanics are pretty mysterious, but everyone knows. You have to rack up massive contribution points by constantly killing monsters. He looks over at the massive globe sitting right there in the room, just touching it. Instantly scans your stats to see if you qualify for a promotion under the association's watch. He confidently assures her it is fine he put in the work. But the reality is, he completely shattered his basic point requirements. Beating that brutal first floor instantly rewarded him with the official title of a C-rank player. He jumped to 8 mana circuits, his base stats spiked, and he unlocked a crazy new skill soul resonance. Hitting C rank doubled his circuits, meaning his powerful soul summons are way more stable now, lasting way longer than a quick flash. But Lulu Heart quickly reminds him this is not enough. She explains those circuits just convert the world's raw mana into usable skills and abilities, but actually absorbing that power depends entirely on the raw strength of his soul's desire. More circuits mean nothing without a heavy soul to anchor them. That exact desperation is why he only gets stronger when pushed to the absolute brink, making everything click. That's why she's so ruthless. Yukari fires back, claiming he assumed torturing him was just her twisted hobby. But she goes dead silent, and he naturally asks why she's suddenly ignoring him. A second later, the attendant lets him place his hand on the stone, confirming his qualifications. He officially earns the title of a C-rank player. She just stares in pure shock. She honestly figured his victory over Kakuzuki was just dumb luck, but jumping from D rank to C rank in a single week, that kind of insane speed rivals even Sakurako. She has to wonder what nightmare dungeon he survived. The Lulu Heart dungeon crosses her mind, but she shakes her head. Absolutely impossible. Umeko runs up to congratulate him, and he nods his thanks. She's practically buzzing, telling him she cannot believe he already caught up to her level. She mentions that her brother was seriously impressed by his moves last night. Then she drops the big question, would he consider joining the Sakura Dragon Guild? Umeko promises they could guarantee him a great spot, especially since Kira runs the whole operation. But Yukari politely turns her down, planning to fly solo for a bit. He still thinks he lacks real experience. Umeko just nods, saying she will not push it. Still, she makes sure he knows the door remains wide open. Fast forward to the National Player University East Building cafeteria. Yukari grabs a bite, reaching out to Lulu Heart through telepathy. He asks if it's really fine for them to sit in class right after such a massive incident. Lulu Heart answers back. His soul will literally break if he keeps grinding nonstop. A little normal daily life is totally necessary right now. But he just cannot shake the guilt. How can he relax knowing a massive dungeon break is coming down the line? She firmly reminds him that guilt and anxiety actually matter too. Seeing her stubbornness, he realizes arguing is completely pointless. Once she digs her heels in, he surrenders. Still, he has skipped every single class since traveling back in time. The whole thing feels incredibly awkward. Today is technically his very first day on campus. Plus, he never really made friends the first time around. Out of nowhere, a familiar voice asks to share his table. He looks up and spots Sierra flashing him a bright smile. He tells her to grab any spot she wants. She slides right into the seat next to him, instantly cranking up his nerves. Why exactly did she sit so close? He figures she might still be stressing over that fake story he fed her earlier. He quietly thanks her for playing along, casting a quick glance over at Lulu Heart. He wonders if he should come clean about the Lulu Heart dungeon. Little does he know, Sierra already activated her Eye of Truth skill. A bright green aura surrounds him, the literal color of guilt. Keeping her smile, she tells him his secrets are safe. She promises never to doubt him. Whenever he finally feels ready to talk, she'll be right there waiting to listen. That level of trust actually touches him. Then she casually brings up his recent transfer into the main player education department, all thanks to hitting C rank. He confirms the rumor, explaining that this kind of early promotion is apparently super rare. Getting to C rank as a college freshman is practically unheard of, mostly because players cannot even activate until they turn 18. Unless you are a prodigy like Sierra, most normal students spend an entire year just grinding from F rank up to E. Hearing those words, Sierra quietly thinks she has finally managed to close the gap between them. But the brutal reality, he left her in the dust again. She's nowhere near his true level. Her self-doubt gets cut short when Yukari chimes in. He heard she just hit D rank and gives her a warm congratulations. He tells her with absolute certainty she will not just stop at D, she's going straight to S rank. He promises she will outgrow him in no time. Checking his aura, Sierra sees zero deception. Why does he believe in her this much? What kind of massive expectations is he hiding? She's been racking her brain over this for weeks. Still, his faith gives her a massive confidence boost. She silently swears to work hard and actually live up to that hype. Changing the subject, she asks about his class assignment, proudly mentioning that she got placed into Class 1. Beside him, Lulu Heart lets out a massive, exhausted yawn. Yukari casually mentions he got assigned to Class 13, causing Sierra to completely freeze. Seeing her shock, he asks if something is wrong. She quickly waves it off, but her terrified face tells a totally different story. Giving in, she explains the harsh truth. Class 13 groups people purely by combat ability, completely ignoring their age, meaning the roster is packed with some highly unstable, unique personalities. Yukari just tilts his head in absolute confusion. Either way, he tells her they have a dungeon orientation later to meet everyone. He honestly cannot wait to see who shows up. Now watch how fast reality hits him. Outside the C-rank Gushin dungeon, he kneels holding a sign to Day's baggage carrier. An angry female player screams right in his face, demanding to know why some weak college freshman got thrown into their elite squad. Meet Aiba Komori. She is a heavy-hitting C-rank berserker, keeping all her actual skills a total mystery. Suji Naruse, a C-rank knight, just shrugs at him. How should he know? He figures Yukari just got incredibly unlucky today. He's basically just here to carry their bags. Nearby, Yuto Kagurawa, a C-rank elementalist with hidden skills, quietly yawns. Komori whips around to face Yukari. She yells at him, "Don't even think about getting in her way." She straight up threatens to end him if he steps out of line. He just laughs awkwardly, promising to do his absolute best and learn from his seniors. Staring at these three heavy-hitting classmates, he realizes this whole dungeon raid is going to be a massive headache. Naruse speaks up next, announcing their real job today, hauling gear and picking up drop materials. He tells them directly to stay out of combat and save the experience points. Yukari totally agrees, but Lulu Heart is absolutely not having it. She demands to know why she even has to work with these people begging him to just run the dungeon solo. But he knows the rules. To get into any C-rank dungeon or higher, he absolutely has to bring a party. Plus, raising his player rank leaves him with exactly 0 other options. Back before the reset, he was totally desperate just to get near a dungeon. He even worked part-time collecting materials outside them, and right now, he definitely can't announce that he already cleared the Lulu Heart dungeon. Having literally 0 public achievements puts him in a weird spot. No wonder his seniors are keeping such a close eye on him. Lulu Heart chimes in. Does he remember their conditions? Yukari rattles off the list of banned items. No swords, no unapproved gear, and definitely no soul summoning. Lulu Heart actually praises him for keeping it straight. She tells him today is strictly a bare hands fighting kind of day. Just focus all that magic straight into his fists. He's been grinding martial arts lately anyway. Might as well show off exactly what he picked up while surviving that crazy S-rank dungeon. Right then, Komori looks around, wondering why the place is completely empty of monsters. Yuto asks if they clear this place. Do they actually get the credit? Komori nods, explaining the university only cares about high-ranking players with real solid achievements. Suddenly, Yuto catches movement ahead. It's a massive stone golem. Without missing a single beat, Komori springs straight into action. She tries to chop the monster down, but barely leaves a scratch. Naruse refuses to fall behind and immediately joins the assault. Yuto follows up fast, firing off an aqua spear spell. It does absolutely nothing. Finding a quick opening, Naruse tries slashing the creature. Meanwhile, Yukari just stands back and watches. 2 frontline fighters, 1 backline, magic user. But their teamwork is a complete disaster, just random solo players totally thrown together. Their individual skills are high enough to barely keep things from falling apart. Honestly, he's pretty tempted to jump in and farm those golem souls. But his official job is carrying gear. Stealing their experience right now would just be incredibly bad manners. Back on the front line, Komori lands a super heavy blow. Yuto instantly follows it up, blasting the golem with electric magic. Taking her shot, Komori leaps high and unleashes her Rampage Crush. The skill completely shatters the golem into tiny pieces. Wasting 0 time, she charges straight at the next target. Yukari figures these seniors won't need his help at all. At this pace, they'll drop the next one in 10 minutes flat, but they completely miss the other golem lurking right in the corner. His seniors are blind to the threat and looking exhausted. Watch closely now, he decides to step up and handle it himself. 0 hesitation. He dashes straight at the monster channel's raw magic right into his fist and punches it directly in the face. It actually survives the first hit, but he quickly realizes his magic control is now just as deadly as swinging a sword. He lines up a second shot. One more heavy blow completely shatters the golem's head into dust. Pretty satisfied with that result, he figures he'll test it again later. Right on cue, Komori runs over, demanding to know if he's okay. Then she sees it. A golem totally reduced to rubble. Yukari tries explaining, but she's already distracted by the shiny drop materials. She just assumes the monsters fought each other for territory. Yukari thinks he's safe, but then gets chewed out anyway for wandering off alone. She barks at him to get back here, and he quickly obeys. But Komori takes a longer look at those broken stone remains. Deep down, she knows exactly what she's looking at. Yukari definitely destroyed this thing using nothing but his bare hands. That kind of brute strength should be totally impossible, not just for a C-class rank, but even for an A-class heavy hitter. The math just isn't mathing. She decides right then to keep a very close eye on Yukari. Venturing deeper into the dungeon zones, they immediately run into another golem. Naruse steps up, blocking the strike with his iron barrier skill. He signals Yuto, who instantly traps the monster's foot, using Ice Fort. Komori leaps straight in, slicing the thing clean in half with Beast Fang Flash. They think it's over, but another golem charges from the flank. Naruse instantly steps in, using Justice Taunt. It forces the enemy to attack him massively, boosting his own defense stats upon activation. Yuto follows up hard, with an ice spear yelling at the others to coordinate their attacks. Both fighters quickly agree. Komori activates her Blood Mist combo, draining her own health to boost attack speed during a rapid assault. Naruse prepares his skill. Brave Strike, a massive downward slash that actually has a decent chance to knock enemies back. Komori finishes the job with one last Beast Fang Flash, completely shattering the golem. Yukari watches, genuinely impressed by their firepower. She points out they just exploited the weak spot to boost their critical hit rate. Yukari tilts his head, asking how exactly that works. She explains her Berserker class basically multiplies damage a few times over. Simply put, that critical rate shoots up whenever specific conditions are met, like hitting vital points or striking a totally stunned enemy. But the trade-off is huge. Her combat style relies on heavy attacks that leave her completely exposed. That is exactly why Naruse plays the knight and grabs aggro while Yuto hangs back as an elementalist for support and chip damage. Once those two analyze the weak points and force an opening, Komori steps up for the finishing blow. Yukari honestly thought his seniors would struggle against a golem. Instead, he realizes they have built a pretty solid rhythm through sheer experience. He was worrying over absolutely nothing. Naruse steps up to inspect the golem remains. He mentions the monsters are tough but sparse. Still, draining that much magical power to beat just one is a serious problem. He suggests falling back or taking a quick break. Yuto shoots that down fast. The dungeon is pretty empty and they simply do not have time to waste. Yukari looks confused and asks what the rush is. Naruse sighs, explaining they are already third-year students, and scouting season is right around the corner. They are stuck at rank C right now, but unless they hit rank B soon, joining a good guild is completely off the table. Yuto adds that even if they somehow get recruited, they will just be treated like absolute bottom-rung trash. That honestly surprises Yukari. From his point of view, just making a living as a player is already pretty amazing. Even Sakurako from their own university somehow hit rank S right before she actually managed to graduate. Naruse isn't surprised at all. He heard the rumors about her clearing the Lulu Heart dungeon. Yukari is completely shocked and asks for details. Naruse admits it is mostly just a rumor. Honestly, he cannot think of anyone else strong enough to clear that place. Yukari suddenly realizes this is what the general public actually believes. He prefers not to stand out until he solves the dungeon break mystery anyway, so this massive misunderstanding actually works out perfectly in his favor. Yuto suddenly gets dead serious. He warns Yukari to stay completely out of their battles, reminding the kid he is strictly here to observe. No unnecessary moves. Yukari blinks in surprise but goes along with it. Later, while walking, Yukari thinks back on his own long stretch of solo fighting. Honestly, watching his seniors work together actually taught him quite a bit today. He badly wants to harvest those golem souls, but getting to see these monsters from a totally different angle is pretty exciting too. Watch how fast this turns. An ominous presence drops over them. Yukari spins around, screaming for everyone to run, but it is already way too late. Golems stand absolutely everywhere. His seniors freeze in pure shock, unable to believe they actually got fully surrounded. Yukari knew something felt way off. The dungeon had been suspiciously empty until now. Was this an elaborate trap, just to drag them deeper inside? If so, some highly intelligent monster has to be pulling the strings behind this. Komori sees the horde closing in from every single angle. She quickly decides their only real option is to push straight forward. Yukari knows his seniors are terribly equipped for crowd control. He steps up, telling them to fall back and leave the golem horde entirely to him. Naruse looks incredibly confused, shouting that winning against numbers like this is impossible and they are falling back immediately. The golem suddenly crashes down right between them. While Naruse scrambles to get back on his feet, Yuto sprints directly past him. Yuto yells out they are leaving Yukari behind. Naruse stares in absolute shock, asking if they are seriously just abandoning him here. Yuto flashes a perfectly cold stare. He says Yukari is just some weak rank C newcomer, so buying them a few seconds of escape time is plenty. Yukari easily dodges a monster strike and urges the team to hurry up and leave. He insists he's actually really good at running away. Komori hesitates, asking if he can actually handle this alone. Yukari simply tells her to trust him. She figures this is a great chance to test his real abilities. She takes off running, calling out that his life is in his own hands. With zero other options left, Naruse turns and follows her out. Yukari quickly scans the area, casually counting at least 30 angry golems. He realizes setting his backpack down means it gets instantly crushed into dust, so instead, he just tosses the whole thing high into the air. He calls out to Lulu Heart, asking her to pump him full of magic while he keeps these massive golems completely distracted. Lulu Heart happily agrees, teasing him for being way too soft-hearted. Yukari laughs it off, claiming his body just went numb from standing around watching. His expression shifts to pure determination. Now is the perfect time to start farming those precious souls. Cut to several days earlier in the holy dungeon church. Komori is quietly praying when someone walks right up to her Uragami, offering a warm greeting. Komori looks genuinely glad to see her. Uragami explains she actually called Komori here to ask for a specific favor, and Komori being totally unhinged. Komori tells Uragami to just give the word. She will carry out any order, even if it costs her life. Hearing this makes Uragami pretty happy. She asks if Komori is still taking classes at the university, and she nods yes. Leaning in close, Uragami gives her target, "Get cozy with Yukari." Komori instantly drops the smile, dead serious. She asks if he has some fresh target to eliminate. Uragami shakes her head no, explaining exactly why he matters. Yukari is actually a vital piece for their massive long-term goal. But right now, as a vessel, he's completely raw. His soul is way too fragile, so he has to be sharpened. Flashing a totally crazed smile, she orders Komori to break his limits, drip out all the useless junk, and mold him into perfection. Utterly confused by this, Komori asks how to even pull that off. Uragami stays cold. Just push the boy right to the absolute edge of death. Do not hold back a single bit. If he ends up dying well, that is just his hard limit. Back in the present moment, massive golems are rushing Yukari. He cleanly dodges a wild swing, spins around, and shatters the golem's head entirely. Taking it down in one solid strike feels great. But two more of these heavy beasts immediately charge his way. Luckily, he jumps up fast, letting the two monsters smash right into each other. Powering up his fist, he obliterates the first one's skull. Zero hesitation, he drops another. Launching himself through the air, he completely caves in the next one's head with a brutal stomp. The kid is literally punching through every single golem in sight. Watching from far back, Lulu Heart is absolutely blown away by his progress. Even in a C-rank dungeon, these things have armor thicker than some solid B-rank monsters. She wonders if feeling totally useless in the past timeline is feeding this insane growth. His drive to get stronger is genuinely wild. Moving at this crazy pace, they could probably start learning actual tier magic in their very next dungeon run. Once the final golem drops, Yukari hits the dirt completely out of breath. Lulu Heart claps for him. Clearing 32 golems alone is seriously impressive stuff. Yukari admits the first wave felt incredibly easy to deal with. But near the end, his gas tank hit empty, and he had to land multiple strikes just to finish one off. Lulu Heart agrees, pointing out his magic got messy, halfway through putting way too much extra stress on his own muscles. He nods, totally gets what she means. He explains that getting those crazy items straight out of the vault changed everything. His physical stats suddenly spiked, and his body just isn't used to it yet. Check this out. First up is an S-rank Grand Strength Ring. It basically supercharges his raw physical power. Next is the S-rank Harden Ring. It buffs his defense and seriously cuts down physical damage. And the third is the S-rank Windblaze Bangle, speeding up his dodging and making rapid combo attacks hit way harder. Yukari still vividly remembers that insane clash between Irugami and Sakurako. He knows for a fact he is miles below their actual level. Fired up, he decides he absolutely has to catch them, or stopping the dungeon break is just pure fantasy. He pushes himself up and rushes off to find his seniors. Running fast, he hopes they survived. Lulu Heart tells him that she feels zero magic traces nearby. They're probably fine as long as they stayed out of the boss room. Somewhere else, Naruse tells the group he is turning back. Udo asks if he is totally insane, pointing out, going back will not magically erase the fact they ditched Yukari. Naruse bites his lip. Yeah, he knows that. He admits he's already total garbage for leaving his junior to die, but he just wants to grab the kid's body. Mori shoots that down fast. She says they're marching straight to the boss, leaving both guys totally confused. Beating the boss collapses the dungeon, she explains. If by some absolute miracle Yukari is alive, that is how they save him. But walking backward into 50 angry golems. A complete death sentence. Fighting one single heavy boss is the smarter play here. It proves their worth. Deep down, Komori just remembers the strict order Irugami gave her. Push the boy right to death's door. Helping him now ruins the whole plan. Uto naturally sides with her. He tells Naruse they need real results, not messy feelings. Crying over dead guys fixes nothing. Naruse quietly nods along. Walking ahead, Naruse feels like an absolute coward. Knowing pure fear is what made him leave the kid behind. It eats him alive. Still, he swears to himself, kill the boss, and at least he can bring the kid's body home. Watch this right here. Out of nowhere, Yukari jogs up, casually asking if they were waiting for him. The guys freeze in pure shock while Komori just squints at him. Naruse cannot believe the kid is actually still breathing. He was dead sure Yukari got crushed, but the boy just smiles, claiming he ran fast and got insanely lucky out there. Wanting to stay completely off the radar, he keeps the Golem massacre quiet. Yukari refuses to believe it. Could one of his own seniors really be the traitor who triggered this massive dungeon break? But staying cautious is always the smart play. Naruse steps up, apologizes, and admits he just completely panicked back there. Yukari brushes it off, telling him it is totally fine. Besides, he's the guy who gave them the strategy to begin with. Then Uto gets right in his face. He warns Yukari not to become some greedy thief running around just snatching up experience points, calling him a brat who just got incredibly lucky. Yukari claps right back. If all he cared about was experience, he never would have fought. Meanwhile, Komari watches Yukari in dead silence. She wonders how he actually escaped that massive golem herd and if he secretly belongs to a stealth class. She quickly brushes the idea off. No assassin or thief should pack that kind of raw power. Figuring out her next move, she reminds herself she must carry out Irugami's order no matter the cost. Yet she hates dragging her teammates into this mess. So she makes her hard choice. She has to isolate Yukari inside the boss room. Knowing Naruse will follow her lead, she decides to leave Uto outside. Keeping her voice calm, she asks how long they plan to keep bickering, then points out they need to scout the boss room first to actually win this. She gives Uto a direct order to stay behind, telling him he is way too on edge. Uto instantly protests, shouting out that he can boost his spellcasting speed, but she shuts him down. His magic is already pushed to the absolute limit. He goes completely speechless. She points out that Yukari still has stamina and backup items, but even he cannot fight while protecting two different people. She orders Uto to take a breather and cool off. Visibly irritated, Udo knows she's absolutely right about this, and sits down quietly while the rest of them push ahead into the boss room. 1 hour of roaming later, Naruse finally asks where the boss actually is. Kamari mentions that they have not seen a single monster around either. Yukari turns straight to Lulu Heart, asking if she notices anything strange. Lulu Heart speaks up a massive monster is close by, but this heavy fog is blurring its presence, or it is in pieces. She warns him that it is very close. This makes Yukari wonder, can monsters actually move together in groups? He suddenly remembers one golem from earlier showing actual signs of intelligence. Connecting the dots in his head, the horrifying truth finally clicks into place. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the dungeon, Uto spots a stray golem. The thing is heavily damaged, totally alone and barely standing. He wonders if Yukari did this, but quickly shakes off the thought. A rookie first year like Yukari could never pull that off. Walking up to the golem, he considers himself pretty damn lucky. Knowing he can easily take down a dying golem, Uto grips his key tag tight. He's completely determined to grab those experience points. He needs the money right now. Just a few days ago in the hospital, Uto was practically seeing red over the massive medical bills. The doctor gave him a grim warning: without treatment, his sister only has 3 years left. That reality absolutely terrified him. But checking his bank passbook shattered his world. Every cent he saved up for her surgery was already completely gone. He had a pretty good idea exactly who took it. He rushed to confront his father, finding the man just lying around doing nothing. Confronted, his father casually claims he just borrowed the cash. Udo screams right back that money was meant to pay for Kennedy's life-saving surgery. He demands to know where it went. And his father just laughs it off, saying he used it to buy booze and have a little fun. Seeing red, Uto punches the wall hard. He screams that even if this deadbeat father abandoned them, he will protect Kennedy all by himself. He tells the man to vanish forever. But his father, he does not care at all. Laughing out loud, he walks away, telling his son to go work harder. Back in the present, Udo knows his time is running out. Taking down this one golem is enough to push him up to B rank. It is a small step, but it qualifies him for a better guild. Higher ranks mean better perks, bringing in the real cash he needs for Kennedy's treatment. He absolutely despises this garbage world, swearing to never rely on a single soul ever again. Activating his magic, he blasts the golem with a massive hydro spike. The creature shatters into a dozen pieces from just one hit. He calmly walks up to the remains. Being a skilled elementalist, he fully believes he can crush any attribute class by targeting their weaknesses, but then he freezes. The shattered rocky pieces are actually moving. Pure horror washes over him as a monstrous presence wakes up, and right here, everything changes. The real dungeon boss finally steps out. Now he finally understands why this boss was so completely impossible to track down. Panicking, Uto immediately tries to fall back, but he is way too slow. The towering boss swings a massive fist, punching him straight across the room. Slamming hard into the wall, he cannot believe the sheer speed of this thing. It grew impossibly fast. Struggles to stand up, but his leg is completely mangled. Watching the boss approach, he lies there helpless, bitterly thinking that absolutely nothing ever goes right for him in this trash world. Brace yourselves for this hit. The boss raises a giant fist. Powerless, Uto lifts the key tag from his sister, desperately trying to call out Kanede's name as the heavy fist drops. Uto's vision starts going dark. But right on time, Yukari steps in, catching the massive golem fist with one hand. Uto completely gets it. He really wanted the level up experience here, but Yukari asks for this one chance to back him up. And right away, Yukari connects the dots. All those smaller golems from before were just pieces of this giant boss. A sudden warning shout from Uto snaps his attention back. The boss is already swinging its other giant fist right at his face. Not a chance. He catches the strike with his free hand, shoving the arm away from Uto. Dropping his stance low, he shifts his weight back and unleashes a massive counter. The impact completely shatters the golem's arm, sending it sliding backward. This thing is built way tougher than anything they faced on the way down. But for Yukari, it is definitely not impossible. The boss, instantly regenerating its missing arm, completely catches him off guard, but Lulu Heart quickly chimes in. Since this giant is literally made of smaller combined golems, regeneration is standard. That does not make it invincible, though. Time to get serious. He triggers his soul trial ability, flooding his system with mana, while stacking debuffs, and throws a massive punch. Instantly, he activates Lost Man, wiping those debuffs clean, and follows up with another devastating blow. The raw kinetic force knocks the giant backward. Before the boss can even recover, Yukari unleashes a blinding flurry of strikes. Honestly, watching this guy fight is absolutely unreal. Udo stands frozen, doubting they share the same rank anymore. The rest of the squad finally arrives, and Naruse, he just sighs. He thought they were closing the power gap, but jumping in right now would just make them a massive liability. So they stand back watching their classmate absolutely dismantle a boss monster. Komori is quite literally speechless. She realizes his mana circuits are operating on a completely different plane of existence compared to theirs. The sheer volume of energy he's putting out is totally mind-blowing. She cannot even begin to calculate what kind of circulation efficiency makes power like that possible, especially since they theoretically possess the exact same number of mana circuits. Frustrated, the boss lets out a heavy growl. Suddenly, the entire area floods with a massive swarm of soldier golems. The giant orders the swarm to attack his upperclassmen. Without missing a beat, Yukari glances back and summons Hairbell, who simply radiates a massive wave of pure apathy, completely stunning every single golem. Yukari dashes in, shattering them one by one with single strikes. Yuto is genuinely losing his mind. A familiar capable of casting such wide-scale action-inhibiting magic. An area of effect stun with that kind of duration is absolutely insane. It completely outclasses his own spellcasting, making him really question whether his classmate is supposed to be a frontline brawler or a high-tier summoner. Yukari is not done. He brings out his S-rank summons Skull Lich Lord and Water Element, ordering them to guard the team. Both spirits lock into position. Komori is entirely shocked he is maintaining multiple summons at once, and each one radiates more power than their whole squad. Mid-fight, Yukari realizes the massive mana boost he got from Serendiana makes maintaining multiple souls surprisingly easy to pull off. Sure, triggering their unique spells is still tricky for him, but as a pure defensive frontline, they are totally rock solid. He quickly checks with Lulu Heart to make sure using them defensively is allowed. She gives him the green light provided they do not attack, but firmly reminds him he has to finish the boss himself. Smiling, he completely agrees and charges straight back in. He lands a brutal gut punch, proving the armor can be cracked. The problem: despite the heavy damage, the beast heals right back instantly. Is there even a limit to this thing's healing factor? Still, there has to be a trick to taking it down, and we are about to find it. Changing his entire angle of attack, he starts hunting for weak spots. He crushes its legs, caves in its stomach, and completely shatters its head. But nothing works. No matter what he breaks, the giant simply stitches itself right back together. He catches a quick look at Lulu Heart, silently watching him, and remembers her exact lesson he has to think for himself, push through the struggle and carve out victory. He realizes he has to become truly capable, entirely on his own. Taking a deep breath, he completely sharpens his focus. He orders Water Element to get her water prison spell ready. He instantly conjures a massive, floating aqua globe. While she maintains the heavy spell, Yukari launches himself forward, grabbing onto the boss's arm with a vice grip. Straining every muscle, he literally tears the entire limb right off the giant. The monster shrieks in actual agony. He ignores it. He knows simply breaking the arm is entirely useless. It will just grow back. Instead, he hurls the heavy severed limb straight toward his summon. If he cannot outdamage the healing he has to stop the pieces from reattaching. Water Element catches the golem arm inside her floating sphere. He firmly orders her to keep every broken piece completely locked down. She winks in confirmation. Turning back to the giant, he makes it absolutely clear its healing factor is officially offline. Activating his soul trial again, he looks the monster dead in the eye, promising total destruction. Yukari punches the left arm clean off, tossing it straight into the water cell before diving right back in to systematically dismantle the giant's torso. He relentlessly locks each severed chunk inside the water prison as he moves. Lulu Heart is stunned. Yukari is actually using water prison just to shut down regeneration. She realizes he's not just wildly swinging away, but instead actively hunting for the smartest angle. She's deeply impressed his mana absorption rate, the sheer efficiency of his circuits, and the raw strength of his soul are all linking up flawlessly. It actually makes her think it might be time to toss Yukari back into the Lulu Heart dungeon. The situation down there is definitely getting pretty serious by now. Stripped of its regenerating stone fragments, the boss shrinks down fast. Yukari is honestly thrilled the water prison trick paid off. He dashes right at the boss, fully aware he just needs to end this with one massive heavy hit. Taking a deep breath to steady his nerves, he decides to cap his soul output at exactly 20%. He raises a fist, practically glowing with soul energy, triggering his soul burst to smash the boss. The creature gets launched, straight back, its core shattering into dust for an instant kill. Yukari officially takes down the red golem boss. It drops the golem pendulum. He didn't score a soul core, but he is still happy. He finally managed to control the insanely taxing soul burst skill, an explosive magic move that burns through the user's soul and slows down mana recovery. He remembers his fight with Serendiana. He burned through every drop of his soul and absolutely could not keep fighting. But today, he successfully throttled the output, keeping himself fully ready for another round. Naruse walks up from behind, calling him an absolute beast. He quickly figures out Yukari is the guy who wiped out that massive golem horde earlier today. Yukari admits it, but immediately asks him to keep the whole thing completely quiet since he hates being the center of attention. Naruse thinks he's just being humble, says keeping power like that hidden is a waste. Udo steps up next, admitting he completely misjudged Yukari. He confesses he was too focused on his own personal drama, leaving Yukari to carry the weight. Udo drops into a deep, genuine bow, totally startling Yukari. Udo spots Yukari's mangled hand, realizing he pushed his body way past the limit. Yukari glances down in pure confusion. Thanks to the pain-canceling Lostman skill, he had not even felt the damage. He stares right at his completely busted arm. He does not even care. He just makes a mental note to watch the soul burst because breaking a limb every single fight is going to be an issue. He flashes a smile, telling Uto that as long as he can, keep people safe, trading an arm is a seriously cheap price. Uto is just left speechless. Before he can even reply, Yukari grabs something from his pocket. He hands the key tag right back, telling the guy that he has his own personal drive to get stronger. Uto completely gets it, hoping they both manage to reach their goals. On the sidelines, Komori is finally seeing exactly why Iriyogami is so fixated on Yukari. But from the viewpoint of anyone tied to the Holy Dungeon Church, this kind of power is honestly pretty alarming. Still, Komori decides to brush the worry aside. A remarkably interesting junior just walked into their ranks, and she is fully hooked on watching him. Now watch this shift over at the church, she triggers. Saint Dominance. A skill letting her hijack the vision of subordinate. Sisters to spy on Yukari from miles away. She verifies his mana has actually hit the tier of an A-rank mage. He is brute-forcing his physical stats by flooding his body with raw mana, making her question exactly how much combat experience he needed to pull that off. What really grabs her attention, though, is the fact that, despite being stuck with C-rank circuits, Yukari is tossing around A-rank magic. She knows that relying on just 8 low-tier circuits means his capacity should be strictly hard-capped. So now she's seriously trying to figure out how he bypasses that limit. She smirks, declaring the whole mystery endlessly fascinating. She turns to the guy standing right in front of her, asking for his take. Kagurazaka, an A-rank, holding the nightmare skill, replies in this chilling voice that Yukari really is the ultimate prize. That creepy tone makes her smile. She's just glad he sees the kid's true worth-making, all the trouble of saving him worthwhile, even if it meant crossing Hayakuran and tanking Sakurako's hatred. She asks what he thinks, suggesting he finally dropped that dull habit of hunting rookies and secure a real class. He casually fires back he does not hunt newbies for sport. It is literally just the fastest way to dissect players. What he really wants is to uncover the dark truth about skills and classes, discovering where they actually originate. She laughs, calling him a brilliant little philosopher. She tells him straight up between his sick ambition and raw talent hitting S rank is just a matter of time. He leans in, asking if she's absolutely sure about letting him dissect Yukari, considering the kid is her favorite pet. Her eyes light up. She tells him to call her the second it happens, admitting she's also dying to see what is inside. Yukari sighs, realizing Irigami is genuinely hyped for this. He asks how to actually get his hands on one of those classes. She assures him she knows the perfect method and tells him to just leave everything to her. She enthusiastically breaks the whole process down for Akazuki. He just smiles. What a completely insane idea. But it totally makes sense why people fear Irigami like a witch. Akazuki drops to one knee, sealing their deal and confirming that he will absolutely serve directly under her command. Ever since his defeat at Yukari's hands, Akazuki hasn't been able to forget that cold stare. He wants to face him again to tear him open and see what makes him tick. Akazuki swears he will be the one to dissect Yukari. The next morning brings Kazuki Fujimoto an F-class with the mana skill and Yukari's absolute best friend. Fujimoto brings up Yukari hitting C-class, honestly admitting he never expected a guy with 0 skills to climb anywhere near that high. Fujimoto is Yukari's one true friend. He actually has a skill of his own, but he refuses the player lifestyle, completely convinced he is just an average guy who shouldn't risk his neck running through deadly adventures. Back in the world before the regression, that same belief made Fujimoto try everything to stop Yukari's player dreams. No talent, 0 skills. He threw that harsh reality in his face constantly. Yukari remembers how Fujimoto played the tough guy, desperately trying to crush those dangerous ambitions. Those heavy memories break when Fujimoto calls out, slapping his back and telling him to snap out of it. Fujimoto proudly hypes him up as a total celebrity and prodigy. He's the first person since Sakurako to hit C-class in under a year. Yukari just rolls his eyes, skip the flattery, and get to the point. Fujimoto immediately asks what favor he needs. Yukari flat out asks him to team up. Fujimoto guesses it is just to fill an empty party slot, and Yukari nods yes. He explains the system rules. Challenging any C-class dungeon or higher strictly requires a group. He sweetens the deal, promising Fujimoto he does not even have to fight, just chill at the dungeon entrance. Fujimoto agrees, admitting he wants to see if Yukari really got that strong. Honestly, the idea gets him pretty hyped. Yukari starts pitching a date, but Fujimoto cuts right in. He's actually going inside the dungeon with him. Yukari is completely shocked. Honestly, why would a guy terrified of the player life suddenly volunteer for the front lines? Fujimoto shrugs off the player title, making it clear he just genuinely cares about his best friend's safety. He needs to watch the guy who used to be a useless no-skill actually fight. Yukari just stands there completely stunned. With 0 real options left, he agrees. He then contacts Lulu Heart, asking her permission to completely unleash his power today. He has to guarantee his best friend stays safe and completely out of harm's way. She gives the green light, but casually mentions she will be moving solo today to handle some personal business. That seriously throws him off since she rarely ever acts alone. Still, he decides not to push it and just tells her to hurry back. Lulu Heart quietly steps away while he catches up with his friend. She knows it's finally time for Yukari to practice some real independence. She always wanted to protect him until the very end of this world, but painfully, that just is not an option anymore. Check out this shift the next day in the C-Class dungeon. Umeko and Sierra team up. Sierra charges right at the goblin pack. She carves through them using her bizarre-made culinary techniques. A few drop instantly, but the goblin swarm just keeps multiplying. 6 more rush in immediately. She activates her made-work tools, materializing exclusive gear and summoning a bunch of crazy high-tier items. Without hesitating, she pulls 5 glowing long swords, smoothly kicking 3 of them right into the front line of monsters. A quick flick of her wrist sends another blade into the middle one, pinning its head perfectly. Then she dashes at the final 2, slashing them down in unison, clearing out all 6 without breaking a single drop of sweat. Umeko watches from the back line, absolutely floored by Sierra's crazy precision, but she knows she has to pull her weight too. Gathering a massive surge of energy into her blade, she shouts out, "Everything is good to go." Umeko triggers her elegant intercept skill. It lets her swap places with a party member while getting a massive temporary speed boost. Sierra leaps out of the strike zone, and with a clear path, Umecho brings her heavy blade crashing down. That raw power obliterates the remaining goblins entirely. Seconds later, the girls are already sweeping the floor for loot drops. Umeko praises her wild agility. She moved like a needle through cloth. How does she even pull that off? Sierra explains her maid class comes with the flawless movement ability. It literally lets her execute any physical motion she pictures in her head. Umeko teases her, basically meaning she can never mess up, which sounds like total cheating. But Sierra shoots back that Umeko's skill is way crazier. Umeko proudly grins, bragging about her own genius class. As long as she meets the requirements, she can learn literally any class out there. A seriously overpowered advantage for her. Sierra threw her another compliment that class mastery of hers was just insane. Umeko confidently agreed without a shred of humility. But she added there were definitely limits. For example, she tried out Assassin on the last raid, but it just felt wrong. Rune Saber was definitely a better fit, but the attack charge took way too long, so she completely dropped it from her rotation. Sierra figured it out. Umecho swapped classes based on the dungeon layout, instantly mastering whatever role she picked. An absolute genius. Sierra knew this girl had the raw potential to hit S rank eventually. When Umecho asked the real question, what exactly was Yukari's class, Sierra admitted she was totally clueless, still surprised by him. She honestly had no idea. She thought back to right before they entered this dungeon. Kira had warned her the Lulu Heart dungeon's first floor was already cleared. He sensed over 20 different guilds and factions swarming the place. That shocked her completely. She hadn't noticed a single thing, but Kira explained they were using advanced scouting and heavy stealth. All those heavy hitters were watching the clash between Sakurako and Irogami very closely, and right at the center of that battlefield was Yukari. Hearing that horrified her, he was in serious immediate danger. Kira explained the real reason these top-tier fighters threw down around him. They were testing him out. That kind of attention made Yukari a massive target everywhere. If Kira approached him directly as the Oryu Guildmaster, it would be a public declaration. He'd essentially paint a target on Yukari's back. Meiko completely understood her brother's warning. This was exactly where she stepped into the picture. Exactly right. Kira needed her to officially investigate Yukari under the radar for the guild. He gave strict orders, find out who Yukari really is, his true class, his exact skill set. Above all else, uncover the secret tying him to the Lulu Heart dungeon. Meanwhile, inside the C-rank dungeon, Yukari warned Fujimin to stay right beside Harbol. He asked the summon to keep him safe, and Harbol happily agreed. Fujimin called her cute, naturally assuming Yukari was just a standard summoner. Yukari casually mentioned he could do similar things. He promised Harbol was ridiculously strong, so sticking by her was the safest bet. Fujimin held out a hand, trying to politely greet her. But before she even moved, Yukari ordered her not to bite him. A moment later, from their hiding spot, Umecho and Sierra felt an insane pressure. Harbol's magical aura was completely outrageous from afar. Sierra realized instantly that Monster was nowhere near C rank. She guessed it was an A rank, maybe even an S rank threat. Umeko wondered if the beast was actually talking. Their own guild had a summoner too. But normally summoned creatures were just mindless puppets. Sierra nodded. That was exactly how standard summons operated. Honestly, Sierra had felt super uneasy when Umecho first asked her to stalk him. But seeing his raw power firsthand, now it made complete sense. And here's where the tension spikes. From today on, every major faction would be hunting for Yukari. Umecho confessed something. When her brother claimed Yukari soloed the Lulu Heart dungeon's first floor, she honestly thought it was a terrible joke. Seeing this, now she completely believed it. She quietly asked if they should pull back and report in. But Sierra shook her head. They needed to watch him just a little longer. To clear out the danger surrounding him, they had to fully understand his actual strength. Sierra knew he had shielded her countless times inside the dungeons. Even if she couldn't match his sheer power right now, she had to find a way. A way to stand tall, protect him, and bravely defend others just like he did. Meiko completely agreed. She mentioned her current class was Shadow Stalker, giving her ridiculously high stealth stats. But against a monster like Harbol, that thing was stronger than both of them combined. One step closer meant instant exposure. So for now, the two girls locked down their position and just watched from afar. Meanwhile, down in the dungeon, Yukari wasn't taking any chances today. Zero mistakes allowed. Playing it incredibly safe, he instantly called up Soul Servitude, Armored Knight, Soul Skull Guardian Soul, plus Flame Knight Soul and Skull Lich Lord Soul. He ordered the entire squad forward into the dungeon. If they spotted any monsters, wipe them all out. The loyal summons gave their confirmation. Thanks to his massive mana boost, his summons were hitting harder than ever before. Before sending them off, he added a warning. If the enemy numbers got overwhelming, fall back instantly. Their main goal here was a safe, steady clear. The soul summons acknowledged that command. Fujimin is completely stunned by their terrifying appearance. He tells Yukari they look absolutely horrifying, but Yukari reassures him these loyal summons are actually pretty good guys. Fujimin realizes right then how deeply Yukari trusts them. It proves the guy has cleared a ton of dungeons. A moment later, the summons fan out. They roam the dark corridors and quickly stumble onto a group of lizard monsters. The lizardmen attack instantly, but the summons easily block the strike. Right behind them, the Flame Knight steps up. It charges straight at the lizardmen. The monsters resist, so the knight ignites its blade, totally startling the enemy. Before they can even retreat, the knight beheads them. One lizardman scrambles to escape, only to find a new threat. The Skull Lich Lord blocks its path. It raises a massive axe and slices the beast in half with one clean swing. Then it casually decapitates the rest of the runners. Meanwhile, the two girls watch safely from their hiding spot. They notice Yukari's summons fighting entirely on their own. Umeko clears her throat, asking Sarah to confirm a crazy detail. That Skull Lich Lord used to be a C-rank dungeon boss. Sarah confirms it. But she points out something worse. The beast is somehow even stronger than before. She wonders if Yukari's class literally buffs the monsters he commands. What really surprises her is that these summons clearly have their own will. Hours pass and Yukari gives Fujimin an update. The surrounding area is basically clear so they can keep moving. Fujimin is totally confused by this update. He reminds him, "You have literally just been standing here the entire time." Yukari calmly explains that the summons handled all the heavy lifting. Amazed, Fujimin asks if he never even has to fight directly anymore. Yukari just shrugs and gives a practical answer. He still has to manually confirm the kills and gather the loot. As they walk, Fujimin asks about the profits. What exactly are C-rank materials worth? Yukari says it completely depends on the monster type and the overall condition. For 10 decent monsters, the payout could easily hit several million yen, assuming the quality is high enough. Fujimin is floored. He frustratedly admits that his F-rank drops barely pull in 10,000 yen on a good day. Yukari explains the market. F-rank items have daily utility, sure, but loot from C-rank and above changes the game. Those materials forge powerful weapons, craft heavy armor, or even generate rare items. And naturally, the rarer the drop gets, the more collectors will bleed cash for it. He also mentions a catch. While this current dungeon seems pretty empty of them, if they actually find magic stones, the profit margins skyrocket. Hearing that massive gap just leaves Fujimin feeling entirely disheartened. His 8,000 yen daily wage feels violently pitiful right now. He looks at Yukari and asks about the endgame. Are you just going to farm C-rank zones for cash? Yukari shakes his head. He isn't stopping at C-rank. That confuses Fujimin even more. Isn't he already strong enough to retire comfortably? Yukari gives a blunt, immediate no. He still considers himself weak. He needs to push so much further. Surprised by that ambition, Fujimin quietly accepts it. Suddenly, Yukari flinches. The link snaps. One of his summons was just destroyed. Fujimin nervously asks what happened. Was it a stronger monster? Yukari immediately takes off running, guessing the dungeon boss did this. He issues a quick order. Harble, fall back right now. Minutes later, they breach the boss room. A massive leader waits inside with 10 heavily armed underlings. Yukari knows he might be overreacting here, but he cannot afford a single mistake, especially not with Fujimin standing right here. Better safe than dead. He immediately activates Soul Servitude, once again flooding the room with a wave of intense energy. Water, thunder, and fire elementals materialize on command. Fujimin stares in absolute disbelief. He is summoning even more monsters. The girls watching from afar notice the shift. Now pay attention here. These are completely different summons from before. Now they finally understand what Kira meant about Yukari's true potential. Up ahead, Yukari locks his entire focus onto the target. It is time to end this precisely and safely. He glares directly into the boss's eyes, holding nothing back anymore. He orders his summons to provide cover fire as he pushes toward the center boss. Harble is assigned to protect Fujimin. The girls are terrified. Watching him take on so many enemies head-on looks like absolute suicide, yet they cannot intervene. Nobody stops him. He dashes straight into the chaotic swarm, completely determined to wipe them out as fast as possible. One lizard man swings a heavy blade to break his charge. But right before that steel can actually land a direct hit, the fire elemental roasts the monster alive. Yukari sprints past the burning corpse, leaving the other lizards totally shocked. He swings his blade and chops off the head of the next lizard, blocking his path. Seeing its soldiers get slaughtered, the boss growls furiously. Out of options, the surviving lizard men rush him together. Unfortunately for them, the water and lightning elementals step right up. They instantly step forward violently, drowning and electrocuting the entire mob to death. Thanks to them, the path clears in minutes, letting Yukari reach the boss. He leaps at maximum speed, materializing behind it with his sword raised high, and swings. Bears down on the boss, slashing it to pieces in seconds. Fujin watches in absolute awe. Once Yukari finishes, he scans the area to make sure it is safe. He relaxes the moment Fujin shouts out, proudly declaring it was over in a flash and praising his insane strength. Fujin steps right up, asking if he really just soloed the boss and suggests they head back. Yukari agrees, but a nagging feeling creeps up on him. It just feels strange. A monster at the level of that lizard man boss should never have been able to defeat the Skull Lich Lord. He remembers the Skull Lich Lord saying his magic was stronger now, proving he had definitely leveled up quite a bit. But something still feels pretty wrong. He wonders if there's another hidden piece to this. Meanwhile, the girls are completely blown away that Yukari cleared a C-class dungeon this incredibly fast. Sarah absolutely cannot believe he wiped out the Lulu Heart dungeon so easily. The craziest part is not just him beating boss-level threats, but the fact that those monsters never even stood a chance. They whisper about his strength. He was tough when they raided together before, but back then he was not this ridiculously overpowered. They both guess he might actually be drawing power from the Lulu Heart dungeon monsters. Watching from a safe distance, they try to piece the mystery together. Yukari's overwhelming strength gives them a feeling dangerously close to fear. Later out on the street, Yukari and Fujin take a peaceful walk after selling the monster corpses and drop items. Then Lulu Heart floats right in front of Yukari. He quietly asks if her business is all wrapped up. She replies that it finished way earlier than expected, and she took care of the rest. She then asks if he already noticed the people trailing them. He says yes and calls out for the girls to show themselves. Sarah and Yumea awkwardly shuffle right out of a nearby alley. He tells them he sensed their presence back inside the dungeon. Sarah immediately jumps in, swearing they did not do anything sketchy. He calmly reassures her that he believes them. They were probably just worried about him and Fujin anyway, which earns a totally baffled look from Lulu Heart. Yumea feels pretty guilty, and nervously agrees, shouting that C-class dungeons are dangerous. He follows up by asking if they sensed anything disturbing inside a question that completely shocks Lulu Heart. Yumea replies that she missed it, and Sarah says the exact same. But pay close attention to this next part. The sky tears open, revealing a massive demon eye and a terrifyingly powerful magic circle. Yukari panics as a massive surge of magic energy hits him, knowing something incredibly lethal is dropping. His raw instinct to protect everyone instantly kicks in. Heavy dark power begins spreading all around them. Before it fully manifests, Lulu Heart urges him to use his Lost Man ability right now. Totally confused, he demands answers, but Lulu Heart screams that explanations can wait. He agrees and immediately triggers Lost Man to erase the creeping lust. Multiple glowing magic circles ignite across the sky, unleashing a devastating force that completely obliterates the surrounding area. The raw energy splashes their way. Before it can fry the others, Yukari blocks it with absolutely everything he has, but it is way too strong. He gets slammed brutally into a nearby building, leaving his friends completely terrified for him. Lulu Heart sounds pretty proud, telling him he stayed perfectly calm despite the chaos. She praises just how much he has grown lately. He admits that against magic of that level, a single tiny mistake meant instant death. He turns to Lulu Heart and asks if she knows what is happening, needing to make sense of this whole disaster. She drops a bomb. A demon king has actually come down to meet them. Hearing that sends a very real chill down his spine. She explains that before his regression, the entire world went straight to hell, and the actual cause behind those dungeon breaks was the ruler of the S-class dungeon, the pinnacle of Septim Milani, heavily corrupted by lust. She adds that the disease spreading through solitude was the demon king of lust, and she is right here for him. The demon lord of lust finally introduces herself, Kararian, the absolute ruler of the dragon kin. She's a rare dragon succubus hybrid, heavily affiliated with Septim Magnus. She throws a casual greeting to both Lulu Heart and Yukari. Yukari is completely caught off guard that Kararian can even see Lulu Heart, but Lulu calmly praises that flashy entrance, asking exactly what she wants here. Kararian fires back that she came to erase her, wondering aloud what other possible reasons she would even have. Yukari realizes Kararian is strictly targeting Lulu Heart and immediately asks why she's hunting her. But Kararian just laughs, asking if she really needs to politely explain her plans to someone who's about to die. Lulu Heart teasingly asks if she honestly believes Yukari would ever lose to someone like her, instantly angering Kararian. She snaps back that Lulu talks pretty big for someone barely clinging to life. Kararian then taunts them to survive her hellfire, promising that if they survive this, she will gladly answer their questions. Lulu Heart quickly updates Yukari. Turns out the lust demon is literally the strongest lord of them all, but forcing her way out of that dungeon definitely capped her power. She tells Yukari she's going to track Carrion's every move and guide him through this. She tells him to tune into her thoughts and voice they're taking Carrion down together. He agrees instantly. He trusts Lulu Heart more than anyone. He Braces to face Carrion, but she totally vanishes. Spooked Lulu Heart frantically scans the area. Suddenly, Carrion pops up on his right, blasting fire straight at him. He panics, but somehow throws his hand up just in time. But Carrion's spell is way faster. A massive fire blast erupts all around them, and Sierra screams out his name in pure panic. Umeko scrambles to get everyone else evacuated. The two girls try to smash the barrier, but they can't even get close to it. Their attacks just bounce right off. Umecho yells out, Carrion's speed is completely impossible for the naked eye to track. Sarah quickly realizes this fight is on an entirely different level. She instantly whips out her phone. She calls for backup, knowing she has to do something. Meanwhile, Carrion just stares at her own hand, looking super confused. The magical gap between them is just insane. She hit him with a first strike that should have completely vaporized him into dust. And yet Yukari actually survived by using the fire element. She totally gives him props for that. Yukari realizes that even mid-fight Carrion is just casually analyzing everything, while they are literally fighting to survive. Lulu Heart yells at Carrion, "Hey, Yukari completely tanked your hellfire, so you better start answering our questions right now." Carrion just teases them. She asks if they're really that curious, then totally mocks them for plotting an escape while she's talking. Yukari fires right back. "Are you so weak? You can't even keep a basic promise." That definitely pisses her off even more. She cools down pretty fast, though. She admits her actual targets are Lulu Heart and the S-rank player. She crashed this specific dungeon because Lulu Heart rules it. Lulu Heart demands to know how she even found her location. Carrion smirks and says any dungeon with a dragon inside automatically belongs to her domain. Think about that insane control she cast out feelers across every dungeon she owns. Hearing this, Yukari instantly realizes Carrion crushed that Skull Lich Lord earlier. The soul magic they recruited inside the Lulu Heart dungeon is exactly what lured her right to them. Carrion smiles and keeps throwing shade. She says it is pretty sad that the demon lord ruling this place has such incredibly pathetic magic. Just a totally hollow shell. Annoyed by her bragging, Lulu Heart decides to rattle her back. She lands right beside Carrion. Aren't we in the exact same boat here? Leaning in close, she whispers a taunt. With Carrion's current magic levels, there's absolutely zero chance she's pulling off a dungeon break anytime soon. Carrion freezes furiously, demanding how she knows that. Lulu Heart just smirks. She can easily read the desperate thoughts of a complete weakling. Then she calls her pathetic, teaming up with others just because she could never reach Lulu Heart's level on her own. Carrion is totally stunned by this. She actually starts to suspect the other demon lords must have betrayed her. Seeing that flinch, Lulu Heart figures it out instantly. Carrion definitely does not trust her own allies. But the trash talk went too far. Carrion snaps and decides to just slaughter them all right here. Lulu Heart gasps as Carrion suddenly teleports right behind Yukari. She screams for him to get down immediately. The scythe swings straight for his neck. He barely ducks in time. She rips another wild slash to cut him in half, and he dodges by a hair. Lulu Heart screams at him to jump, pushes off the ground, barely dodging the crush. Up above, Carrion lights up a magic circle, raining heavy fireballs straight down on him. Yukari desperately summons his own fire element to shield himself from the blast, but Lulu Heart yells a warning. Carrion is charging. He looks up and sees her closing the gap instantly. She swings that heavy scythe straight down. He actually manages to block it with his sword, but her raw strength is insane, and his arms are already giving out. He shoves her scythe away with everything he has, stumbling backward hard. Before he even catches his breath, Lulu Heart screams, "Get up!" and dash forward. He sprints instantly, but Carrion is already right in his face again, laughing at him for being way too slow. But Lulu Heart just smiles and tells Carrion it's already over. Thick, glowing threads have completely tied up Carrion's entire body. Carrion finally realizes this was the setup the entire time. She really thought Lulu Heart was just being weirdly talkative for no reason. Nope. She looks over and sees Sakurako just chilling on a rock, holding the very threads keeping her trapped, completely ignoring the demon. Sakurako asks Yukari seriously, "How many times do I have to save your life?" Kira walks up, telling Sakurako to chill. Just staying alive is a miracle right now. Enters Sarah Kagurazaka, the S-rank powerhouse with another player with an unknown class who doubles as an association receptionist, totally agrees. Sarah reminds Sakurako that Yukari just held his own against a demon lord monster. He absolutely deserves the praise. Kyotaro Odachi jumps in and agrees too. She's the rank 18 S-class player with pure swordmaster skills. She admits hearing the rumors, but Yukari completely smashed her expectations. Kyojiro then steps up, right behind them, praising Yukari for fighting like an absolute pro. Facing down the demon lord, Kira walks right up. "Can the kid keep going?" Yukari confidently answers yes. Terrarian glares at the group with pure fury, but they do not even flinch. They stand united, ready to slay a demon lord. Kira stares in awe. They are looking right at an S-rank dungeon ruler, the absolute strongest demon lord species out there. Beside him, Sarah gives Yukari huge props for his impressive run earlier. He deflected Kararion's massive strikes totally solo a feat almost nobody else could pull off. But she tells him to step back, the big leagues are taking over now. Not happening. Yukari refuses to sit this out. He makes it clear he wants to fight right beside them. He warns Sarah that Karm uses incredibly heavy flame magic and rapid teleportation. Plus, he actually has a way to track her exact teleport spots. This makes him super useful on the field. Sarah pauses, taking that in. She answers back. It is honestly mind-blowing that he was just a basic F-rank player recently. Luckily, she agrees to let him join the raid. But she lays out a harsh warning. Even one demon lord has enough raw power to completely ruin the world. At the same time, she reassures him. Luckily, they have a whole squad of S-rank players standing right there. Sarah quickly calls out the battle formation. She and Kyojiro will hang back for support while Kira and Kyotaro rush the front lines. Umeko and Sierra are put on civilian evacuation, and Sakurako needs to set up the Grand Barrier. Yukari forces his breathing to stay steady. He reminds himself that literally everyone else here completely outranks him. Deep breath. He triggers his lost man skill. Fighting back his rising panic, he repeats a hard truth to himself. The only reason he survived this far is because he already memorized Karm's attack patterns. He forces himself to think fast, predict everyone's exact movements, and play the absolute best move possible. But here's the catch. She suddenly realizes she got completely played. These players mask their auras specifically to trap her here. Lulu Heart spots Kararion's reaction. The demon lord is totally screaming on the inside. She holds up the invitations with a teasing smirk. She whispers to Kararion that dangling a lizardman dungeon like bait was the perfect trick. Being distant dragonkin, she knew the demon lord would sprint right into the snare. That's exactly why she grouped the S ranks beforehand. But instead of raging, Kararion just flashes an evil smile. Her prediction. This entire world will be hers eventually. For now, though, she wants to see what kind of firepower native humans pack. Kararion casually tosses her heavy scythe aside. She actively taunts the group. She promises not to use her weapons or her dragon abilities at all, and swears she will still slaughter every single one of them. She promises to go easy on them. With a cocky glare, she dares the raid party to throw everything they have at her. Kira explodes forward. He blasts Kararion with his Crimson Lotus war dance, but the demon lord literally blocks the insane strike with her bare arm. Kira yells out for Yukari to sync up. The kid instantly reacts, rushing in and swinging his blade hard at Kararion's blindside. Watching from the back, Kyojiro notices something. Yukari is incredible. Way better than those wild rumors even suggested. He is perfectly keeping pace with the S-rank monsters. Right on cue, Sarah launches her Sparkle Starlight spell to back up the frontline fighters. But before it even reaches Karm, she casts a quick spell and completely shatters the starlight into pieces. But she completely overlooks Kyotaro behind her. The Swordmaster slashes her hand, and while Kararion expects 0 damage at first, the Demon Lord is absolutely stunned when Kyotaro swings again, cleanly severing her hand. Kararion stares in pure shock that a fragile human just took off her arm. Kyotaro proudly explains her broken technique. Her blade, Whisper skill, cuts through literally anything, meaning Demon Lords definitely are not immune. Kararion channels dark magic directly into her stump. She calmly admits she actually learned a brand new trick today. The missing arm instantly regenerates. Within a single heartbeat, a glowing magic circle spawns underneath as Kararion mocks Kyotaro for stepping way too close. Yukari screams out Kyotaro jump. She listens instantly, straight up into the air. A split second later, a deadly flame erupts from the circle heat that could instantly incinerate anyone. Because Yukari threw out a fire summon, Kyotaro dodges all damage. She shouts out huge praise for his sharp battle instincts. She drops down, swinging her blade right at Kararion's neck. But the totally enraged Demon Lord dodges it cleanly while Kira rushes to exploit her open flank. Watch how fast the tables turn right here. She tanks Kira's strike with her arm again. The trio tries a simultaneous beatdown, but she completely vanishes. Lulu Heart warns Yukari that Karm is right above them. He instantly screams the warning out to the whole squad. Kyojiro is stunned. Yukari is actually tracking a Demon Lord's hyperspeed movements perfectly. He triggers his Frozen Sky technique to block Karm's massive fire blast from above. Lulu Heart yells another warning. Karm is hunting the fuzzy guy. Yukari frantically screams for Kira, but the attack is already here. It was too late. Kararion drove her hand right through Kira. Yukari screamed out his name in sheer panic. But Kotaro stayed calm, assuring him Kira would never die from a hit like that. Then Kira triggered a massive ability and actually managed to grab the Demon Lord. Kararion realized right then Kira was a regenerating phoenix. Before she could even break his grip, Kotaro and Yukari rushed her. As they closed the distance, Kararion scrambled to throw up a defensive magic circle, completely ignoring Yukari. He charged straight ahead, knowing his physical stats were at least 2 whole levels below the S-rankers. Kararion would naturally prioritize Kotaro instead. And in that exact second, perfect opening presented itself. He activated Soul Resonance, syncing up perfectly with a soul already under his total control. This let him wield its raw power. By syncing with an S-rank monster, his stats shot straight through the roof, letting him fire off a heavy magic directly. Kararion felt severe danger creeping up her blind side and spun around fast. What she saw completely shocked her. Yukari's magic surging right at her. But unfortunately for him, she somehow managed to block the hit with her scythe. That startled him hard. He was absolutely certain he had hit S-rank status through soul resonance. But even using that complex elemental magic he memorized from the Serendiana fight, it just was not a fatal blow. Lulu Heart assured him his spell was perfect, explaining that Kararian was actually using over 90% of her power just to physically exist in this world. Thanks to his defensive strike, they severely drained her overall mana. Kira was completely amazed Yukari could use dual element magic. But Yukari was seriously frustrated he could not finish Kararian off right there. Plus his mana was tapped out. Kira cheered him up, pointing out the crazy fact that he released all that power using only 8 circuits in a C-rank mana flow. He had absolutely contributed enough to this fight. He added that Kararian even panicked hard enough to draw the very weapon she swore she would never use. Meanwhile, Kararian realized she just got completely outplayed. She glared at Yukari, deeming him totally unworthy of following in Lulu Heart's legendary footsteps. Kararian physically trembled with pure rage. She knew she had disgracefully broken the exact rules she set for herself by resorting to her scythe. But then she suddenly started laughing like a maniac. This prompted Kira to ask the team if the pressure had actually driven her insane. Kararian decided to reflect on her choices and floated high up into the air. A massive magic circle opened right above her. She calmly warned them she was getting entirely serious now. That startled everyone. Kira scrambled to cover Yukari and the team braced themselves. Kararian then calmly unleashed Karma Catastrophe. A terrifying surge of raw power exploded outward from the magic circle, blasting straight in their direction and obliterating everything around them in a single second. When that blinding power finally faded and the massive destruction was laid bare, Yukari was just lucky to be alive. But pure horror hit him, seeing Kira standing right in front of him. He had absorbed the full damage for him. Yukari panicked as Kira collapsed heavily to the ground, only asking why he shielded him like that. Yukari rushed to his side, incredibly relieved to find Kira was actually still breathing. Watching from high above, Kararian was incredibly frustrated. Even her strongest humanoid form attack failed to kill him. She realized this dungeon's power to bind monsters was extremely strong. Calmly touching back down, she decided she would take her sweet time torturing Yukari. But watch closely, 4 bright lights flashed above her. She looked up completely startled to see 4 foxfire barriers crashing down on her. The second they landed, they unleashed the full power of the Spirit Sky barrier. Kararian looked around in sheer panic, but nearby Sakurako calmly told Sarah it was finally her turn to step up. Sarah confidently stepped forward. Her crisis gauge ability was finally completely full. This meant she could go all out. Yukari was just so relieved the 2 girls were safe. Sarah apologized to him for carrying such a heavy burden. She sincerely regretted letting things reach such a disastrous breaking point. She explained her class could never unleash its true power unless she was totally cornered. She asked him to keep everything he was about to see completely confidential. Sarah activated her class. He was blown away seeing her release such a bright, overwhelming power. As her transformation sequence began, she explained that she never wanted to transform at 30 years old. That was why she retired from being a player. But given the situation, she had absolutely no choice but to go all out. She transformed into a cute magical girl, immediately unleashing her sparkle. Starlight right at Kararian. Kararian stayed calm, initially assuming this was just the exact same attack from earlier. However, Sarah teased her, asking if she really thought she could block a hit like that so easily. When Sarah's heavy starlight struck the defensive barrier, Kararian had conjured the sheer force, shocked her. She simply could not believe any human could wield that much magic. And get this, Sakurako then activated her Foxfire, unleashing the powerful 8 out of 10 Bloom ability. Flames erupt and surge right toward Kararian from every single direction. Panic sets in. She realizes there's absolutely no way to block it all. The attacks land perfectly, totally shattering her magic circle. Sarah points out to Sakurako that the grand barriers work, but they definitely come with a heavy cost. Sakurako casually explains that the others only did what was natural. Honestly, compared to countless S-rankers out there, she alone stands stronger. Then Sakurako strictly orders Yukari to get up. He cannot let Kira's brave sacrifice mean nothing. She asks if he really plans to accept such a disgraceful defeat. He insists he can keep fighting, forcing his badly shaking legs to stand. He promises them he will read every single one of Kararian's moves precisely. Even if he dies here, he absolutely refuses to lose. Sarah fires off shooting stardust, sending a brilliantly strong surge of power straight at Kararian, but the boss manages to block it again. Sakurako immediately follows up, layering her Fox Lightning 8/10 Bloom right onto Sarah's strike. It pushes Kararian back even further. Within seconds, she breaks. Her massive shield completely shatters into tiny little pieces. Kararion finally realizes that Sakurako's barriers do not just weaken her physical form, they also heavily amplify Sakurako's own magic. Pure magic violently pours out from every single torii. Everything trapped inside this barrier becomes a direct target. The sheer volume of magical power does not even feel human. Kararion originally thought Sakurako was just some weakling, watching from the sidelines. But now the heavy truth hits her. It was all a clever ploy just to buy time to summon those torii. Suddenly, Yukari appears right behind her, startling her. She still barely manages to block his heavy slash using her scythe, but she is completely surprised by how much Yukari's speed just increased. Even though she's absolutely supposed to be the stronger one, she notices Yukari is following Lulu Heart's precise instructions exactly. That clearly means she still has not finished Lulu Heart off. Sarah highly praises Yukari for that perfectly timed flank, quickly firing off her shooting stardust again. Kararion knows taking a direct hit would be instantly fatal. She immediately leaps away to safely dodge the blast. Right then, Yukari yells out the enemy is directly above them. Lulu Heart is totally surprised. She realizes Yukari is reacting almost exactly the way she predicted. Even in a high-tier battle like this, he's growing much stronger. Sakurako fiercely activates her Foxfire 8/10 bloom. A massive tornado of flames reaches out for Kararion, but she simply vanishes again. Yukari shouts a quick warning. Kararion just reappeared right below Sarah. Acting incredibly fast, Sarah fires off another shooting stardust. Kararion manages to quickly shield herself, but the sheer force of Sarah's magic proves too overwhelming, triggering a truly massive explosion. Before she can recover, Yukari appears right behind her. This time, he completely unleashes his powerful soul resonance attack. He lands a brutal direct hit, making Kararion scream out in pure pain. She's furious that everything is going completely off script. When exactly do they discover her grand dungeon break plan? Her thoughts are a jumbled mess, so she quickly teleports away to create some distance. But she is absolutely shocked to find Yukari and Sarah waiting there. Having predicted her exact destination, they launch a simultaneous attack. She desperately tries to block with her shield, but the heavy pressure from this combined assault is simply too much. Her heavy shield finally shatters. From above, tornado flames fiercely descend once more. When they hit the ground, the impact causes truly large-scale destruction. Yukari is completely stunned that Sakurako can still cast magic, this incredibly powerful. After all of that intense fighting, her mana has not dropped a single bit. This is exactly what you expect from the strongest player in the magic class. He also clearly realizes Sarah's power goes way beyond just magic. Her insane speed and physical strength easily match any S-rank warrior class. With them at his side, he finally begins to feel truly certain they can win. But wait, things get worse. A much larger, truly ominous magic circle suddenly appears just as Kararion vanishes. Yukari visibly panics at the sight and stutters asking what is happening. Lulu Heart quietly answers him, saying she honestly thought Kararion would retreat before things ever reached this point. She just never imagined the boss would go quite this far. A violently powerful blast of pure energy erupts straight from the magic circle. Sarah immediately rushes in front to safely shield Yukari. From deep inside that circle, a terrifyingly massive claw begins to emerge. A second later, a piercing eye glares down at them as a huge dragon arm forces its way out. Yukari trembles in pure terror. He clearly recognizes the dragon from his past life. Just as he feared, the growling beast pushes its massive body out through the barrier. Sakurako watches in pure disbelief. Her unbreakable barrier just cracked. Sarah is stunned too. How does Kararion still have enough power left to summon a dragon? Yet despite his deep fear, Yukari steels himself. He forcefully raises his heavy sword, fully ready to fight once more. Lulu Heart smiles, genuinely pleased by his brave reaction. She honestly expected pure panic. But Yukari knows this time is completely different. Back in his past life, all he ever did was just run away. Now he has Lulu Heart right beside him. And compared to his dark past of dying and returning over and over, he's grown much stronger. Channeling the borrowed dragon power, Kararion fiercely rushes at them. Right away, Sarah casts a milky shield to protect him, but the strike is just too heavy for her. She swings her massive tail right around, trying to smash that barrier. Sakurako instantly strikes back using tornado fire, but the attack just pisses Kararion off completely and she charges straight at her. Throwing up a quadruple barrier around herself, Sakurako braces as Kararion tears at it with sharp claws. Lulu Heart follows closely behind Yukari's dash, pointing out that Sakurako is actually pretty tough. He knows the truth here. Keeping up that seal on a weakened Kararion drains a massive amount of Sakurako's energy. Plus, she is still guarding all those slow civilians trapped inside, meaning this whole fight is turning into a slow, agonizing defeat. Sarah throws up a milky shield for backup, but it cannot handle that claw attack and shatters completely. Sakurako desperately thinks it through while Kararion just keeps hammering away, left with zero options. Sakurako tells Sarah she is releasing the Nine Tails. Sarah immediately pushes back, warning her sister that using that power means walking away with serious damage. But Sakurako knows there's no time to worry about personal safety, because the absolute last thing she will ever let happen is for Sarah to get hurt, Yukari suddenly cuts in, declaring he has a plan and desperately needs their help. Sakurako demands the details, barking out an order for him to give her the absolute best optimal setup, because she can make almost anything happen. But she warns him if he fails, the Nine Tails comes out. He confidently agrees to those terms, then explains he needs the Demon King completely distracted and looking the other way. They need to hold the line so he can charge a massive hit, but he also needs Sarah to lend him her raw power. The plan is set. Sarah launches shooting stardust at Kararian, but the monster spots it and fires back with dragon breath. With those two trading heavy blows, Yukari puts his plan into motion, jumping off Sakurako's spatial torii from high above. He's genuinely shocked she has spatial movement magic. He dives down, well aware that his soul burst takes forever to charge up, and leaves him wide open. But dropping right out of the sky completely solves that nasty little problem. Closing the distance fast, he actually manages to cast his soul burst way quicker than usual. Kararian senses an insane magic spike right above her, utterly confused as to why an attack is hitting now. Let us rewind a bit. Yukari knew his current self stood zero chance. He needed entirely new stats to actually win this. That is exactly where Sarah came in. He had asked her to grab his hand. She almost agreed, but froze up in total confusion. Soul resonance does not just link with a monster. It works when two hearts truly connect. Yukari gambled that if Sarah trusted him completely, their souls would sync up perfectly. If that happened, he could borrow the S-rank stats of the world's strongest fighter and finally unleash his massive soul burst. Right back in the present, Kararian realizes she has to block this with everything, or she's absolutely done for. The Demon King triggers her ultimate barrier, but dealing with the fused power of Yukari and Sarah, a girl who believed in him without hesitation, they smash right through the monster's defenses, triggering a massive, blinding explosion. Sarah waits for the heavy smoke to clear, but reality hits hard. They only broke the shield, leaving the demon completely unharmed. Even so, Kararian openly admits their joint attack was incredible. Taking another hit like that would actually be fatal for her. Still, she smirks, feeling Yukari's magic presence completely vanish. Down below, Fujimini and the rest are terrified when they cannot spot him. Kararian assumes exactly what they do. The boy is dead, leaving just a few easy humans for her to slaughter. Frustrated by their failed attack, Sakurako grits her teeth and prepares to finally unleash the Nine Tails. Sarah tells her to hold off. She looks straight up at Yukari, who's already charging a second insane magic attack. He dives straight at Kararian. The Demon King is utterly stunned, yelling out how the hell did his magic recover so fast. The secret is his very last elixir, a full health and mana restore he snatched up back in the Lulu Heart dungeon. Sarah excitedly reaches out, gripping his hand tight. In a flash, their souls perfectly synchronize all over again. Kararian is absolutely furious now, but the duo ignores her, firing off another massive soul burst right into her face. The strike lands perfectly. Everyone watching is totally speechless, unable to process the insane power they are witnessing right now. The resulting shockwave tears up the ground and blows everyone back. Yukari collapses to his knees, his mana and soul completely drained. He looks up panicking, but Lulu Heart grabs his shoulder and confirms it. The demon's subjugation is a total success. Kararian has forcefully reverted to her human form. Her mana is completely gone. She's completely empty, and she knows Yukari shouldn't have that kind of mana reserve either, making her insanely curious about the guy. Instantly she dashes back. The villain desperately needs to hit her dungeon and recharge that energy. But Sakurako drops a massive fire tornado to cut off her escape. Kararian panics for a split second, then just smiles and calls out for the witch. The witch appears right behind her, dropping everyone's jaws. Yukari stares in pure disbelief. He finally pieces it together. The person actually linked to the dungeon monsters is Irugami. Meanwhile, Sakurako is absolutely livid, staring down her worst nemesis at the worst possible moment. Kararian orders Irugami to pull them out. She's seriously frustrated knowing this retreat is a completely disgraceful move. Irugami just casually reminds Kararian about the countless times she warned her this was a trap. Still, what's done is done. Irugami fires up a teleportation spell to safely escort Kararian right back to her home base. Sakurako and Sarah immediately aim their weapons. Irugami just laughs off the threat, casually summoning her massive blades instead. She reminds them they are running on fumes. Resisting right now is a terrible idea. Flashing a terrifyingly sweet smile, she mentions she has zero interest in slaughtering weaklings. Sakurako gets even more triggered by that. Sakurako unleashes her flames straight at the witch, completely confident that wiping out some trash bugs will be easy. But Irugami blocks the hit effortlessly. She teasingly asks where all that famous firepower went. Irugami lays out the facts. Between keeping up that massive barrier to lock Kararian down and spamming advanced magic to protect everyone else, she's officially out of juice. This reality check completely pisses Sakurako off. She vows right then and there to end Irugami. But check this out, Sarah yells at her sister to stop pointing out the civilians nearby. Sakurako glances down at Sarah right below them. She practically forces her own rage to cool off. Bad move. Irugami catches that hesitation instantly, confirming that Sakurako is incredibly soft when her little sister is involved. Irugami orders Kararian to target the kid. Kararian immediately drops a magic circle right in front of Sarah, firing off a quick spell. For a split second, Sarah doesn't feel a thing. Sakurako violently demands to know what they just did to her sister. Irigami just laughs in her face. She promises that nothing bad will happen as long as Sakurako behaves herself. But she drops a dark warning. Try anything funny and something awful might happen to sweet little Sarah. Sakurako is on the absolute edge of snapping. Still, she tries her hardest to swallow her pride just for Sarah's sake. Yukari steps up, demanding to know why she's protecting Kararian and siding with literal monsters. Irigami greets him like an old friend. She praises his newfound strength, adding that his rapid growth always gets her excited. He screams at her to just answer the question. She simply laughs that creepy laugh of hers, replying it is for the exact same reason as him. That hits him hard. He starts panicking, wondering if Irigami actually sees right through his secret connection with Lulu Heart. Irigami asks if they finally understand each other, revealing she prepared a special surprise just for him. Sakurako, completely fed up, warns the witch she made a total fool out of her, swearing death on her once again. But Irigami just fakes a terrified gasp, implying she would absolutely love to see her try. She casually waves goodbye and vanishes alongside Kararian. Yukari is left standing there, deeply frustrated that Kararian somehow slipped away in the end. Lulu Heart steps in, telling him not to be so gloomy since Kararian's power took a massive hit today. Plus, it's not all bad news. She explains that she deliberately leaked info to stir up some heavy chaos among the guys plotting this dungeon break, which is a huge win for stopping them. Moments later, the rescue team finally rolls in, patching up all the injured fighters. Kira apologizes for making Yukari face a literal demon lord. Yukari shakes his head, reminding Kira that it really goes the other way around. He owes him. Without Kira running interference, he never could have fought like that. Hearing this, Kira feels pretty proud that his gamble paid off so well. He praises the kid for holding his ground. Kira holds up his fist, catching Yukari off guard, but he smiles and meets him halfway for a solid fist bump. Kumoko suddenly rushes over, practically scanning him for injuries. He's honestly just relieved to see she made it out in one piece. She mentions that Sakurako already took Sarah somewhere else. This definitely leaves him stressing over whether Kararian's weird spell actually did something to the kid. Fujimin shows up next, super worried. Yukari quickly apologizes for dragging his friend into this massive mess. Fujimin is practically in tears, admitting the fights along the way were so insane he genuinely thought he was a goner. Then he shoves his phone in his face. Yukari spots a YouTube video of himself fighting, loaded with comments from people totally losing it over his strength. Crying happy tears, Fujimin proudly declares he just broadcasted his epic achievements to the entire world. Yukari completely panics at this. He's the last guy who ever wants to be famous. A few days pass. Yukari heads to the association building for his official B-rank promotion exam. Sarah meets him there, letting him know a brutal, practical combat test follows the written exam. He nods completely, ready for whatever comes next. He hesitates. Sarah steps in, completely reassuring him he's going to be fine. He literally defeated a demon lord after all. Plus, she feels awful about the rough time he had following that insane lust demon lord battle, especially since the whole fight got broadcast globally and is still trending online. Yukari really hates standing out like this. He's terrible with the spotlight. It makes his skin crawl. He just wants a quiet, peaceful promotion exam. Sarah breaks the bad news. A quiet exam might be impossible since Kira and his crew are showing up, right? Kira and Kiritaro already mentioned they would be watching. Meanwhile, Lulu Heart finds this whole exam completely annoying. She asks if his mana pool gets a massive boost at B rank. He nods, explaining that past this tier, advanced player stats skyrocket. With that kind of power bump, clearing the Lulu Heart dungeon becomes a whole lot faster. Lulu Heart immediately agrees, ordering him to secure that B rank right away. Yukari glares back, completely annoyed. She orders him around like it is a walk in the park, but this promotion test is brutally hard. Sarah cuts off his thoughts, suddenly remembering a detail. Blushing, she asks him to keep her magical girl class a total secret. She admits that being 30 and doing transformation sequences is pretty embarrassing. He simply replies that he finds it cute. Sarah turns absolutely red, stumbling around in a total flustered panic. Cut to the waiting room. A girl walks right up and asks which rank he's testing for today. He replies that he's aiming for B rank. The girl lights up. She's taking the exact same test and introduces herself as Tsunagi Hiyagisaka. Tsunagi then turns to a B rank player named Ritsuki Kiroshima. But he glares back, snapping at her to stop talking so casually and breaking his focus. Tsunagi does not back down at all. She points out they're in this together, so they should just get along. Ritsuki furiously shuts her down. He is here for the A rank exam. Do not dare lump him in with mere C rankers like them. Realizing Ritsuki is a seasoned veteran, Tsunagi wonders aloud why he seems so incredibly tense. He bites back that massive heavyweights from the major guilds are watching their exams today. Names like Kira Senzaki from the top-tier Oryu guild, plus Kiritaro Odachi, the legendary S-rank solo player. Tsunagi is genuinely amazed by the guest list. Ritsuki puffs up with confidence if he lands a strong impression here. He might just grab those S-rankers' attention. But Tsunagi casually mentions that sounds completely impossible, instantly ticking him off. He demands to know what her problem is. She calmly reminds him their examiner today is Arma. Ritsuki's furious expression instantly drains into pure dread at that name. Cut to later, the examiner coldly announces 8 total failures. That includes Ritsuki, all his previous confidence entirely shattered. Arma Arisa, an A-rank powerhouse, delivers his brutal feedback. His field of vision is way too narrow. Sure, his strikes pack some heavy power, but he tunnels completely on whatever is right in front of him. Plus, she points out his total inability to read opponent movements, suggesting he stay trapped at B rank for quite a while longer. Ritsuki storms off the field, loudly cursing his luck. Nagi is not shocked at all. She fully expected this, knowing Arma sits on a completely different level. Ritsuki mutters bitterly, furious that she ended up as the examiner. Then Arma finally calls up Yukari, the very last candidate. She orders him onto the testing field. As he steps up, Lulu Heart whispers, "Just summon Harbull right now." And this whole thing ends instantly. But Yukari shuts that down. It defeats the purpose. This is a genuinely rare chance to test his own skills. Now pay close attention here. Up above, Kira and Kiritaro watch closely as Arma explains the rules. Survive against her for 5 solid minutes without hitting the floor. She slowly raises her blades, asking if he's ready. He stands tall, ready whenever she is. Arma smirks, mentioning Sarah already warned her about him being an incredibly exceptional player. Then she literally vanishes from sight. Reappearing inches away, she quietly promises there's zero reason for her to hold back. She strikes hard with a shadow step. Yukari launches backward just in time, leaving her pretty impressed by that rapid reaction speed. Instantly kicking up the pace, she activates her Windrunner technique. Dashing directly behind him, she swings a brutal strike at his spine, but he whips around fast enough to parry the blow. Arma stares. He's not even breathing hard. His rhythm is absolutely flawless. Realizing his combat experience is staggeringly deep, she flips the switch. Arma immediately activates her scattering Sakura slash. An insane flurry of hyperfast strikes rains down, yet Yukari cleanly blocks everything. She's just not fast enough. At least nothing compared to the Lust Demon Lord. Over on the sidelines, Tsunagi is absolutely stunned watching him parry Arma's ultimate flurry. But Ritsuki scoffs arrogantly, claiming he could easily pull that off too. He insists Yukari looks completely desperate, swearing he will fail against Arma's special technique. Meanwhile, Arma finally spots a tiny opening ready to test his true agility. His stats are lower, sure, but Yukari just reads her movements and dodges absolutely everything. Arisa gets frustrated with his slow pace. Time to end the exam. She leaps up and deploys her clone technique. Watching from the sidelines, Ritsuki finds this completely unfair. Watching this, Ritsuki wonders how Yukari can survive a blazing, fast, omnidirectional assault. But Yukari just calmly locks onto Arisa, startling her. Yukari steps back to avoid her blade. She's so absolutely confident he cannot block those clones. But a water element suddenly bursts out, washing the clones away instantly. Arisa is stunned. He casts a summon while defending. Then he simply vanishes and appears right in her face. Luckily for her, the 5-minute timer just ran out. The match ends with his blade hovering inches from her forehead. He pulls it back and politely thanks her. He genuinely mentions learning a lot from her misdirection tactics and the way she forces openings. Asking for some feedback enthusiastically, he makes everyone burst into laughter. Arisa just sighs. She has absolutely nothing left to say. She extends a hand. He officially passes the test. A few minutes later, Tsunagi runs over excitedly, demanding to know if he is really just C rank before congratulating him. Thanking her, he admits he has pretty mixed feelings. He only won because he watched the previous matches. He already knew Arisa's fighting style. If he had faced that clone technique completely blind, he actually might not have been able to counter it. Arisa quickly fires back. She hates fake humility. She outright asks if he could have beaten her using nothing but that summoned beast. He glances away, looking pretty guilty. Arisa knows that Water Element was completely insane. It would not look out of place inside an S-rank dungeon. Tsunagi asks if that is actually true. Arisa replies she's completely serious. That is exactly why he passed without a single objection. She congratulates him again, openly admitting her complete defeat. A total flawless victory. Over on the sidelines, Ritsuki simply cannot believe what he just witnessed. Ritsuki knows Arisa took this match way more seriously than she did against him. But you see the crazy part, Yukari handled her effortlessly. The realization hits him. This goes way beyond skills or class levels. It is terrifying how a C rank can move like he is reading the actual future. Suddenly, Kira and Kiyotaro stroll right over to them, loudly praising Yukari for a great fight. Tsunagi is totally shocked that 2 top S rankers know him. She starts to ask, then it clicks. This is the real Yukari. She remembers seeing his insane battle on YouTube. He nervously explains it was only possible with the support of the S-class members. But Kira gleefully adds fuel to the fire, announcing Yukari is the legendary player who beat the Demon Lord. This makes Yukari sweat even more. He really never wanted to stand out like this. Right then, Kira spots someone mysterious slipping out from behind the viewing benches. He just laughs it off when Kiyotaro tells him not to bother a promising young talent. Kiyotaro steps up to praise Yukari too, calling his mid-battle judgment truly remarkable. Advising him to keep honing those instincts, he promises they will be waiting for him up in S rank. Yukari is completely surprised by this. Back in the day, reaching S rank was nothing but a far-off dream, but Kiyotaro's praise makes him finally believe he can get there. Then Lulu Heart firmly reminds him it is not just a guess. He absolutely will reach it. She adds that S rank alone is nowhere near enough to stop a dungeon break. The true goal is way beyond that. A Demon Lord class player. Totally agreeing, he apologizes for his incredibly narrow perspective. He admits he was only focused on what was directly in front of him. She orders him to hurry up and get stronger because they still have a massive goal to fulfill. He nods. Next stop, a brutal rematch inside the Lulu Heart dungeon. Sometime later, they return there. She guesses they can sneak in pretty smoothly now. He assures her his stats spiked huge after hitting B rank. This means slipping around totally undetected, even through tight security, is super easy now. Lulu Heart reminds him they are not starting at the castle anymore. This time they begin right at the true start of the first stratum, the Eldrian Great Forest. Gear secured, they rush the gate. He asks, is this just training? She explains it is part of it, but moving the dungeon burns through heavy magical power. Yukari constantly forgets Lulu Heart is actually super weak. She takes this tiny girl form, yet she always acts so incredibly confident. But honestly, she's just an empty shell, with barely a single speck of magic left. He realizes he really needs to try harder. He cannot let Lulu Heart exhaust herself. Reaching the entrance, he asks if they just push straight for the second stratum. They head for the Lulu Heart dungeon next. She agrees with the plan, but notes that before hitting the second stratum, he has a crucial task. Confused, he asks what she means. She fires back he seriously needs to become king. Yukari just stares, completely stunned by the idea. But before she even bothers to explain, the two of them step right into the dungeon. They have no idea someone is watching them from above. Just like the spies predicted, the targets have entered the Lulu Heart dungeon. Watching them is Mokasagi, an S-class player ranked 16th working for the Kakudaran Guild. She tells her guildmate Toma Kagamagasi, an A-rank player, that they need to track them down, just like their intel suggested. Toma groans, hunting down absolute nobodies is just a massive pain to him. Moka explains the Koga Guildmaster suspects Yukari actually cleared the Lulu Heart dungeon, though Toma laughs it off as a total lie. After all, Yukari only just hit B rank. Even Moka highly doubts a B rank guy somehow beat the first floor all by himself, but she knows for sure he holds some extremely valuable intel. Even the Oryu Guildmaster warned the regular scouts to stay far away. If she were wrong about this, nobody would have handed a direct assassination request to underground operatives like the two of them. She makes it clear to Toma their mission is incredibly simple. If this kid actually beat the dungeon, all they have to do is murder a weak B rank and steal his authority over the first floor. Now watch how wrong they are. Down on the first floor's Elorian Great Forest, Yukari is already brawling with an S-class rose monster. He summons his fire element, sending it to strike from the right while he dashes hard to the left side. A massive wave of flame hits the creature, but the monster perfectly blocks it behind a thick swarm of roses. Yukari expects exactly this, commanding his fire element to keep blasting. While the beast stays distracted, blocking the heavy heat, Yukari rushes right in from behind. The monster senses his approach instantly, triggering her dangerous Charm Bloom ability. Glowing rose petals scatter everywhere, charming any target caught inside the zone, and completely locking down their ability to fight back. The petals wash over him, but do absolutely nothing. He simply triggers his Lostman's skill, wiping the charm effect right off himself. Dashing forward, he lands a brutal strike that shoves the monster back instantly, ordering his flames summoned to end the fight. The fire element unleashes a massive blast, burning the beast to ash. Lulu Heart praises his flawless execution. He admits he actually died 3 times getting here, but beating it with 1 soul summon and saving mana makes the pain entirely worth it. Lulu Heart warns him that endless battles lie ahead, making this place the perfect brutal training ground against S-class threats. He thanks her for the heads up, but insists they really need to crank up their efficiency. They have to cut mana usage down and finish fights much faster because time is rapidly running out. Moments later, Lulu Heart drops a truly horrifying confession. This changes everything. She explains that before Kararian retreated, that monster cast a nasty curse on Sierra, leaving the mark of Ludess behind. Lulu Heart guesses Sakurako noticed the mark too. Yukari demands to know why nobody spoke up, turning to sprint back to Sierra, but Lulu Heart immediately stops him. She explains that confronting them openly right now would just force Karen to set up deadlier traps. They have to play dumb and act like nothing happened. That lures Karen into getting careless while they work to break the mark of Ludess. The mark is a vile seed. If it spreads, Sierra literally transforms into a succubus. She would become Kararian's mindless puppet, tearing open a direct passageway for Kararian to invade the living world. If that happens, an apocalyptic dungeon break hits the human world early. Desperate, he asks her what it takes to stop this nightmare. She tells him they have to reach the legendary world tree, hidden deep inside Serendiana's great castle, and grab a single drop of its sap. That single drop from the world tree acts as a miracle cure, and it is the only thing capable of breaking Sierra's deadly curse. But Lulu Heart lacks the massive mana capacity needed to roam the first floor freely, since simply moving through this place drains her reserves. So conquering the Elorian Great Forest falls entirely on Yukari's shoulders. He already knows he can't lean on Lulu Heart forever to survive. As they keep running forward, Lulu Heart begs him to stay sharp. Back in her prime, she designed every single floor of the Lulu Heart dungeon as a unique world, letting countless races build their own ecosystems and violent cultures. Yukari knows that means dealing with a massive variety of insane monsters. He promises her that whatever jumps out, he will crush it. But she shakes her head. Ever since Queen Serindiana got defeated down here, every single race on the first floor has been waging total war for dominance. Simply put, the entire first floor is an absolute bloodbath between rival races, completely destroying any sense of security. Yukari suddenly freezes, sensing a massive surge of power nearby. He picks up a heavy presence and tells Lulu Heart there's a massive monster swarm nearby. She orders an immediate attack. She tells him to hold absolutely nothing back. He agrees, rushing straight into the chaos, but spots a literal child, right in the dead center of a wolf pack. He triggers Resonance of Soul, tearing through the beasts, blocking his path. But one manages to flank him. Luckily, he ducks just in time to dodge the strike, taking its head off with one clean slash. He immediately summons Harville. She unleashes Wave of Despair, stunning the rest of the pack. Yukari blasts forward at insane speeds. He effortlessly cuts down the surrounding wolves. Walking up to the kid, he holds out a hand and asks if she's hurt. She just asks who he is. After he introduces himself, the kid checks out his system interface, putting the pieces together. She guesses he's the guy who took down Serindiana. Sensing zero bad intentions, she gives him a smile and thanks him for the rescue. Getting to her feet, she introduces herself as Cecilia, the actual leader of the elves. This totally throws him off, because that puts her on the exact same level as Serindiana. But bad news, Cecilia already knows he's the exact player who killed Serindiana. He's the literal reason their entire world is falling apart right now. She gives this super creepy smile. She tells him to take full responsibility. Out of nowhere, 2 more elves drop in behind him. But Cecilia actually begs him, don't just become the Elf King, but rule the entire first floor. She wants him to save their dying world. Yukari remembers Lulu Heart mentioning this whole king thing earlier, though she skipped all the actual details. Still, he figures, coming from Lulu Heart, there has to be a solid reason for it. Cecilia promises she has zero intention of hurting him. She just wants him to listen for a second. Yukari doesn't sense any real threat here, but he looks over at Lulu Heart, questioning if this is a trap. Lulu Heart tells him to answer the key to saving Sierra is literally in Cecilia's hands right now. She confirms she secured the ring de lingua. It's a special item that lets them communicate straight past the language barrier. Nodding, he holds his hand out to Cecilia and tells her to explain everything. She actually calls him pretty bold, trusting a totally strange race and making friends without a second thought. Honestly, it gives her a little bit of hope. She takes his hand. Cecilia says there's something he needs to see, asking for permission to show him. He says, sure. A second later, they drop into a massive sunflower field. Except Cecilia immediately drops a bomb. Those aren't real plants. She explains that every single sunflower here used to be an elf. That just scrambles his brain even more. They were physically transformed into these flowers. He asks what could even cause this, but gets startled when Lucelle screams at him. Lucelle furiously blames him for all of it, because he killed Serindiana. Cecilia snaps at Lucelle to calm down. Arguing about the past won't fix a thing, she warns him. Regaining her cool, she steers them back to the main issue. She explains Lulu Heart built this first floor using Yggdrasil, basically a giant magical engine that keeps everything running. Serindiana, the queen of the first floor, was put in charge of managing Yggdrasil. Hearing this makes Lulu Heart nod with pure pride. But as Cecilia points out, Yukari killed her. Without a queen to control the system, Yggdrasil completely lost its main anchor and went totally out of control. The machine just started draining magical power from every monster in their world, leaving them with this horrifying field as a result. And honestly, the problem doesn't even stop there. Other races took advantage of the total chaos. They sparked massive rebellions against the elves who ruled for generations. That wolf pack from earlier, just one of the rebel factions. Still, Cecilia assures him she isn't holding a grudge here. She doesn't blame him for killing Serindiana. The strong crushing the weak is just how nature works. Yukari then asks her, is this the real reason she needs him to be king? It finally clicks for him. Lulu Heart actually wanted him to fix this massive mess. Plus, to lift Sierra's curse, he has to reach Yggdrasil anyway. Having more heavy hitters backing him up, way better for his odds. He immediately agrees to take the throne of the Lulu Heart dungeon. Cecilia is completely shocked. She really thought he would need more convincing. She warns him that his choice will cause massive shockwaves outside the dungeon, but he brushes it off. He's got business with Yggdrasil anyway, and there's no way he's abandoning people who need help. Cecilia can't believe he's actually this much of a soft-hearted fool. She's ready to hand over the throne. But Lucelle steps in. He draws his bow, aiming straight at Yukari. Lucelle refuses to believe this is happening, handing their world over to a human. Yukari calmly tells him he doesn't want to fight. But Lulu Heart chimes in, sometimes the fastest way to deal with things is beating an arrogant brat back into his place. Talking is clearly not going to solve a thing right now. Sighing in pure frustration, he raises his blade and tells Lucelle to bring it on. That just pisses the elf off more. He fires a blazing arrow. Yukari tracks the shot. It's fast, but definitely not fast enough to hit him. He can hardly dodge a thing, and then Lucelle triggers his Duga skill. The arrows instantly multiply, surging right at Yukari. Lucelle goes straight for the kill, but freezes in absolute shock when Yukari just stands there. Turns out he fired up Lost Man to completely wipe out any fear. With his panic gone, he notices the arrows' paths are basically straight lines. Forcing his muscles to relax, he pops Soul Trial for a massive magic boost. The catch, it hits him with heavy emptiness and pure rage. Even with those nasty penalties, he effortlessly deflects every single arrow, leaving Lucelle absolutely speechless. He hits Lost Man a second time to cleanse all those debuffs, then dashes straight into the remaining 5 arrows. Lucelle cannot believe it. The guy is charging straight through. Does he even feel fear? Yukari stays completely cold, dodging the first strike. Then as 3 more arrows close in, he cleanly slices them right in half. Catching the final arrow barehanded, he hurls it straight back with terrifying force. By some miracle, Lucelle barely manages to dive out of the way. Grabbing a projectile mid-flight is absolute madness to Lucelle. Scrambling to his feet, he desperately tries to get his balance back. But before he can even plant his feet, a razor-sharp blade is pressed against his head. One twitch means death. Cecilia steps in, announcing Lucelle is lost. He tries to argue, but she instantly silences him with another threat. She firmly declares the battle over. Absolutely terrified of his leader, Lucelle has no choice but to admit defeat. Turning to Yukari, Cecilia notes that her squad finally respects his real power. Then she asks the big question. Are they ready for Yggdrasil?